The scene opens with a wide shot of a modern, bustling city center where crowds of people pass by a large, contemporary building. Bystanders on the street and in their cars stop to stare in amazement as a striking figure walks through the area. A woman with long, flowing lavender hair and a chic black outfit strolls confidently across the plaza. She hears a persistent car horn and turns her head to see who is trying to get her attention. A man leaning out of his car window combs through his hair with a smug, self-assured expression. He attempts to pick her up by offering his company for the nearby exhibition, but she simply ignores him and continues on her way. Suddenly, the woman stops in her tracks as if reconsidering the interaction. She turns back toward the man with a mysterious and knowing smile. With a playful gesture, she beckons him to leave his vehicle and come closer to her. The man is visibly surprised but pleased that his forward approach seemingly worked. He quickly hops out of his car and hurries over to her with an excited, love-struck look. As he reaches her, he expects a friendly encounter, but she maintains a sharp and calculated gaze. Without warning, she reaches out and firmly grabs him by his necktie. Following a brief physical confrontation, the man is left clutching himself in absolute agony. He falls to his knees, tearfully begging for mercy as the woman looms over him with a triumphant smirk. She dismissively dusts off her hands and labels him a scoundrel for his behavior. With a final huff of annoyance, she leaves the defeated man behind on the sidewalk. A friend named Yukai spots her and waves enthusiastically from the crowd to get her attention. The two meet up at the entrance of a massive cultural festival venue that is packed with visitors. As they walk through the entrance, Lanshan questions the popularity of the event and what there is to see. Her friend excitedly shows off the tickets she secured, eager to experience the exhibition. They link arms and head deeper into the building to begin their tour. The hallway is lined with high-end advertisements and various displays that catch their eyes. Yukai looks at her phone with a mischievous grin, clearly enjoying the outing. They pass by a quirky, smiling banana-shaped display that adds to the unique atmosphere of the venue. The friends share a light-hearted moment as they compare the different exhibits around them. Yukai suddenly spots something that makes her stop and stare in disbelief. She points out a digital price tag displaying a staggering amount of nearly 100,000 credits. She wonders out loud who would ever be willing to spend that much money on such an item. Lanshan looks over at the nearby display area to see what could possibly cost so much. She discovers a remarkably lifelike male figure sitting alone on a chair and stares at it in total silence. Yukai notices her friend's intense focus and pulls her back to reality with a joke. She then drags Lanshan closer to the figure, insisting they take a better look at the realistic craftsmanship. A close-up reveals the incredible detail in the figure's eyes and facial features. They examine the intricate design of the clothing and the realistic texture of the model's neck. Even the hands are crafted with such precision that they look almost human. Lanshan reaches out and places a hand on the figure's arm to test the material's texture. She is impressed by how realistic and well-made the display is, noting its high quality. Suddenly, the figure's eyes shift and look directly up at her, catching her off guard. Yukai playfully suggests that Lanshan should just buy the model and take it home for herself. The friend leans in close, suggesting they perform a detailed quality check on the figure's features. Lanshan gives a sly smile, entertained by the bold idea of inspecting the exhibit so thoroughly. Nearby, the figure rests his chin on his hand, appearing to be deep in thought. When Lanshan tries to reach out again, the figure quickly moves his head to evade her touch. She stands frozen in absolute shock as she realizes the model is actually a living person staring back at her. Lanshan is completely mortified and speechless by the awkward misunderstanding. Meanwhile, her friend continues to laugh, thinking the figure's movement is just a programmed response. While Yukai looks around to see if any staff are watching, Lanshan remains stuck in a state of pure embarrassment. Lanshan covers her friend's mouth and apologizes profusely, claiming the supposed doll has been possessed. She drags Yukai away at a sprint, frantically explaining that the exhibit was actually a living person. The two girls flee the scene as the man watches them disappear into the crowd. He stands alone in the exhibition hall, reflecting on the bizarre encounter. His internal monologue is interrupted by his phone vibrating incessantly in his pocket. The screen displays an incoming call from his scheduled blind date partner. He answers the call, calmly confirming that he has arrived at the venue. He looks back at the empty chair where he had been waiting just moments before. He recalls the brief moment of physical contact when the girls mistook him for a lifelike model. While staying on the line, he specifies his exact location near the doll exhibition area. A woman in a purple dress spots him from across the hall and waves to get his attention. She is immediately impressed by his appearance, feeling lucky that her date is so handsome. Internally, She reveals that she chose this specific festival to test his personality and see is easily distracted. The man remains composed and professional, not paying any attention to the surrounding displays. She begins the date by asking him about his prestigious career as a physics professor. He answers her financial questions with blunt honesty, describing his parents' modest lifestyle. As they walk past a display of yellow keepsakes, she continues to judge his social and economic standing. Despite her reservations about his background, she decides to continue the date because of his looks. Suddenly, the man hears loud laughter and turns his head to find the source. He spots Lan Shan and Yukai nearby, playfully swinging large yellow keepsakes at each other. He recognizes Lan Shan immediately, his expression turning cold as he watches her. Lan Shan is completely unaware of his presence, laughing joyfully during the mock duel. The man watches them with clear disapproval, finding their behavior troublesome. His eyes shift to a CCTV camera mounted on the wall directly above the two girls. A subtle, calculating smile appears on his face as he looks back at the camera. He pulls out his smartphone and begins typing rapidly on the screen. His date watches him with curiosity as he works with intense focus on his device. He uses a technical code to remotely link his phone to the security camera's feed. Nearby festival goers begin pointing at a large overhead monitor and laughing at the display. A stylized version of the girls' playful battle is projected onto the big screen for everyone to see. Lan Shan notices the crowd's reaction and looks up toward the monitor. The two girls freeze in place as they realize they have become the unintended stars of the festival. They stare in horror at the giant screen broadcasting their embarrassing behavior to the entire venue. The man watches from the shadows, satisfied that his prank has hit its mark. Overwhelmed by shame, the girls drop their items and run away as fast as they can. Lan Shan covers her face in mortification while rushing past the man, who remains perfectly still. The scene shifts to the exterior of a large Totayo automotive dealership. Lan Shan walks through the office in a sharp professional suit, serving as the head of the sales department. She enters a private office where a senior manager is finishing a meeting with other staff. She immediately senses a heavy and uncomfortable atmosphere in the room. Mr. Wang, the manager, removes his glasses and sighs with deep frustration. Lan Shan looks on with concern, worried that something serious has happened at the store. He explains that he intercepted a report from the customer service department to speak with her privately first. He reveals that a customer has filed a formal complaint regarding her professional conduct. Lan Shan is stunned by the accusation, struggling to understand how she could be the target of such a report. Mr. Wang slides the physical complaint document across the desk for her to read. As she reviews the paperwork, her expression turns to one of total shock when she sees who filed it. A man in a sharp suit adjusted his glasses while smoking a cigarette. He sat across from a staff member, reviewing some paperwork with a cold expression. He wrote down his contact information along with the name of his brother, Feng Qiao. Lan Shan stared at the document in disbelief as she processed the information. Her assistant rushed over to deliver some urgent news about the situation. The assistant explained that a client canceled their contract because of a formal complaint. Lan Shan gripped the paper tightly, her knuckles turning white from frustration. She exploded in a fit of rage, convinced that this Feng Qiao was intentionally trying to ruin her life. The scene shifted to the modern campus of B University. Lan Shan walked through the halls with her friend, hoping a change of scenery would lift her spirits. She reminded her friend about the deal they made regarding a new consulting contract. They discussed a mysterious professor who supposedly joined their company just for the fun of it. The two women entered a large lecture hall filled with students. Lan Shan noticed that the class was incredibly crowded for a physics lecture. Other students whispered excitedly about the professor's legendary popularity. Lan Shan figured the guy must be famous more for his looks than his actual teaching ability. A wave of excitement hit the room as the students announced the professor's arrival. Lan Shan looked up, curious to see the person everyone was making such a fuss about. The professor stepped into the room, his polished shoes clicking against the floor. He looked calm and professional as he prepared to address the class. He stood at the front of the room and announced that the lecture was beginning. Lan Shan and her friend were paralyzed with shock when they recognized him from the festival. While her friend panicked and begged for mercy, Lan Shan tried to stay focused on a plan. The professor's gaze swept over the crowd until he spotted the familiar face in the audience. Lan Shan sat through the lecture with a forced smile, feeling the weight of the awkward situation. The professor looked slightly bothered as he tried to maintain his professional composure. He focused on his notes, determined to prioritize his teaching over the distraction. He continued the lesson, reading from his textbook with a steady, authoritative tone. Lan Shan found herself mesmerized by the quality of his voice, even though she didn't understand physics. The school bell finally rang, signaling the end of the intense session. Lan Shan and her friend hurried out of their seats to intercept the professor before he left. They caught up to him in the hallway and asked if he had a moment to talk. He agreed to speak with them and suggested they move the conversation outside. The group walked through the university courtyard to find a more private spot. Lan Shan scrambled to find a neutral topic to break the ice between them. She asked him a basic question about the definition of quantum physics. He provided a detailed explanation about the smallest units of energy in the microscopic world. The two friends shared their silly misconceptions about the term, trying to lighten the mood. The atmosphere became more serious as they prepared to address the real issue. Lanshan offered a sincere apology for the misunderstanding that happened at the cultural festival. The professor listened to her explanation with a neutral, unreadable expression. He looked away for a moment, seemingly deep in thought about her words. Sensing a chance to make amends, Lanshan signaled her friend to help him out. Her friend reached out to help carry the heavy stack of handouts he was holding. As Lanshan took some of the materials, her eyes widened at a specific detail. She saw the name Fiao printed clearly on the cover of the department folder. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks as she stared at the name. She confronted him immediately, asking if he was indeed the person named Feng Qiao. Her face darkened with anger as she confirmed his identity as the man who reported her. He looked back at her calmly, confirming that he was the person she suspected. Unable to contain her fury, Lanshan pulled back her fist for a powerful strike. She landed a heavy punch right on the professor's face, sending his papers flying everywhere. Night falls over the quiet apartment complex where Lanshan resides. Lanshan stomps down the hallway, still fuming over the day's events. She aggressively shoves her key into the lock, ready to call it a night. The door refuses to budge, pushing her frustration to the breaking point. Suddenly, she hears a voice behind her and freezes in her tracks. Turning around, she's shocked to see a familiar face standing in the corridor. Feng Qiao stands there calmly, watching her struggle with the door. She immediately goes on the offensive, accusing him of having a slow reaction to her threat. She clutches her head, wondering why on earth he followed her home. In her mind, he's a dedicated stalker plotting long-term revenge for the punch. She takes a cautious step back to keep her distance from the supposed threat. He stares back with an unreadable expression as she tries to figure out his next move. Attempting to throw him off the scent, she puts on a fake smile. She boldly claims that he's mistaken and this isn't actually her home. Ignoring her antics completely, Feng Qiao walks right past her. He reaches out and slides his own key into the lock of the adjacent door. The unit number clearly marks the entrance to his own private space. He reveals the shocking truth. He actually lives right there. Lanshan is left utterly speechless, her brain failing to process the coincidence. He gives her one final, cool look before stepping inside. The door slams shut, leaving her alone with her thoughts in the hallway. She stares at the door number, unable to believe her luck is this bad. The realization that they are neighbors sends her into a panicked frenzy. She slumps against the wall, realizing she's stuck there, because the rent is already paid. Defeated by her financial situation, she finally drags herself into her own apartment. She collapses onto the bed, feeling like life is working against her. While lying down, she checks her messages to distract herself from the nightmare. A friend encourages her to find a way to get back at the petty professor. The thought makes her blood boil as she rolls around in a fit of rage. She sits up with a new plan and starts typing away on her phone. She prepares a social media post calling out her neighbor as someone to be avoided. Feeling much better after venting online, she wears a mischievous grin. She tosses the phone aside and heads off to take a shower. The phone sits abandoned on the bed as the screen begins to light up. Notifications start flooding in, signaling that her post is gaining immediate attention. The scene opens with a view of a massive apartment complex under a bright, clear sky. Lanshan walks down a hallway, stopping in her tracks when she spots someone familiar ahead. Feng Qiao is standing nearby, focused on a small slip of paper while holding a bottle of milk. The two rivals find themselves in a tense standoff on the narrow walkway. Lanshan can't help but mock him, pointing out that he's still drinking milk at his age. Feng Qiao completely ignores the jab, turning his attention to his mailbox to retrieve his mail. Frustrated by his lack of reaction, Lanshan lets out a huff of annoyance. The pair begins walking up the stairs together in a thick, awkward silence. Feng Qiao maintains a detached, stoic expression as he ascends. Lanshan trails slightly behind, wearing a subtle, mischievous smirk as she watches him. Their reflections are caught in a glass pane as they reach the landing. Lanshan continues to hide a knowing smile, clearly plotting her next move. She begins to whistle casually, which finally gets a reaction as Feng Qiao looks back with a hint of irritation. He stops walking, his stance becoming firm as he prepares to address her. Turning around, he demands to know exactly what she is after. Lanshan crosses her arms, asking if he's still feeling bitter about the punch she landed on him earlier. In a heated chibi-style rant, she argues that his complaints are the real reason her reputation at work is currently in the gutter. Feng Qiao calmly looks away, stating that he never actually filed a formal complaint against her. Lan Shan is stunned, wondering who could have reported her if it wasn't him. And then he reveals that while someone definitely wanted her out of a job, he wasn't the one who initiated it. Feng Qiao explains that after he requested to terminate his contract, the sales staff took it upon themselves to file the complaint without his consent. Lan Shan points an accusing finger, arguing that his initial remarks still turned her into a professional villain. Feng Qiao listens to her outburst with a neutral, silent expression. He acknowledges that the situation is a mess and offers a formal, solemn apology for the trouble. Lan Shan stands frozen in complete shock, totally unprepared for him to actually be sincere. Her chibi self quickly softens, realizing she might have overreacted a bit as well. Feng Qiao mentions he knows why she's really hanging around, leading Lan Shan to deflect with a joke about his appearance. He calls her out for being narcissistic, while she mockingly praises his beauty to hide her embarrassment. Feng Qiao takes her sarcasm surprisingly seriously, looking genuinely troubled by the interaction. Lan Shan thinks to herself that since they've cleared up the misunderstanding, they might finally be able to coexist. They prepare to head into their respective homes, with Lan Shan hoping to avoid future arguments. Suddenly, a savory scent catches Lan Shan's attention, causing her to stop and sniff the air. Inside a kitchen, a pot of steamed fish is simmering away on a hot stove. Lan Shan quickly reaches out to stop Feng Qiao's door from closing so she can investigate the source of the smell. She confronts him at the doorway, asking if he's the one responsible for the delicious cooking. He confirms that he made the meal himself, much to her surprise. Lan Shan's face lights up with pure joy as she takes in the mouth-watering aroma. In a cute chibi moment, she looks up at him with pleading eyes and a hopeful expression. Feng Qiao immediately catches onto her plan and asks if she's just trying to score a free dinner. Lan Shan looks skeptical as Feng Qiao asks a blunt question during their conversation. Feng Qiao maintains a calm, expressionless face while pointing out her lack of shame when mocking others. Lan Shan visibly fumes with frustration at his directness. Feng Qiao continues to watch her with a stoic profile. He gestures for her to follow him into his home. Lan Shan happily skips into the modern apartment, ready for a free meal. Inside the kitchen, a pan sizzles with a mix of eggs and vegetables. Lan Shan offers to help with the preparation, but Feng Qiao tells her to just have a seat. Lan Shan is surprised to see 2 whole fish served on a plate. She looks confused when he mentions a diner named Schrödinger. The mystery guest is revealed to be a large orange cat sitting patiently on a chair. Lan Shan crouches down to greet the feline, realizing she's essentially competing with a cat for dinner. The two sit across from each other at a table filled with various dishes. Lan Shan holds her chopsticks awkwardly, wondering if they should say grace or just dive in. Feng Qiao begins portioning out the food with clinical precision. He asks her a blunt question about sharing utensils that leaves her completely flustered. Lan Shan reacts with shock to his bluntness while Feng Qiao remains focused on the meal. They both begin eating their dinner in silence. Lan Shan looks incredibly satisfied as she realizes how delicious the food is. She excitedly asks him for the secret recipe to the rice. In her excitement, she grabs his hand across the table, causing him to pause. Feng Qiao explains that the rice was grown naturally by his grandfather without any chemicals. Lan Shan laughs, mentioning her own grandfather was a herdsman and promising to bring him specialty meat next time. Lan Shan quickly finishes her portion and stares at her empty bowl. She notices that Feng Qiao hasn't even finished half of his meal yet. He takes small, precise bites of his food with his chopsticks. He continues to eat at a very slow and deliberate pace. Lan Shan wipes her mouth and teases him, calling his eating habits unmanly. Feng Qiao ignores the jab and continues eating his rice in silence. Lan Shan eventually asks how he knew she was the specific sales lead for his car purchase. She wonders if he was just guessing because she seemed familiar. No. Feng Qiao asserts that he doesn't make mistakes and that no information on the internet can be hidden from him. He mentions a specific number that sounds like a romantic phrase in their language. Lan Shan reacts with extreme shock, thinking he is suddenly confessing his feelings. He clarifies that he was actually reciting her exact math grade from the 4th grade. Realizing his digital tracking skills are top tier, Lan Shan panics and tries to delete a social media post. Feng Qiao watches her with a calm, knowing expression as she scrambles. Lan Shan looks at her phone in horror, realizing he has already tracked her down. On her screen, a post mocking her neighbor has a comment from Feng Qiao himself, proving he found her account. A hand offers a small dried fish as a treat for the cat. Feng Qiao crouches down to watch his pet enjoy the snack. A notification pops up on his phone from someone named Karina saying hi. Feng Qiao glances at the screen with a neutral expression. The chat continues with Karina complaining about being unhappy lately. Sitting on the couch, Feng Qiao wonders why she's sharing this information with him. Karina follows up by asking if he simply doesn't want to talk to her. The doorbell interrupts the tension as Feng Qiao sits with his cat. Lanshan stands outside the door, focused on her own phone. Feng Qiao sends a blunt, one-word confirmation that he doesn't wish to talk. He goes back to feeding another small treat to the cat. After dealing with the digital annoyance, he stands at the counter in the quiet apartment. The next day arrives with clear skies over the apartment complex. Lanshan heads out to pick up a delivery, chatting on her phone. She pauses in the hallway when a delicious aroma catches her attention. Peeking toward the neighbor's door, she can't help but crave whatever is being cooked. She spots Feng Qiao wearing an apron and efficiently preparing food. Despite the temptation, she tries to convince herself to just order out instead. Lanshan presents a pair of fresh cherries as a small offering. Feng Qiao looks surprised by the sudden gift. He offers a small smile, asking if the fruit is a return gift for the previous meal. Lanshan follows him inside, carrying her things and praising the smell of the food. Feng Qiao leads the way as she smiles brightly beside him. She is thrilled that her plan to get a good meal is working out. A spread of several dishes is already waiting on the table, prepared specifically for her. Feng Qiao finishes setting the table while Lanshan notices the cat doesn't seem happy to see her. Lanshan gives a quick gesture of thanks before diving into the food. She begins eating with incredible speed while Feng Qiao watches in silence. In record time, the plates are cleared, and she expresses her total satisfaction. Feng Qiao stares at her, internally questioning how she can eat so much. Lanshan lets out a satisfied burp, completely unbothered. Feng Qiao concludes that his neighbor is a massive glutton. Lanshan takes over the task of washing a bowl of cherries in the sink. She stands at the counter while Feng Qiao works nearby in the kitchen. Lanshan tries one of the cherries and confirms they are delicious. She offers one of the fruits to Feng Qiao so he can try it too. He pauses for a moment, looking at the offering. He takes the fruit from her hand to taste it. Feng Qiao eats the cherry, admits that it is very sweet. Lanshan turns away with a slight blush on her face after the interaction. The two spend a quiet moment in the living room while the cat rests on the floor. Lanshan looks thoughtful, trying to think of another reason to stay. She asks Feng Qiao if he has any experience fixing computers. With a bright idea, she asks if he would be willing to take a look at her machine. A lone cockroach scuttles across the floor near some storage boxes. The pest navigates through a sea of trash, discarded cans, and household clutter. It climbs up the side of a dark piece of furniture, seeking its next hiding spot. Suddenly, a slipper comes crashing down, successfully terminating the intruder. Lanshan stands over the scene with her slipper held high, while a shocked Feng Qiao watches from the hallway. She casually invites him into the room, seemingly unfazed by her messy living conditions. Feng Qiao stares into the abyss of her disorganized apartment, completely speechless. He lets out a heavy sigh, trying to process the absolute chaos before him. Stepping over the threshold, he prepares himself to handle the task at hand. Lanshan explains that her computer has been dead for days while Feng Qiao takes a seat to inspect it. He gets straight to work, using a screwdriver to open up the computer case. Upon peeling back the panel, he finds a confusing mess of wires and components. Lanshan leans in closer, looking worried as she watches the expert at work. Feng Qiao points out that a vital internal component is completely missing, asking if the place was robbed. Lanshan realizes she might have accidentally removed the part herself while tinkering. Feng Qiao gives her a deadpan look, waiting for her to explain how she managed that. She admits that after taking things apart, she had a few leftover screws and couldn't figure out where the long component went. He closes his eyes in frustration, realizing the repair is impossible without the missing hardware. He informs her that she'll have to buy a replacement part first. Lanshan suddenly remembers where she put it and lunges toward a nearby shelf. She triumphantly reveals the missing memory stick, proving she didn't lose it after all. Feng Qiao looks at her and remarks that she is a very special individual. He maintains a calm, slightly amused expression as she waits for a compliment. Lanshan blushes intensely, misinterpreting his words as something sweet. He immediately crushes her spirits by clarifying that he meant she is especially stupid. Defeated and ridiculed, Lanshan retreats to a corner to sulk in shame. The monitor finally powers on, displaying the standard startup screen. However, the desktop reveals an embarrassing wallpaper of a man, making the atmosphere incredibly awkward. Lanshan tries to pivot the conversation by handing over a tube of ointment. She offers the medicine as a sincere apology for his facial injury. The two share a quiet, lingering look as the tension begins to melt away. Feng Qiao stands up to leave, mentioning he has a gift for her as well. He presents her with a box of heavy-duty cockroach killer to deal with her infestation. She laughs off the insult and accepts the gift, hoping they are finally on good terms. Lanshan offers her hand, suggesting they start fresh as good neighbors. Feng Qiao looks down at her hand and lets out a soft, genuine smile. They seal their new partnership with a firm, friendly handshake. A mop slides across the wooden floor as a deep cleaning session begins. Lanshan works hard to tidy up her apartment, keeping her neighbor's high standards in mind. The sound of the doorbell interrupts her chores, catching her off guard. Feng Qiao stands at the entrance, calmly holding Schrödinger in his arms. Lanshan stops her mopping to see what her neighbor needs. He asks if she'll be joining them for dinner again while the cat lets out a meow. Lanshan jokingly imagines that the cat is the one actually giving the orders. She politely declines the offer for today while giving the cat a friendly pat. Lanshan explains that she already has plans to grab hot pot with her friend, Little Veggie. Feng Qiao accepts the answer and prepares to head back to his own place. Before he can leave, Lanshan offers to handle the grocery shopping for tomorrow's meal instead. Feng Qiao pauses, looking back at her with a hint of confusion, as she clarifies that missing dinner today just means they should make up for it tomorrow. The day continues as the sun begins to set over the quiet apartment complex. Later that evening, the two friends meet up at a busy hot pot restaurant. Little Veggie slams her hands on the table in total disbelief. She can't believe how quickly Lanshan became close enough with her neighbor to share meals. Curious about the mysterious professor, Little Veggie asks for more details about him. She finds the whole situation a bit unusual and questions his lifestyle. Lanshan focuses on her food, listening while her cheeks are full. Little Veggie wonders aloud how a man in his position doesn't have a partner yet. She begins to form a wild theory about the connection between Feng Qiao and his brother. The suggestion of a mysterious financial benefactor is so shocking that Lanshan nearly chokes on her drink. She quickly corrects her friend, emphasizing that the two men are definitely siblings. Little Veggie remains skeptical, pointing out that they don't look very much alike. She argues that such significant financial support is rare even between real relatives. Lanshan finds herself unable to argue back as the logic starts to seem plausible. Little Veggie suggests that the only way to know for sure is to ask him directly. Night falls over the city as the lights in the apartment building begin to glow. The next day, Feng Qiao looks over the massive haul of grocery and Shan brought home. He criticizes the quality of the produce, noting that it doesn't look very fresh. Lanshan explains she did the shopping late at night when the selection was limited. Feng Qiao mutters a lighthearted insult under his breath about her lack of shopping skills. Lanshan is taken aback by his bluntness. Her mind wanders back to the strange theories her friend proposed during dinner. Feng Qiao notices her odd behavior and asks what is going through her head. Lanshan accidentally blurts out an awkward question regarding a specific household task. She immediately regrets her words as she realizes how confusing she must sound. Feng Qiao looks at her with a blank stare, completely baffled by her line of questioning. Lanshan's face is a mask of pure shock as she processes some startling information. She stands awkwardly across from Feng Qiao, who looks at her with total confusion near 2 bags of groceries. The professor explains that he simply picks up random items like scarves and even his cat from the street. Lanshan tries to play it cool, nodding along while trying to figure out how to escape the conversation. Feng Qiao gives a completely literal and serious response to her awkward line of questioning. Realizing she needs a timeout, she makes a quick exit and promises to return for their scheduled meal the next day. Back at her own place, she looks completely drained after the bizarre encounter. She collapses onto her sofa, her spirit practically leaving her body from the stress. Wallowing in her thoughts, she laments the idea that all the good men are already taken. She lies flat on the cushions, staring into space as she overthinks every detail. Taking a moment to sit up, she tries to convince herself to be progressive and open-minded about people's personal lives. However, the internal struggle is real, and she realizes she would have preferred to stay in the dark. Frustrated, she pulls out her phone and starts typing a message with intense focus. Little Veggie gets a random, "I hate you" text, and is left completely baffled by the sudden hostility. Meanwhile, a man in a formal suit arrives at the Wu family residence for a visit. The visitor loosens his tie, getting comfortable for an evening at home, and he leans in to let Feng Qiao know that it is finally time for them to have dinner. The two men stand together, showing a clear and familiar family bond. Feng Qiao grabs a tablet to initiate a scheduled video call with their parents. A full spread of various cooked dishes is laid out on the table for their weekly gathering. The brothers sit down to eat while their father joins them via a large screen on the wall. The father greets his sons from his location abroad, noting how long it has been. A high-tech, modified camera moves to give the father a better look at what they're eating. The screen displays a variety of colorful and appetizing meals that the brothers have prepared. Their father looks a bit jealous on the screen as he eats a simple meal of sushi by himself. The brothers enjoy their meal, with the elder one particularly enjoying the delicious shrimp. The conversation turns to more personal matters as the father asks about Feng Qiao's recent social outings. Feng Qiao explains that his dates were actually just a clinical test for new software he developed. Both the father and the older brother are left speechless by his purely academic approach to romance. Disappointed by his son's lack of social initiative, the father can only sigh and facepalm. The video call concludes, leaving the brothers alone in the living room once again. The older brother offers some friendly encouragement while they finish up their evening. He asks about the car and the situation with the sales girl, urging Feng Qiao not to be too hard on her. Feng Qiao mentions he already dropped the complaint, but still has no interest in the vehicle. Suddenly, the door to the apartment begins to swing open without warning. Lan Shan comes charging and looking for milk, completely unaware that anyone else is there. She stops dead in her tracks, her eyes wide as she spots a second person in the room. Seeing the brothers in close proximity, she jumps to the wrong conclusion and immediately regrets her intrusion. Lan Shan sits alone in the company lounge, staring at a slip of paper with milk delivery info. As she sips her tea, realizing she needs to be way more careful before barging into Feng Qiao's place next time. Her imagination runs wild as she visualizes a sweet moment between Feng Qiao and his brother, causing a total internal meltdown. Just as she's lost in thought, a colleague approaches her table and catches her off guard. She looks up to find Mr. Wang standing there, asking her what's going on. Mr. Wang pours some coffee while dropping the bombshell that the big boss is coming for a surprise inspection. Lan Shan is stunned because the mysterious owner hasn't shown his face since handing the reins to the manager. She tries to dig for info to prepare herself, but Mr. Wang admits even he's never met the guy. Walking through the dealership, Lan Shan feels lucky that Feng Qiao dropped his complaint before the big boss arrived. Her thoughts are interrupted by the sound of someone coughing nearby. She turns her head to see who's wandering around the showroom. Before she can react, she accidentally slams right into a tall man in a white suit, sending her phone flying. The device hits the floor with a loud crack, likely ruining the screen. The stranger immediately reaches down to retrieve the damaged phone for her. He hands it back with a polite apology, appearing completely unfazed by the collision. Lan Shan quickly switches into work mode, flashing her best business smile to ask if he's looking for a car. The man stares back at her with a calm, unreadable expression. He tells her he'd like to look around first, and she professionally leads the way. As they walk, she can't help but feel a bit uneasy about this mysterious visitor's sudden appearance. When she asks about his preferences, he vaguely mentions that his choice depends entirely on his mood. Lan Shan guides him to a high-end sports car, pitching it as a top-tier recommendation for VIP clients. She rattles off the impressive engine specs and performance details with expert precision. The man listens quietly, watching her with a slight, knowing smirk. To wrap up the tour, she hands him her business card and invites him to call for a test drive. As he walks away, she realizes he was asking very specific, tricky questions to test her knowledge. The mysterious man makes his way out of the building toward the parking area. He heads straight for a luxury car waiting for him outside. Once he's settled in the back seat, his phone pings with a new notification. He takes a call from someone thanking him for a gift, keeping his response short and dry. The person on the other end asks if he'll be home that evening. Looking at Lan Shan's business card, he simply says no and ends the call. The sun rises over the apartment complex early the next morning. Lan Shan is still tucked away in bed, completely dead to the world. A sudden, aggressive pounding on her front door jolts her out of her sleep. She tries to ignore the noise by pulling the covers over her head, but the thumping doesn't stop. Getting increasingly annoyed, she finally hears a voice calling her name from the hallway. She storms to the door and rips it open, ready to yell at whoever is bothering her. It turns out to be Feng Qiao, who is standing there looking perfectly composed while she's a total mess. Feng Qiao prepares for the day, offering to teach the fundamentals of grocery shopping. Lan Shan is visibly irritated, resenting the fact that she was woken up so early. She argues that early morning is meant for sleeping, but he reminds her of their previous agreement. Refusing to budge, she slams her door and attempts to go back to bed. Lan Shan settles in, hoping for some peace and quiet. The professor threatens to keep knocking indefinitely, forcing her to collapse in frustration. Feng Qiao waits patiently in the hallway for her to change her mind. Lan Shan tells him to head to the market first while she gets ready. He motivates her by promising to cook breakfast if she appears within 15 minutes. The prospect of a home-cooked meal immediately changes her attitude. She imagines him as a helpful angel and decides they are now best friends. At the market, Lan Shan excitedly lists off several complicated dishes she wants him to prepare. They stop at a vegetable stall to begin a lesson on identifying fresh produce. Feng Qiao holds up 2 eggplants and asks her to identify the better quality option. Lan Shan confidently chooses the larger one, assuming size is the primary factor. Her teacher stares back in disappointed silence at her lack of shopping skills. Deciding her intuition is hopeless, he takes over the grocery selection entirely. Their cart is quickly filled with fresh greens and various ingredients for the meal. On the walk home, they pass a street vendor selling colorful treats to local children. Lan Shan stops to stare at the fluffy pink snacks with clear longing. She tries to act mature, claiming she is far too old for such childish things. Feng Qiao bluntly tells her he isn't planning on buying it for her anyway. She wonders if the treat is intended for his pet back at the apartment. Lan Shan asks if he is actually buying the sugary snack for himself. She watches with curiosity as the vendor finishes preparing the treat. Seeing the serious professor with a pink snack, she laughs and calls him a baby. Her teasing stops when he suddenly holds the snack out toward her. He instructs her to carry the light treat so he can handle the heavy grocery bags. They continue their walk with Lanshan happily in charge of the fluffy confection. The sweet aroma and soft texture of the snack become impossible to ignore. They walk together under a clear sky as the wind picks up. Unable to resist, Lanshan takes a bite of the sugary treat. She enjoys the snack while her neighbor is distracted by the groceries. The pair finally reaches the entrance of their apartment building. Feng Qiao turns around to ask her to find the building access card. He is stunned to see that the entire large snack has completely disappeared. Lanshan offers a nervous explanation for why the treat is gone so quickly. An empty script. No panels from the provided images match the Eloid tags list. A woman in a white dress makes a grand entrance, catching everyone's attention. Song Zicheng thanks Su Luo for coming while Lanshan watches the awkward interaction from the side. Sensing the tension between the exes, Lanshan tries to create some distance. The partygoers try to lighten the mood by inviting Su Luo to join them and pick a song. Su Luo looks on sadly while Zicheng focuses on his drink, ignoring the heavy atmosphere. Su Luo remains silent, appearing deeply troubled by the situation. She politely brushes off the help of others, deciding to handle the music herself. Zicheng tells his concerned friend to just let her be, and Su Luo takes center stage and begins to sing a melancholic song. A tear rolls down her cheek as she pours her heart into the performance. Lanshan observes the scene, feeling that the two are actually a good match. Zicheng leans toward Lanshan and asks why she's sitting so far away from him. Lanshan feels the pressure of being put on the spot during this public drama. Zicheng tries to charm her into a conversation with a knowing smile. Lanshan maintains her composure, reminding herself she's only there for work. The two stay seated together on the couch as the party carries on. Su Luo watches them from the side, her heart clearly breaking. Her expression shifts from sadness to pure distress. Still holding the mic, Su Luo tearfully wishes for Zicheng to feel the pain of unrequited love. Zicheng remains completely unfazed by her emotional outbursts. He dismisses her words, confident that he will never experience such heartbreak. A friend rushes to support Su Luo as she becomes overwhelmed by her emotions. Su Luo shoots a resentful glare directly at Lanshan. Lanshan realizes she's become the target of a major misunderstanding. Noticing the late hour, Lanshan announces she's heading home for an early work day. Zicheng immediately offers to escort her home himself. Lanshan looks at him with a tired, unimpressed stare. She politely declines, stating she can easily catch a cab on her own. Zicheng stops her from leaving by blocking the doorway with his hand. He suggests that her life could be much easier if she cooperated with him. Lanshan asks him if he's interested in hearing her personal motto. Zicheng looks curious, waiting to hear what she has to say. Lanshan prepares to make a definitive point. She firmly asserts her professional boundaries, stating she is there only to sell cars. She walks out the door, leaving the shocked man behind. Zicheng is left speechless by her sudden and blunt rejection. A small, intrigued smile begins to play on his lips. He finds her strong-willed attitude to be incredibly interesting. Lanshan and her companions walk through the city on a bright day. The two women exchange a quick glance as they continue their stroll. The group discusses a potential business merger with the industry-leading Wenfeng Group. Feng Qiao remains unimpressed, stating the company's background doesn't interest him. Little Veggie is stunned that anyone would turn down a chance to work with such a powerhouse. Feng Qiao casually drops the bombshell that he actually developed their very first product. The revelation leaves his friends completely speechless and questioning reality. When Lanshan asks about the timeline, he reveals he was only 15 at the time. His genius-level backstory is almost too much for the two women to process. Little Veggie wonders if he knows the boss, revealing the man was her first crush. Feng Qiao's expression shifts to a look of slight discomfort at the mention of her past feelings. While the girls bicker over secrets, a sudden notification rings from a phone. Feng Qiao steps aside to answer the call with a serious demeanor. He clarifies to the caller that he is currently out shopping with two female friends. The girls immediately begin theorizing that he's speaking with someone very special. A rare, soft smile plays on his lips as the conversation continues. Lan senses a change in the atmosphere and wonders about the person on the other end. Little Veggie imagines a dramatic scenario where a powerful boss rushes over to intercept them. Suddenly, an expensive car pulls up and a polished shoe steps onto the pavement. The girls watch in anticipation as a mysterious figure approaches their group. A tall man in a sharp suit makes his way toward them with an air of authority. Feng Qiao greets the newcomer, identifying him as his older brother, Wenwu. The women are shocked that the person from the phone call actually appeared in person. Wenwu observes the group with a piercing and stoic gaze. Lanshan recognizes the man and maintains her professional composure. Inside his head, Wenwu approves of Lanshan, relieved his brother has good taste. Feng Qiao officially introduces his brother to a very flustered little veggie, and then Wenwu finds the nickname Little Veggie quite strange for a real name. Overwhelmed by his presence, Little Veggie begins to stutter through her introduction. Lanshan laughs it off, claiming they were both just caught off guard by his handsome looks. Wenwu mistakenly assumes the poor girl has a chronic speech impediment. He shifts the focus back to business, reaching for something he intended to show his brother. He hands over a mysterious envelope with a perfectly straight face. It turns out to be a concert ticket that unfortunately expired the day before. Despite the awkward mistake, Wenwu maintains his cool and unshakable persona. Lanshan realizes the whole errand was just an excuse for him to inspect the situation. Lanshan browses a high-end clothing store, reaching for a dark suit jacket on the rack. She worries that Mr. Wu might have misunderstood something during his earlier inspection of the group. Lanshan hands a dark suit to Feng Qiao and tells him to give the set a try. As Feng Qiao heads to the fitting room, Lanshan notices Little Veggie looks completely rattled. Lanshan asks her friend why she got so flustered just by hearing Mr. Wu's name. Little Veggie asks if Lanshan truly knows the high-profile identity of the man they just met. It turns out Wenwu was actually Little Veggie's first crush, causing her to spiral into a panic. Lanshan wonders if the big boss even recognized her friend after all these years. A Little Veggie admitted that he doesn't know her at all, and she was just bragging about the unrequited crush. The realization of her bold claims coming back to haunt her leaves Little Veggie in tears. The two friends continue their conversation while waiting outside the fitting room area. Lanshan's attention is suddenly pulled away as the fitting room door begins to open. Feng Qiao steps out looking incredibly sharp in the sleek black suit. The sight of him in formal wear is almost too much for the flustered Little Veggie to handle. Feng Qiao catches Lanshan staring and tells her to stop looking at him so intensely. Lanshan remains focused on the details of his new look to ensure everything is perfect, as she steps forward to adjust his collar, catching the professor off guard with her proximity. Lanshan advises him to keep the coat unbuttoned and loosen the top shirt button for a more relaxed style. She gives him a bright, satisfied smile after finishing the wardrobe adjustments. Feng Qiao can't help but blush slightly at the sudden close attention from the sales head. Even the store clerk looks on, impressed by the dynamic between the two. The clerk whispers to Lanshan, suggesting she should make a move on such a well-behaved guy. Lanshan imagines Feng Qiao as a literal well-behaved bunny holding a giant carrot. She snaps back to reality and decides to purchase the entire set, including a bow tie from earlier. Feng Qiao insists on getting a regular tie, feeling that the suit isn't formal enough without one. Lanshan jokingly shuts him down, insisting that a tie is completely out of the question for someone his age. The next day, Monday arrives at the Taio corporate building. The staff lines up in the lobby, prepared for a high-stakes visit from the top brass. Lanshan stands among her colleagues in her professional uniform, ready for the inspection. A manager warns her that the big boss is conducting a loyalty test and any mistake could lead to being fired. The staff is told to clear the way as the important guest, Mr. Song, makes his entrance. A man in a white suit walks in surrounded by security and Lanshan's eyes widen in shock. She immediately recognizes the visitor as none other than Zicheng Song. The tension rises as the VIP guest walks directly toward the line of employees. Lanshan tries to maintain her professionalism, while nervously greeting the man she previously rejected. Song Zicheng acknowledges her with a cold, dismissive look as he passes by her position. He doesn't stop to talk, leaving Lanshan staring at his back in disbelief. Thinking about their past interaction, Lanshan fears that her career might officially be over. The boss stands at the head of a long conference table, commanding the attention of his staff as the female employees whisper about his looks. Nearby, the logistics supervisor and other team members wait in suspense, fearing that the upcoming results might lead to layoffs. Lanshan stares at her phone with a frown, clearly preoccupied by a personal matter during the high-stakes meeting. She is visibly annoyed by a dismissive text reply, feeling provoked by the lack of support. The stress of potentially losing her hard-earned professional network and career stability begins to take a visible toll on her. A phone vibrates in a hand, signaling an incoming message that breaks through the tension of the room. Lanshan's expression softens into a joyful smile as she reads a message offering to take care of her. Song Zicheng stands at the front of the room with a stack of documents, ready to announce the results of his evaluation. The surrounding staff members look on with intense anxiety, dreading the potential for criticism. With a stern look, Song Zicheng calls out Yukin and to address her performance directly. The head of the customer service department freezes in shock as she is singled out in front of the entire company. Song Zicheng harshly critiques her lack of professionalism, citing her failure to manage complaints and the resulting damage to the company's reputation. The supervisor is left in tears after being told her bonus will be deducted as a penalty for her poor conduct. Shifting his focus, the inspector prepares to name the employee who exceeded his expectations during his undercover test. A faint, calculating smile plays on Song Zicheng's lips as he prepares to make his next announcement. To everyone's surprise, he calls out Lan Shan as the staff member who demonstrated exceptional service and dedication. Lan Shan is caught off guard by the sudden praise as her colleagues turn their attention toward her. She politely bows as she receives an award envelope from the inspector, thanking him for the recognition. Overjoyed by the turn of events, Lan Shan holds her reward close, relieved that her professional ethics were recognized. In high spirits, she celebrates with her coworkers and excitedly offers to treat everyone to a meal tonight. From a distance, Song Zicheng watches the celebration with a watchful and unreadable expression. He remains focused on his long-term goals, viewing the current success as just one step in a larger plan. After the celebratory dinner, Lan Shan waves a cheerful goodbye to her colleagues outside the restaurant. She walks through the night, appearing slightly lightheaded but overall very happy with the day's outcome. Arriving at a door, she knocks firmly to get the attention of the person inside. Feng Qiao opens the door and looks out with a puzzled expression at his late-night visitor. Lan Shan greets him with a beaming smile, clearly excited to share her good news. He looks back at her with a calm, somewhat wary gaze, waiting to see what she wants. With a triumphant shout, she presents him with a large, colorful cotton candy as a gift. Feng Qiao looks down at the sugary treat, seemingly unsure of how to react to the sudden gesture. A soft expression crosses his face as he acknowledges the gift, showing a rare moment of vulnerability. Lan Shan remains energetic and playful, her mood clearly boosted by the evening's festivities. Seeing her move unsteadily, Feng Qiao reaches out to catch her hand, his concern becoming apparent. She looks up at him with wide, surprised eyes as the atmosphere between them shifts. The two stand close together in a moment of quiet connection, the previous excitement giving way to a more serious tone. Feng Qiao holds her hand while looking into her eyes, warning her that her cheerful demeanor is affecting his composure. Lan Shan clings to Feng Qiao while offering him cotton candy, leaving him to wonder exactly how much she had to drink. The scene shifts to the exterior of a university building as the sun begins to set on campus. Inside the facility, the doors to a large lecture hall stand ready for a special event. Feng Qiao makes a grand entrance, looking sharp in a suit while students eagerly snap photos of him. He adjusts his equipment as he prepares to begin his presentation to the crowded room. Maintaining his professional boundary, he politely asks the audience to refrain from posting his pictures online. Lan Shan watches from the crowd, beaming with pride at the stylish look she helped him put together. She settles in to listen, resting her head on her hand while focusing on the professor. Feng Qiao takes command of the stage, using a pointer to explain the complex behavior of physics waves. However, he suddenly loses his train of thought when he notices a distraction in the audience. Lan Shan playfully teases him from her seat, sticking her tongue out to break his serious composure. Realizing she might have gone too far, she quickly hides her face behind a physics textbook. The professor clears his throat, struggling to maintain his professional demeanor after the silent interaction. He regains his focus, looking out at the students with a calm and collected expression. The surrounding students grow even more excited, while Lan Shan continues to hide in embarrassment. The lecture transitions into a formal Q&A session, prompting the audience to prepare their inquiries. An assistant takes the stage with a microphone, inviting anyone to step forward with a question for Professor Qiao. Hands immediately shoot up into the air as students scramble for a chance to speak. One bold student takes the mic and asks the professor if he currently has a partner. Lan Shan nervously imagines him giving an absurdly honest answer that would ruin his cool reputation. Feng Qiao expertly shuts down the inquiry, stating he won't answer personal questions unrelated to the topic. Lan Shan sighs in relief, glad that he didn't reveal anything about their private lives. The other students begin to give up, realizing that personal gossip is strictly off the table. Wanting to liven up the atmosphere, Lan Shan impulsively raises her hand to join the conversation. To her surprise, the assistant quickly moves toward her and hands her the microphone. She stands frozen in the spotlight, realizing she didn't actually prepare a legitimate academic question. Feng Qiao watches her from the podium, curious to see what she will come up with under pressure. The pressure builds as she searches for any words to say into the open mic. Panicking, she blurts out a request for him to buy her some night snacks later. A heavy silence falls over the entire lecture hall as the students and staff stare in disbelief. The audience is shocked by her bluntness, assuming the professor will immediately reject such a bold request. Instead of getting angry, a soft and knowing smile spreads across Feng Qiao's face. He breaks the silence with a simple sure, confirming his willingness to treat her. The two share a quiet, meaningful look across the room as the formal event takes an unexpectedly personal turn. Lanshan enjoys a meal with Feng Qiao, comparing the food to his superior cooking skills. Over the phone, a panicked Kaiwai explains her sudden transfer to the president's office. Lanshan listens in disbelief, wondering how such a major promotion happened so quickly. Kaiwai recalls packing her belongings to move to the company's head office after the acquisition. During a routine inspection, President Wu arrives with his executive team. The president stops in his tracks when he recognizes Kaiwei among the staff. Ian, HR representative, introduces Kaiwei as a departmental leader to the new boss. Impressed by her, President Wu offers her a vacancy in his own office on the spot. Back in the present, Kaiwei blushes as she wonders what makes her so special to the president. Lanshan smiles, suspecting the man has his own secret reasons for the move. Kaiwei feels encouraged to work hard and aim for a successful career. She arrives at her new workspace, ready to start the shift. Taking a quick break, she decides to browse the university forums. She spots a trending post claiming Professor Qiao has a new girlfriend. Clicking the link reveals a clear photo of Feng Qiao and Lanshan together. Kaiwei jumps in her seat as someone suddenly appears behind her. President Wu looms over her, spotting the familiar faces on the computer screen. He tells her to stay quiet as he reaches toward the workstation. The president places hand over hers to take control of the mouse. He gently moves her arm aside to navigate the forum himself. While Kaiwei freezes in shock, the president scrolls through the gossip thread. He stares at the photos, realizing the rumors about the couple are true. Kaiwei watches him closely, her heart racing from the sudden proximity. A slight smile plays on the president's face as he processes the news. The awkward tension leaves Kaiwei feeling completely flustered. President Wu stands up and demands a full copy of the photos sent to him. He praises her for her exceptional observational skills and work. A new folder is created on the desktop specifically to store the evidence of the couple. Lanshan contemplates the complicated social dynamics currently at play. She checks her messages, realizing how deep this web of gossip has spread. Back at home, she relaxes on the couch while Feng Qiao prepares a snack. She shows him the forum post and warns him that the boss knows everything. Feng Qiao calmly continues peeling an apple, offering to delete the thread later. Lanshan tells him to leave it, as long as he can explain things to President Wu eventually. Feng Qiao looks up, confused as to why the president would be so concerned. Lanshan sits on the couch with Feng Qiao, explaining how she can act as his shield against unwanted attention. Feng Qiao listens thoughtfully, processing her logic as they talk. Lanshan confidently declares she'll be his free protection, asking if he's satisfied with the arrangement. Feng Qiao remains silent, lost in his own thoughts about her recent actions. He recalls a previous instance of physical contact, wondering if her behavior indicates a deeper connection. Feng Qiao concludes that her motive must be that she has feelings for him. He watches her as she checks her phone, feeling confident in his assessment of her mind. Lanshan excitedly prepares some fruit, oblivious to his internal monologue. As they sit together on the sofa while she offers him a snack. Lanshan eats while Feng Qiao decides he needs to clear things up between them. He suddenly mentions his specific standards for a partner, catching her off guard. Lanshan looks confused while eating, trying to process his abrupt statement. Feng Qiao asks if she truly understands his point about his personal principles. He settles back on the couch, satisfied that there's no misunderstanding while the cat watches from the floor. Lanshan asks about his plans for his day off tomorrow. He pets his cat while explaining he plans to grocery shop and play tennis alone. She suggests joining him since being alone is boring. Feng Qiao agrees to her company for the outing. The scene shifts to a large corporate office building. Inside, President Wu reviews a detailed investigation report provided by a detective. His associate looks at a photo of Lanshan on a tablet, questioning if she is the one he's interested in. President Wu smirks, keeping his true intentions vague. They examine a photo of Lanshan and Feng Qiao together on the tablet. The associate asks if the man in the photo is her boyfriend. President Wu identifies the man as just her neighbor. He looks at the tablet with a serious expression, considering his potential rival. The associate asks if he recognizes the man in the background. President Wu remains silent, staring intensely at the image. The next day, Lanshan and Feng Qiao head out for tennis in athletic gear. They walk down the street while a suspicious individual on a unicycle watches them from behind. Lanshan expresses her excitement about playing tennis after a long time. The person following them shows a hostile expression, clearly up to no good. The stranger suddenly lunges toward Lanshan as they walk through the park. Lanshan quickly reacts, grabbing the attacker's wrist with precision. She slams the individual to the ground with a powerful defensive move. Lanshan stands over the stunned attacker, demanding to know what they were trying to do while Feng Qiao watches in the background. Lanshan scares off the attacker with her aggressive stance while Feng Qiao watches. The attacker flees while shouting insults about her being too fierce. Feng Qiao tries to calm her down as she fumes over the stranger's remarks. Lanshan remains visibly annoyed and turns away with a huff. She asks Feng Qiao if he shares the attacker's opinion, but he simply says no. Lanshan dodges his attempt to take her equipment, feeling slighted by his short response. She questions if he is intimidated by her strength. Feng Qiao compares her to a well-behaved animal and asks if she is okay. Lanshan quickly denies being hurt, though she looks a bit flustered. The pair moves onto the tennis court to begin their match. Lanshan serves the ball with precision and focus. She follows up with a powerful swing, sending the ball flying. Feng Qiao returns the shot effortlessly, leaving Lanshan speechless. She demands to know why he is only playing defensively instead of attacking. Feng Qiao explains that he views the game purely as light exercise. Lanshan argues that a competitive spirit is natural and asks if he ever wants to win. He admits that he is usually the one being pursued by others. Lanshan insists that he play at full strength regardless of her gender. Feng Qiao agrees to stop holding back and gets into position. He launches a serve with incredible speed and power. Lanshan is nearly knocked back by the sheer force of the return. She is stunned by the sudden shift in his playing style. The ball zips past her before she can even react. Feng Qiao maintains a serious and intense demeanor throughout the rally. Lanshan struggles to keep up as the pace of the game intensifies. She realizes she underestimated just how strong his game could be. The court becomes a blur as she frantically tries to return his shots. Eventually, she calls for a timeout to catch her breath. The two take a seat on the sidelines to recover. Lanshan watches him closely, surprised by his hidden athleticism. Feng Qiao appears deep in thought while he rests. Lanshan admits she finds his display of strength quite impressive. He offers a polite smile and thanks her for the compliment. Feng Qiao reaches into his sports bag to retrieve something. He pulls out a delicate jasmine-scented wipe to clean himself up. He kindly offers the pack of wipes to Lanshan as well. She stares at the floral-themed packaging in total disbelief. Lanshan takes a drink of water, reconsidering her earlier assessment of his personality. She looks up in surprise as he stands back up. Feng Qiao prepares to resume the match with a determined look in his eyes. Feng Qiao readies himself for a powerful tennis serve, showing off his hidden athletic side. Lanshan is caught off guard, realizing she is about to face another intense smash. With a confident smirk and a drop of sweat, Feng Qiao prepares to end the point. He executes a massive slam that sends the ball flying with incredible speed. Lanshan can only watch as the ball zips past her, completely out of her reach. The impact sends her tumbling to the ground in a comedic heap. Feng Qiao stands over his fallen opponent, having completely dominated the match. He looks down at her and asks if she still thinks he is too delicate to handle himself. Lanshan gives him a wary thumbs up, fully acknowledging his status as the master of the court. He offers his racket to help her up, insisting they need to do some stretching to recover. Lanshan remains sprawled on the floor, complaining that she is far tired to move another inch. Feng Qiao reaches down to pull her up despite her protests. He helps her stay upright, warning her that her muscles will be incredibly sore tomorrow without a proper cooldown. Lanshan stares at him in silence, clearly surprised by his sudden take-charge attitude. The two begin walking together to finish their recovery laps around the court. Feng Qiao demonstrates how to properly massage the arm muscles to prevent tension. He then tells her she can handle the rest of the muscle care on her own. Lanshan eventually collapses into a chair, declaring she just wants to go home and sleep. Feng Qiao watches her with a calm, observant gaze. Feeling responsible for her exhaustion, he kneels down to assist her with her recovery. He begins a professional application of muscle relaxation techniques on her lower leg to prevent cramping. Lanshan finds the treatment incredibly comfortable and starts to relax. She mentions that while he looks thin, he clearly has a surprising amount of muscle. Feng Qiao looks up and jokingly asks if she has been spying on him while he changes. Lanshan quickly defends herself, explaining she only noticed his arm strength while he was helping her. Feng Qiao smugly claims his physical conditioning is even better than she realizes. He then gets bashful in a chibi moment, refusing to show off any further. Lanshan waves her hand dismissively, acting as if she wasn't interested in the first place. He offers a soft smile, enjoying their back-and-forth banter. He refocuses on the task, telling her to keep her feet still for the recovery process. He continues the clinical muscle relaxation on her leg with focused precision. Suddenly, Feng Qiao's heart begins to pound as the close proximity starts to affect him. He looks away, clearly flustered by the situation. In a sudden burst of energy, he jumps up and turns his back on her, leaving her totally confused. Lanshan asks what is wrong, wondering why he stopped so abruptly. He tells her to finish the recovery herself and hands over the equipment. As he walks away, he threatens to withhold dinner unless she completes all 200 of her reps. Lanshan pouts at his sudden mood swing, frustrated by how quickly his attitude changed. The scene opens with a quiet view of the apartment interior through the glass balcony doors. Lanshan rests her chin on her hand, looking relaxed but exhausted after her recent activity. Feng Qiao sets a kettle on the stove, advising her that warm tea is far better for her stomach than cold drinks after exercise. He carefully pours the freshly brewed tea into a small cup for her. Lanshan grumbles that a simple beverage shouldn't be this much trouble, while her cat watches her intently. Suddenly, she grabs the cat and starts spinning around in a burst of playful energy. She continues to play with the feline, jokingly comparing herself to a spinning washing machine. Feng Qiao maintains his composure while finishing the tea service. He carries the tray into the living room just as Lanshan is finishing her floor time with the cat. His attention is immediately drawn to a phone on the table that begins vibrating with an incoming call. The screen clearly shows a call from someone labeled as her boss. Lanshan picks up the device and answers, addressing the caller as Mr. Song. She is visibly confused when she learns her boss is personally delivering documents that were supposed to be handled by a subordinate. Sitting in his car with a bouquet of flowers, Mr. Song claims he's just helping out a colleague and asks if she's currently home. Lanshan tells him she is and offers to meet him by the street to save him the trouble of coming up. The boss insists on calling her once he reaches the apartment gate instead of having her wait outside. After hanging up, Lanshan cheerfully remarks on how caring her boss is while Feng Qiao watches her with a silent, unreadable expression. She takes a sip of the warm tea, finally following Feng Qiao's advice. She admits the flavor isn't as good as a soda, prompting Feng Qiao to make a dry remark about her lack of appreciation. However, she quickly brightens up and notes that the tea actually makes her stomach feel quite pleasant. Seeing her satisfied, a small, subtle smile plays on Feng Qiao's lips as he prepares to drink his own tea. He mentions that a package arrived for him earlier, and he needs to head down to the lockers to retrieve it. Lanshan stops him briefly to make sure he doesn't leave without his mobile phone. He takes the device from her and heads out to finish his errand. Down in the parking area, Mr. Song waits in his vehicle and notices another call coming through. Meanwhile, Feng Qiao reaches the wall of self-pickup lockers to find his parcel. He looks down at the phone in his hand, realizing that Lanshan's boss is attempting to contact her again. Mr. Song answers the line, but he is met with a heavy, tense silence. Feng Qiao listens to the voice on the other end, wondering why the man has suddenly stopped talking. The boss steps out of his luxury car and demands to know why Feng Qiao is the one holding Lanshan's phone. Feng Qiao instantly recognizes the man as Zicheng Song and realizes this is indeed her boss. He narrows his eyes, sensing the underlying tension of the situation. His gaze drifts to the passenger seat of the car, where he spots the celebratory bouquet of flowers. With a cold, dismissive look, Feng Qiao abruptly ends the call. The two men stand face to face in the courtyard as Feng Qiao warns the boss to stop pursuing her. Mr. Song smirks arrogantly, questioning the authority behind such a bold demand. He grips his folder tightly, refusing to be intimidated by the younger man's presence. Feng Qiao doesn't flinch, stating firmly that the boss isn't qualified to be with her anyway. Lanshan wonders why her boss hasn't called and why Feng Qiao is taking so long to return. She tries to check the phone in her hand, but is shocked to find a password lock she doesn't recognize. The sound of a door clicking open catches her attention. Feng Qiao steps back into the room with a stoic expression. Lanshan realizes they accidentally swapped phones and approaches him to switch back. She thanks him for the documents and asks if he managed to retrieve his package. Feng Qiao stares at her intensely, preparing to address something bothering him. Lanshan looks up at him with a confused and curious expression. He holds up her phone, demanding to know why his contact name is saved as Beast. Flustered, she claims the letter B actually stands for something harmless to cover her tracks. Nay. Feng Qiao remains skeptical, suspecting she might be insulting his character behind his back. She quickly changes the subject to his package and hurries away to avoid more questions. Lanshan considers sending an apology to her boss to smooth over their earlier awkward encounter. Meanwhile, Miss Song drives away from the scene at high speeds, his frustration evident. He dwells on the memory of being told he isn't worthy of Lanshan's attention. A red traffic light forces him to stop, further agitating his bad mood. He continues navigating through the city streets while lost in thought. In a moment of pure rage, Song strikes the steering wheel and lets out a shout. He narrows his eyes, his mind full of resentment toward his rival. He receives a polite message from Lanshan apologizing for the phone mix-up. Despite the apology, he remains determined to win her over and eliminate any competition. Back at home, Lanshan relaxes on the couch with her cat after a satisfying meal. Feng Qiao decides to go for a stroll and offers to get her some digestive aids. Not wanting to stay behind, she jumps up and asks to join him on his walk. Feng Qiao finds her sudden need for company a bit unusual and clingy. He compares her behavior to that of their cat, who follows him for attention. The pair begins walking through the cool night air as a light breeze blows. He ponders the actual reason behind her sudden change in attitude and behavior. He playfully warns her not to jump around so much right after eating a heavy meal. They make their way through a park decorated with bright string lights and blooming flowers. Lanshan enjoys the peaceful atmosphere and the freshness of the evening. Suddenly, a small paw brushes against her leg, catching her off guard. She looks down in surprise, wondering what just touched her in the dark. A cheerful golden dog appears beside her, wagging its tail and looking for attention. Since terrified of the animal, she immediately recoils and looks for a way to escape. Without thinking, she grabs onto Feng Qiao's face and shoulders for stability. She leaps up and clings to him to get away from the harmless animal, leaving him completely baffled. Then, Feng Qiao stands frozen in confusion as Lanshan clings to him in a state of absolute shock. Lanshan cries out in terror, pointing toward a dog that has suddenly appeared. The culprit is a happy golden retriever, barking playfully at the pair. Trembling with fear, Lanshan realizes the animal is still close by. In a moment of pure panic, she grips Feng Qiao tightly to stay off the ground. The sudden proximity causes Feng Qiao's ears to turn bright red. He stares ahead blankly as his heart begins to race from the unexpected contact. Feng Qiao quickly realizes that she is genuinely terrified of dogs. Lanshan remains in a tearful state, unable to let go of her protector. He tries to calm her down, telling her there is nothing to be afraid of. A small smile plays on his lips as he looks at her distressed expression. Lanshan wails about the size of the animal, demanding to know why the owner hasn't tied it up. The dog's owner rushes over to apologize, promising that the pet is harmless. Lanshan remains skeptical, questioning the logic of a dog being scared versus baiting. Feng Qiao finally asks when she plans to get down, jolting her back to reality. Lanshan immediately jumps back to the ground, mortified by her own actions. She offers a stiff thank you while internally panicking about her lack of boundaries. Feng Qiao maintains a neutral expression, leading Lanshan to wonder if he even cares about the distance between them. Nearby bystanders gossip about the lovey-dovey couple, causing Lanshan to blush deeply. Feng Qiao reaches out and grabs her hand to lead her away from the staring crowd. He tells her to move quickly before they lose any more of their public dignity. Despite his stoic words, a faint blush remains on his face as they walk. As they continue their walk, Lanshan stops to admire a cluster of yellow flowers. As she leans in to enjoy the fragrance of the garden. Realizing she left her phone behind, she asks Feng Qiao to take a picture of her. Feng Qiao complies, pulling out his device to capture the moment. He takes a photo of Lanshan smiling brightly among the blossoms. She jokingly suggests stealing a pot of the flowers to take home. Feng Qiao simply sighs at her childish antics. Back at home, Lanshan sends a message reminding him to forward the photo. Feng Qiao walks through his living room, completely ignoring his grumpy orange cat. He suddenly remembers the nickname he saw earlier and decides to investigate. He opens a search engine to look up the meaning of little beast. He is met with confusing results about declining social morals, leaving him even more baffled. He lowers his phone in defeat, unable to make sense of the search. Feng Qiao sits on his couch, wondering what the cryptic nickname could possibly mean. Lanshan holds her cat, Schrödinger, looking quite puzzled by the sudden silence in the room. She flings open the curtains to discover a massive floral arrangement waiting for her on the balcony. Her eyes widen in complete shock at the vibrant display. Standing amidst the colorful blooms, she looks like she's walked into a dream. Feng Qiao is busy at the stove and jumps when she suddenly calls out his name. She stands there blushing and flustered while he tries to maintain his cool with a cooking utensil in hand. Lanshan excitedly points at the flowers and asks where on earth they came from. When she asks if they're a gift for her, he tells her not to get ahead of herself. She teases him, asking if he's actually the one who has a secret soft spot for flowers. Feng Qiao can't help but turn away with a noticeable blush creeping onto his face. In the middle of their banter, he suddenly realizes the dinner he's cooking is starting to burn. She reaches out and gently takes hold of his arm to get his attention. With a bright smile, she lets him know that she actually loves the surprise very much. This sweet confession leaves him looking completely dazed and flustered. Despite his cooking skills, the mushrooms end up looking a bit more charred than intended. Lanshan happily digs into the meal anyway, leaving him looking a little sheepish. Over dinner, she vents about her fear of local dogs and the importance of keeping them on leashes. Feng Qiao jokes that her level of fear is even more unpredictable than her cat's namesake. She tries to pet the cat, who seems much more interested in his own business than her affection. She offers the cat a treat and notes that he's only ever really afraid of rats. Lanshan observes her pet's cold attitude and thinks he's quite the little character. The next day, things are business as usual at the Tatayo corporate building. A coworker bursts in to announce that the boss is handing out special rewards to the team. Lanshan receives an envelope containing a VIP voucher for a high-end hot spring resort. The staff gathers around to speculate on why the boss is being so incredibly generous all of a sudden. She suggests that the resort probably belongs to the boss's family, meaning the cost isn't an issue for him. A mysterious smile appears on the boss's face as he listens to the office chatter. He confirms her theory and welcomes everyone to come and boost his family's business revenue. The entire office celebrates the upcoming trip while the boss stands by confidently. Lanshan takes a moment to apologize again for the mix-up with the phones the previous day. He accepts the apology but warns her to be more careful with her professional equipment in the future. She quickly clarifies that the Manhwa phone incident isn't actually her boyfriend. The boss raises an eyebrow and asks if she's the one pursuing him instead. Lanshan is left speechless and confused by his wild assumptions. He continues by noting that the guy seemed like the type who would be very popular with girls. A sudden realization hits her as she processes his strangely envious tone. She stares at him in disbelief, wondering if her boss has developed a sudden personal interest in Feng Qiao. Lanshan teases Mr. Song, questioning if he has developed feelings for Feng Qiao. Mr. Song dismisses the idea as nonsense while Lanshan reminds him that their target is already taken. Left alone, Mr. Song ponders her words and notes that she seems completely unfazed by the situation. He encourages her to take a break at the hot springs during the upcoming holiday. Mr. Song reviews Lanshan's personal profile, planning to orchestrate a perfect encounter while they are alone. The scene shifts to the serene and misty environment of a high-end hot spring resort. A guest prepares to enter the warm, inviting water of the outdoor pool. The soothing warmth of the water provides an immediate sense of relaxation. Qiaofeng is overjoyed to be spending her time off in such a luxurious setting. She remembers Lanshan gifting her the resort ticket as a special reward for her recent promotion. While soaking in the pool, she pours a refreshing beverage and wishes her friend could have joined. She takes a sip, fully embracing the tranquility of the resort. To her, this is the ultimate way to decompress and enjoy life. However, the combined heat and relaxation cause her eyelids to grow heavy as she drifts off. She wakes to a blurry vision of someone urgently trying to get her attention. Her eyes widen in shock as she realizes a man is standing directly over her. Still dazed, she believes she is in a dream while President Wu provides necessary medical aid. President Wu looks concerned, explaining that he stepped in after seeing her lose consciousness in the water. Convinced this is a dream about her ideal partner, she looks at him with a deep blush. She reaches out to touch his face, confirming her supposed dream state. In her confusion, she lunges forward to pull him into a sudden embrace. A startled President Wu tells her to stay focused and keep her head clear. She continues her vocal outburst, declaring her strong feelings for the person she thinks he is. President Wu is left speechless by the intensity of her unexpected confession. He struggles to understand why she is acting so erratically after her brief fainting spell. He looks on with a mix of confusion and irritation as she remains clingy. He pushes her back, firmly demanding that she give him space and act professionally. Qiaofeng finally comes to her senses and realizes that this encounter was very much real. President Wu is visibly annoyed, accusing her of being far too forward with him. Terrified for her career, she frantically apologizes and begs him not to terminate her employment. President Wu notes with surprise that she has completely stopped her usual stuttering. She realizes that her extreme panic has actually helped her overcome her social anxiety. He tries to brush off the incident, rationalizing that she simply mistook him for someone else. He assures her that she won't be fired and tells her she is free to go. As she flees in embarrassment, he reflects on her supposed infatuation with a past partner. Despite letting it go, the idea of being treated as a substitute leaves a bitter taste in his mouth. Lanshan prepares to use a mechanical mouse to get closer to her pet. She tries to lure the cat out of its bed with the small toy. While Feng Qiao holds the real cat, Lanshan shows off the remote control for her new gadget. Feng Qiao sets the confused feline down to see what the commotion is about. The cat watches the mechanical mouse zip across the floor with suspicion. Instead of playing, the cat gets spooked and leaps into the air in a panic. Feng Qiao remains completely unbothered, choosing to ignore the feline drama by reading the morning paper. Lanshan rushes over to check on the distressed pet as it clings to the TV screen. The poor cat reaches out, desperately wanting some comfort after its scare. Lanshan picks up the cat, gently soothing it until it feels safe again. To prove her loyalty, she playfully kicks the mechanical mouse away to show the cat she's on its side. The toy mouse crashes into the wall with a loud thud. The cat is immediately impressed by its owner's protective actions. Finally, the feline is happy to cuddle up with Lanshan, falling right into her trap. She brags to Feng Qiao about how her long-term strategy finally won the pet's heart. Feng Qiao listens quietly, his face as stoic as ever while he reads. Lanshan isn't done yet, placing her hand on his newspaper to demand his full attention. She complains that staying home is boring and insists they find some nightlife to enjoy. Feng Qiao points out that she doesn't really have a nightlife either, but she claims he's just a bad influence. She won't take no for an answer and excitedly gets ready to head out for some fun. The pair arrives at an entertainment center, and Lanshan spots a dart room. She pulls Feng Qiao along, promising to teach him how to play the game since he's a beginner. Suddenly, someone calls out her name, catching her completely off guard. It's Mr. Song, who is surprised to bump into her here after his previous plan failed. The tension in the hallway is thick as Feng Qiao and Mr. Song lock eyes. Mr. Song puts on a polite front and invites the couple to join his group. The groups merge, though the atmosphere remains awkward for everyone involved. They head toward the dartboards to set up for a round of competition. Someone grips a dart, ready to start the high-stakes game. Mr. Song suggests making it a battle and asks Lan Shan to choose the scoring rules. One of the friends offers Feng Qiao a small keepsake, but he politely declines the offer. Lan Shan takes offense at the man's rude reaction to Feng Qiao's refusal. She protectively pulls Feng Qiao away from the group, showing her annoyance. Mr. Song steps in to explain the rules of the dart battle once more. He looks determined to win, clearly having an ulterior motive for this challenge. Mr. Song proposes a bet where the loser has to agree to a request from the winner. Feng Qiao refuses the high-stakes bet, logically stating he shouldn't gamble on a game he has never played. Mr. Song's friend is stunned that the bait wasn't taken, noting that the professor has a surprisingly dignified personality. Lan Shan supports the decision, suggesting they let him practice first, while a waitress arrives with their refreshments. She accepts her drink while noting the arrival of a beer and a juice for the table. Mr. Song and his companion analyze the situation, realizing that Feng Qiao might actually be a formidable rival despite his unassuming appearance. Lan Shan proceeds to chug her drink with intensity while Feng Qiao calmly sips his juice through a straw. The display is completely eye-opening for the observers, who are taken aback by her sudden change in energy. The match officially begins as the players prepare to take their first shots at the board. Mr. Song takes his stance and launches a dart with practiced grace and precision. The darts land firmly on the target, showcasing his high level of skill. Lan Shan cheers for the impressive display, though she remains focused on the competition. Meanwhile, Feng Qiao stays stoic and continues to observe the game while finishing his drink. Lan Shan hands over the darts and tells Feng Qiao not to feel pressured, encouraging him to just throw them randomly. He takes his position at the line, preparing to make his very first attempt at the game. His first shot goes wide, flying past the board and missing the target entirely. Lan Shan immediately steps in to coach him, advising him to adjust his angle and raise his hand higher for better control. The advice pays off as his next dart hits the bullseye, sparking a moment of hope for the duo. However, the momentum is short-lived when his final dart bounces off the board, much to Lan Shan's disappointment. The scoreboard displays a disappointing 0 points, but Lan Shan stays positive and urges him to keep practicing to get the hang of it. She places a supportive hand on his shoulder, continuing to provide encouragement despite the low score. Mr. Song's friend begins clapping mockingly, clearly unimpressed by their performance. He laughs and taunts Lan Shan, telling her that she needs to work much harder if she expects to compete. This blatant disrespect causes Lan Shan to glare at him with pure irritation, while Feng Qiao remains quiet. She grips a dart tightly, her patience wearing thin from the constant provocation. And in a sudden burst of motion, Lan Shan hurls a dart with incredible speed. The projectile zips dangerously close to the heckler's face, shocking him as it strikes the center of the board. She coldly warns him to stay away from the competition area for his own safety, and tells him to stop bullying her partner. The man is visibly rattled by the near miss and quickly backs off, realizing she isn't someone to mess with. Mr. Song watches the exchange with a smirk, finding Lan Shan's fiery and protective nature quite interesting. Even after the display of skill, Feng Qiao points out the reality that they still lost the dart match. Lan Shan reassures him that it doesn't matter since it was his first time trying the sport. Feng Qiao admits he has no interest in darts and suggests they move to the billiards table instead. Mr. Song agrees, thinking that winning against a complete novice wouldn't do much for his reputation and suggests a rematch. He proposes a new bet where the winner of the billiards round can make any request of the loser. The two men look down on Feng Qiao, asking if he actually has the courage to follow through with the challenge. Lan Shan looks at her partner with concern, waiting to see if he will take the bait this time. Without a hint of hesitation, Feng Qiao agrees to the match, ready to settle the score. The group heads to a professional hall filled with several billiards tables. A staff member asks whether they prefer to play American or English-style rules. Feng Qiao steps up and confidently chooses to play snooker. Lan Shan is baffled by his choice, especially since he claims he wants to play because the colored balls look like candy. She can only facepalm as the opposing team mocks his apparent lack of experience. The game begins with a powerful break that scatters the red balls across the green felt. Mr. Song is pleased with the opening, leaving Lan Shan feeling discouraged about their chances. She worries that her own lack of experience in this specific style will lead to a certain loss. As she prepares a shot, Mr. Song approaches her to criticize her gripping posture. Lan Shan looks up, surprised by the sudden interruption to her focus. He provides uninvited technical instruction on her stance, hovering close to adjust her aim. Feng Qiao watches the interaction with a cold and intense gaze. He walks over and firmly tells the other man to move away. Lan Shan looks at him in confusion, wondering what he's planning. He takes the cue into his own hands and announces that he will be taking the lead. Lan Shan is initially annoyed, but she quickly changes her tune when he promises to cook her a favorite meal the next day. Feng Qiao takes a professional stance and prepares to strike the cue ball. He executes a series of perfect shots, sending multiple balls into the pockets with extreme precision. The opposing side can only watch in stunned silence as their lead evaporates. The cue ball comes to a halt exactly where he intended it. Feng Qiao remains stoic, showing no emotion despite his incredible performance. He casually mentions that he is actually quite proficient at the game. Mr. Song and his friend are visibly frustrated by his sudden display of hidden talent. Lan Shan is overjoyed and praises him for his impressive skill. He instructs her to stay back and watch, telling her she can join in once the path to victory is clear. He finishes his turn and tells the opponents it's finally their move. Lan Shan follows up by easily sinking another ball to keep the pressure on. The two continue to dominate the match, leaving their rivals feeling completely overwhelmed. Mr. Song and his friend hang their heads in defeat as the match concludes. Lan Shan smiles and demands her prize, asking Mr. Song to perform a high-stakes, 5-second keepsake gesture with his teammate as per their wager. Feng Qiao pulls out his phone and prepares to time the awkward interaction to ensure they fulfill the bet. Mr. Song realizes his reputation is on the line and that he must follow through with the embarrassing promise. Mr. Song looks completely defeated and nauseous after losing the high-stakes snooker match. Lan Shan records the embarrassing aftermath on her phone, noting that this is a fair price for his behavior toward Feng Qiao. Mr. Song quickly excuses himself, clearly feeling unwell and eager to escape the situation. The two defeated men walk away, while keeping a significant distance from one another as Lan Shan and Fao watch them leave. Feng Qiao and Lan Shan walk together, looking satisfied with their decisive victory. Lan Shan laughs at their opponent's misfortune and thanks Feng Qiao for his excellent cooperation during the game. She admits that she never expected him to be such a pro at billiards. Lan Shan reaches toward Feng Qiao's hand, catching him by surprise. She asks him to hold out his hand, leaving him curious about her intentions. She presents him with a pack of Skittles as a small reward for his impressive performance tonight. Feng Qiao accepts the colorful pack of candy from her. In a casual moment, Lan Shan notes that Feng Qiao seemed much more competitive than usual today. She observes that he was even more active in the competition than she was, which is out of character for him. Feng Qiao simply admits that he played so hard because he wanted her to win. Lan Shan is visibly moved by his sincere and protective explanation. She walks ahead with a smile while Feng Qiao watches her, appearing slightly stunned by his own admission. Feng Qiao wonders if she is trying to win him over again as he watches her walk away. The scene shifts the next day to a massive, modern office building. A tall man in a pinstripe suit, Mr. Wu, walks through the office hall with an intimidating and serious expression. A young woman is shocked to see him and immediately freezes in her tracks. She attempts to sneak past him unnoticed, desperately hoping he won't recognize her. Mr. Wu stops and stares down at her, clearly aware of her presence, despite her efforts to hide. He reaches out and firmly grabs her arm to prevent her from running away. The woman looks up in surprise and nervous realization as she is caught. He corners her against the wall, asking why she is trying to hide when he was the one impacted by their previous accidental encounter. He leans in close, questioning if she knows the proper way to greet someone in a professional setting. She panics and offers a quick apology, wishing the memory of their past accident would finally fade. He releases her arm and smirks, feeling satisfied after getting a bit of playful revenge. She watches him walk away, still flustered and shaken by the intense interaction. Her face turns bright red as she processes the embarrassing encounter. She immediately calls Lan Shan in a panic, claiming her career is in jeopardy after her run-in with President Wu. Back at home, Feng Qiao reads the daily newspaper while a large orange cat naps comfortably on his lap. Lan Shan informs him that she is heading out to meet her friend for dinner, so he doesn't need to prepare a meal for her. She explains that her friend is in a bad mood and needs support, while Feng Qiao mentions he has already purchased ingredients. Feng Qiao decides he will simply give the extra food to the cat Schrödinger, instead of letting it go to waste. Lan Shan says her goodbyes and heads out the door, leaving the apartment. Feng Qiao sits alone in the quiet room, looking slightly disappointed that his dinner plans were cancelled. A hand holds a pair of chopsticks over a plain white bowl. Feng Qiao stares at a table overflowing with food while Schrödinger the cat happily devours a large fish, Realizing he cooked far more than a single person could eat, he spends the next few minutes alone at the sink, quietly washing the dinner dishes. Later, he moves to the sofa to pick at a plate of sliced fruit with the cat resting by his side. Even the small snack is too much for him, leaving half the plate untouched as he loses his appetite. He reaches out to pet Schrödinger, trying to find comfort in the quiet of his home. His expression remains troubled as he realizes the silence he used to enjoy now feels empty. The curtains flutter in the evening breeze next to a potted plant, highlighting the stillness of the apartment. He sits back and looks at a toy mouse on the table, feeling as though something essential is missing from his night. Lan Shan is surprised when she suddenly encounters Feng Qiao waiting for her in the hallway. He immediately takes her by the hand and leads her toward his apartment to discuss an urgent matter. With a serious look, he tells her that he needs her specific help with a problem. He points towards several containers of food and a fresh bowl of rice waiting on the counter. Lan Shan tries to decline, explaining that she already finished her dinner for the night. He gestures to a very full Schrödinger, claiming the cat has already eaten its fill and can't help finish the rest. Relenting to his request, she agrees to sit down and have at least one bite. The small taste quickly turns into a full meal as she finds herself unable to stop eating the delicious spread. Feng Qiao rests his head on his hand and watches her eat with a soft, attentive gaze. She pauses mid-bite, wondering if there is a hidden motive behind his sudden insistence on feeding her. Once she slows down, he stands up from the table to clear the space. He leans in to ask if she is officially finished with the meal. He then hands her a glass of water along with a pack of medicinal tablets. She looks at the pills in a panic, wondering what he is trying to give her. He calmly explains that they are just digestion pills to prevent her from feeling sick after eating so much. Lan Shan stands there in total silence, completely baffled by his extreme level of preparation. She eventually takes a sip of water to swallow the supplement. She demands to know what is going on with him, questioning why he couldn't just save the leftovers for tomorrow. He looks away with a slight sweat drop, appearing a bit embarrassed by her questioning. He quickly dismisses her, thanking her for the help and telling her it is time to go. Outside, the night air hangs over the quiet apartment complex as the interaction comes to an end. He gently ushers her out the door and bids her a hasty good night. She looks back at him with a confused and lingering stare. Before the door shuts, he reminds her that she promised to attend his class the very next day. Standing in the hall, she wonders why missing just one dinner made the usually calm genius act so strange. Lan Shan carefully evaluates Feng Qiao's outfit, finding it acceptable but lacking in style. She notices his long green socks and immediately crouches down to inspect the hem of his pants. Disturbed by the fashion choice, she demands that he change into shorter socks right away. Lan Shan suggestively points out that folding up the legs of his trousers might save the look. Feng Qiao tries to follow her advice, but his attempt at folding is clumsy and uneven. He stands there with his pants rolled up far too high, looking more like a field worker than a professor. Lan Shan facepalms at his total lack of fashion sense. She takes matters into her own hands, kneeling down to properly adjust the hem for a cleaner look. Feng Qiao gazes down at her in silence, seemingly affected by her sudden helpfulness. Lan Shan remains focused on the task, looking up to ensure the adjustment is even. The two share a quiet moment in the hallway as she finishes the styling. Once satisfied, she prepares to head into the classroom for the evening lecture. During the lecture, Lan Shan fails to stay awake and ends up slumped over her desk. She is completely out, unaware of the students around her. A male student sitting next to her notices the opportunity and reaches toward her. He leans in close to take a sneaky selfie with the sleeping, rumored girlfriend. From the front of the room, Feng Qiao spots the student's behavior and stops mid-sentence. He slams a heavy textbook onto the podium with a loud bang to wake everyone up. Lan Shan jolts awake, looking disoriented with a bit of a mess on her face. Confused by the sudden noise, she wipes her face while the student next to her panics over his dropped phone. Feng Qiao stares her down with a cold, disapproving expression. Lan Shan realizes with horror that she might have been caught drooling in front of the entire class. Feng Qiao singles her out, publicly identifying the student who was sleeping and drooling in the back. Mortified, Lan Shan tries to check her face, wondering how she could have been caught in such an embarrassing state. Feng Qiao continues with the lesson, refusing to let her off the hook. The surrounding students can't help but laugh and whisper about her public humiliation. Lan Shan grinds her teeth in frustration, shocked that he would call her out so ruthlessly. She stands up to answer his challenge, fuming as he warns her to stay awake or stand for the rest of the class. Other students begin to gossip, concluding that she couldn't possibly be his girlfriend if he treats her this way. Lan Shan sits back down, her temper flaring as she realizes her reputation is taking a hit. She stares intensely at her book, determined to make it through the rest of the period without another incident. The school bell finally rings, marking the end of the long evening session. Lan Shan storms out of the lecture hall immediately, leaving a confused Feng Qiao behind. He quickly catches up to her in the corridor, trying to match her fast pace. He awkwardly asks if she would like to go get some supper with him. She snaps back, claiming she isn't angry at all despite her obvious irritation. Feng Qiao looks relieved to hear she isn't upset, completely missing the fact that she is actually fuming. A student looks at a photo on his phone of himself posing with a sleeping Lan Shan. He basks in the attention from his classmates, who mistakenly believe the woman in the photo is his girlfriend. Suddenly, his phone pings with an unexpected notification. An anonymous message demands he delete the photos immediately or face the wrath of Professor Qiao. Dismissing the threat as a joke, the student prepares to block the mysterious sender. He heads to the campus card center to replace his lost ID. The administrator processes his request and hands over a newly printed card. To his horror, his professional ID photo has been replaced with a picture of a panting dog. His phone buzzes again with another ominous alert. A final warning arrives, threatening to wipe his social media presence if he doesn't comply. Terrified by the professor's digital reach, the student begs for mercy and promises to delete every last image. Over at the company canteen, Lan Shan attempts to have a quiet lunch. She tries to keep her cool, but a message from Feng Qiao instantly spikes her blood pressure. Fuming over his lack of social awareness, she sends back a sarcastic and rude response regarding his dinner plans. When he takes her literal insult as a serious request, she realizes his lack of common sense is truly dangerous. She stares at the screen, baffled by his oblivious nature. After she clarifies it was a joke, his playful retort only serves to make her even more livid. A shadow falls over her table as someone approaches with a meal. President Wu arrives and asks who has managed to upset her so much. Lan Shan quickly puts on a professional smile and greets her boss. However, her phone screen is still active, displaying the casual conversation for him to see. The president scans the messages, his expression becoming unreadable as he sees the nickname used for her. Nearby, a clumsy employee rushes through the dining area with a full tray of food. The subordinate's foot catches on the floor, sending her stumbling forward. A bowl of hot vegetable soup flies through the air and drenches Lan Shan's uniform. Both women end up on the ground as the canteen falls silent. Lan Shan's initial reaction is pure rage at the messy situation. The terrified employee bows repeatedly, begging for forgiveness after the massive blunder. Feeling the eyes of the entire office on her, Lan Shan realizes she has to maintain her image. She forces herself to stay calm and politely tells the subordinate to get back to work. President Wu watches the entire interaction from his seat across the table. Lan Shan worries about her ruined clothes and how the smell will affect her upcoming client meetings. President Wu stands up and signals for her to follow him immediately. He bluntly informs her that he's taking her to a nearby hotel to handle the situation. While Lan Shan is occupied elsewhere, her phone sits on a side table displaying a missed call from Feng Qiao. After finishing her business, she walks back into the room dressed in clean clothes while drying her hair. She notices the mobile device and realizes she has a notification to check. Reaching out, she picks up the phone to see who was trying to contact her. She peeks out from the doorway and is surprised to find that her boss is still waiting for her. President Wu stands with his assistant who holds a luxury shopping bag containing a new outfit for her to wear. Lan Shan accepts the gift, realizing it would be more awkward to refuse his professional courtesy. She politely asks for the cost of the items so she can pay him back. The president dismisses her offer, insisting that the replacement clothes are not a problem. He jokingly suggests that if she feels truly indebted, she can buy him an outfit in return sometime. Lan Shan finds the idea of shopping for her employer completely bizarre and confusing. Later that evening, she leaves the office in her new attire, hoping to make it home before the weather turns. Unfortunately, the clouds break and a heavy downpour begins just as she steps outside. She tries to shield herself from the rain with her bag, struggling against the sudden storm. As she rushes through the puddles to find cover, a figure appears beside her. She looks up to see Feng Qiao holding an umbrella over her, wondering how he knew she was stranded. He explains that he simply came out because he was worried about her safety. Lan Shan stares at him, caught off guard by his sudden appearance in the middle of the rain. She decides to let go of her annoyance, figuring he is just being kind in his own strange way. However, the mood shifts instantly when he asks her why she went to a hotel with her boss earlier that day. Lan Shan is horrified, immediately accusing him of stalking her movements. Feng Qiao admits that he used digital tracking to find her exact location when she didn't answer his calls. He further confesses to hacking into the hotel's guest registry to see whose name was on the room. Enraged by this massive invasion of privacy, Lan Shan screams at him for being completely out of line. Feng Qiao ignores her anger, demanding to know exactly what happened behind those closed doors. Pushed to her limit, Lan Shan storms away into the rain, calling him a lunatic. In a fit of spite, she throws back a sarcastic comment about what people usually do in hotel rooms just to mess with him. Feng Qiao stands frozen in the rain, reeling from her words and unable to believe what he just heard. Feng Qiao warns Lan Shan that Zicheng Song is a dangerous person and begs her to stay away from him. Lan Shan snaps back that Zicheng is better than him, leaving the founder completely stunned. She storms off into the heavy rain, ignoring the traffic as she makes her exit. A large van splashes through a puddle right next to her as she continues her angry walk. Feng Qiao quickly chases after her, holding an umbrella to shield her from the downpour. He pulls her away from the edge of the road to ensure she stays safe from the passing vehicles. Feng Qiao looks down with a somber expression and offers a sincere apology for his behavior. Lan Shan remains defiant, questioning his sudden change in attitude after his earlier actions. He admits he acted inappropriately out of worry, because she had been ignoring him all day. In a comedic moment, Lan Shan criticizes him for lacking the common sense to respect her privacy. She wonders to herself if her words were too harsh for the situation. However, she quickly reminds herself that his tracking was inexcusable, and she shouldn't let him off easily. Feng Qiao stops walking and asks her directly if she is still angry with him. Lan Shan confirms her frustration, shouting about how he humiliated her in front of everyone the day before. As she continues to vent her anger, Feng Qiao suddenly reaches out toward her. He pulls her into a firm, protective embrace under the shelter of the umbrella. The two stand together in the rain as Lan Shan freezes in total surprise. She stammers in shock, demanding that he let go of her immediately. Feng Qiao recalls a social media post she shared stating that a hug is the best way to calm a temper. Lan Shan falls silent, her anger momentarily derailed by his unexpected logic. He softly apologizes again, pleading with her to stop being upset. Lan Shan begins to tremble as her defensive walls finally start to crumble. Feng Qiao notices the shift in her mood and looks at her with deep concern. Tears begin to stream down her face as she stands in his arms. Feng Qiao is startled by her crying and offers more heartfelt apologies for his mistakes. Lan Shan admits through her tears that it has been a very long time since anyone held her like this. Feng Qiao listens quietly, his expression softening with sympathy for her vulnerability. He gently wipes away her tears and tells her to stop crying. Lan Shan leans her head against him, finally letting her guard down completely. In a sudden shift, she wails about missing her home and parents while Feng Qiao stands bewildered. The scene shifts to a modern apartment where the two have finally sought shelter. Feng Qiao hands her a warm cup of tea to help her recover from the cold rain. Lan Shan sits on the couch wrapped in a comfortable shirt. Thanking him for the drink, she takes a quiet sip, reflecting on the day's chaotic events. She finally explains that her hotel visit was only to change out of clothes ruined by a soup spill. Feng Qiao looks away, but Lan Shan notices that he still seems deeply troubled. He admits that he is still unhappy because she claimed Zicheng was better than him. Lan Shan praises Feng Qiao, calling him the best man in the world for his intelligence and gentle nature, as she playfully pats his head while he blushes, represented as a cute chibi version with bunny ears. Lan Shan's stomach growls loudly, reminding her that she hasn't eaten anything yet. Feng Qiao invites her over for dinner, and she happily follows him. He reveals a table full of food he prepared, surprising her with his thoughtfulness. The spread includes healthy options like vegetable fried yam and red bean porridge, specifically chosen for her well-being. Feng Qiao explains that she should have light dishes during her current recovery period, and then he credits his scientific inference for knowing she needed this, noting her recent emotional instability. Lan Shan realizes her recent mood swings might actually be due to her cycle, finding his logic hard to argue with. She starts eating, touched by the effort he put into making things right. The meal tastes incredibly sweet to her as she smiles through every bite. After eating her fill, she notices something small and fast darting across the room. Startled, she jumps back as the creature, named Schrödinger, runs past her feet. It turns out to be a cat wearing a panda-themed outfit, letting out a cute meow. Lan Shan picks up the cat, questioning why it's dressed as a panda while finding it adorable. She looks at Feng Qiao with a questioning glance as he mentions he thought she'd like it. He hopes the gesture will help her feel better and let go of any remaining anger. Lan Shan tells the cat that Feng Qiao might soon earn a top spot in her heart. Feng Qiao watches her with a soft, affectionate expression. The scene shifts to an office where someone is surprised by a small object on the desk. A man spots a fancy gold keepsake sitting in a tray on the table. He picks up the polished charm, noting that it doesn't match Zicheng's usual style at all. Zicheng enters the room and immediately notices his associate handling the item. He demands his friend put the object down right away. Startled by the shout, the associate drops the golden keepsake onto his own foot. He cries out in pain while Zicheng frantically checks to make sure the item isn't damaged. Zicheng holds the charm carefully, looking relieved that it's still in one piece. The associate asks if the item is a special gift from Lan Shan that has him so protective. He teases Zicheng about finally having a chance and asks when he plans to make a move. The golden keepsake is shown in detail, revealed to be a thank you gift for a previous favor. Zicheng tells him to shut up and stay away from his belongings. The associate walks away while checking his phone, leaving Zicheng alone with his thoughts. He makes a phone call, suggesting a meeting to discuss some interesting information. He expresses concern over the phone that Lanshan and Feng Qiao have officially reconciled. The scene opens with a view of a high-end car showroom. Lanshan politely suggests the visitor check out the physical car models on display. Su Luo dismisses the idea, stating her visit isn't about business. Taking a sip of her tea, she prepares to deliver a blunt message. She warns Lanshan to stop pursuing any romantic connection with Zicheng Song. Lanshan immediately recalls the hostility this woman showed at a previous birthday party. The two sit across from each other in a tense atmosphere as a staff member stands by. Lanshan attempts to laugh off the accusation, insisting their relationship is purely professional. Su Luo begins listing Lanshan's perceived shortcomings, citing her education and career background. Lanshan listens in silence as the woman continues her condescending lecture. Reaching her limit, Lanshan slams her hand onto the table, causing her drink to splash. She stands up and firmly declares she has no personal interest in Mr. Song. The surrounding staff watch in shock as the confrontation escalates. Su Luo remains unfazed, claiming she is only offering helpful advice for Lanshan's future. Lanshan fires back, suggesting Su Luo should focus on finding her own wealthy partner instead. She highlights Su Luo's own age, hitting a sore spot and causing her to freeze. Leaning on the table, Lanshan tells her to go talk to the boss directly if she wants him back. Without another word, she turns her back and walks away from the conversation. Back at home, a frustrated Lanshan vents her anger by tossing and turning on the floor. Feng Qiao tries to calm her down by offering her some fresh fruit. She takes a bite while still clearly irritated by the day's events. She explains that she ran into someone she considers completely unreasonable. However, the woman's words about her lack of roots in the city start to weigh on her mind. Lanshan looks up and asks Feng Qiao if he would miss her if she moved back home. Feng Qiao gives a short, seemingly indifferent response that catches her off guard. He starts to walk away, casually mentioning they'll see each other tomorrow. Despite his cool exterior, his expression shifts into one of serious concern. He stops and asks her directly if she is truly planning to leave for good. Lanshan admits she might only visit occasionally for special holidays. Feng Qiao questions why she would want to leave when everything seems fine here. She confesses that living in a foreign city makes her feel like an eternal guest. The room falls into a heavy silence as Feng Qiao processes her words. The two remain in the living room, the mood significantly dampened by the talk of departure. Suddenly, an alert pops up on a nearby mobile device. A delivery arrives at the door, pulling them out of their deep conversation. Lanshan takes the envelope and pulls out the contents with a puzzled look. It turns out to be a formal invitation to an upcoming event. Her face contorts with rage as she realizes who sent it, ruining her mood once again. Lanshan looks away from the table as an unwanted wedding invitation sits between her and Feng Qiao. Feng Qiao reacts with visible concern upon hearing the mention of a former partner. A hand tightly grips the decorative wedding invitation, highlighting the tension. Feng Qiao holds the document while questioning the details of Lanshan's past relationship. Lanshan recalls the duration of her previous commitment, counting the months on her fingers. Lanshan becomes defensive as Feng Qiao presses for more information about her history. Feng Qiao looks down pensively, processing the new information about her past. Lanshan explains that the relationship ended because her former partner's family looked down on her. Feng Qiao is surprised to learn that the previous couple had even discussed the topic of marriage. Lanshan sits on the couch and clarifies that she no longer has any lingering feelings for that individual. Feng Qiao remains quiet, absorbing the reality of her past experiences. The wedding invitation is held up clearly, serving as a reminder of the upcoming event. Lanshan expresses her frustration with the situation while Feng Qiao observes her reaction. Lanshan looks troubled, questioning the motives behind receiving such an invitation. Feng Qiao maintains a neutral expression, listening to her vent her frustrations. Lanshan moves closer to Feng Qiao, shifting the mood of the conversation. Lanshan grins as she addresses Feng Qiao, who begins to look flustered. Lanshan leans toward Feng Qiao and asks if he will accompany her to the wedding. Feng Qiao freezes in place, his face turning red from the sudden physical proximity. Lanshan explains her plan to use his presence to show her success to her ex-boyfriend's mother. Feng Qiao points out the technicality that he isn't her actual partner, despite his blushing face. Feng Qiao remains speechless, his face flushing even deeper at the proposal. Lanshan looks at him with a pleading expression, hoping he will agree to the favor. Feng Qiao eventually gives in and agrees to go along with her plan. Lanshan celebrates the agreement with high energy, much to Feng Qiao's slight embarrassment. Feng Qiao wonders aloud about the potential for misunderstandings at the event. Lanshan confidently dismisses his concerns, noting he obviously won't be confused for the groom. A colleague stands in a hallway while discussing the situation over the phone. Lanshan continues the call, pleased that her friend supports the plan. The colleague complains about an overbearing individual named Mr. Wu during a work gathering. A man approaches the colleague at the event while she is still distracted by her call. The colleague quickly waves and tells the group she is returning to the table. She rushes back to the meeting area to avoid further scrutiny. The colleague rejoins the group, making excuses for her long phone conversation. Mr. Wu sits at the table with a confident smirk, questioning who she was speaking with for so long. The girl wonders if any buses are still running late into the night as she prepares to leave the building. A male colleague offers her a ride home, but she seems hesitant to accept the favor. Mr. Wu suddenly pulls up and sternly commands her to get into his car instead. The atmosphere turns icy as the colleague watches them leave with a look of concern. She awkwardly follows Mr. Wu's orders, feeling flustered by the unexpected intervention. The car speeds down the road under the cover of the dark night sky. Inside the vehicle, she nervously asks his actions mean he has developed feelings for her. He maintains a cold exterior and tells her she is definitely overthinking the situation. Relieved, she laughs it off, admitting she was worried about becoming a target for office jealousy. He remains quiet, wondering why the idea of him having feelings would be so frightening to her. Changing the subject, he mentions hearing that she is quite the talented singer. She proudly brags about her childhood dreams of stardom and her supposed vocal skills. Realizing she might have exaggerated, she quickly tells him to take her previous claims as a joke. He doesn't let her off the hook and insists that she perform an English song for him right now. A panic sets in as she covers her mouth, knowing she actually has a terrible singing voice. An uncomfortable silence fills the car as he waits for her to start her performance. A little angel and devil versions of himself debate whether he's being too hard on her as revenge for a past mistake. She finally gives in and belts out a song so badly that it visibly shocks and distresses him. Lanshan helps her friend pick out a stylish outfit for the upcoming wedding event. After choosing a suit, she asks him if he has a proper wristwatch to complete the formal look. He proudly shows off a simple digital watch that she thinks looks like it belongs to a junior high student. He tries to defend the technical features of his basic watch while she looks on in disbelief. She discovers a drawer full of high-end, luxury timepieces that he never bothers to wear. She scolds him for owning expensive brands like Rolex while choosing to wear a cheap digital one. Lanshan examines one of the watches, hearing that they were all gifts from his family members. He casually tells her to pick one out for herself if she likes them so much. She refuses the offer, claiming they are far too valuable for her to handle responsibly. He stares at her, confused by why she's making such a big deal out of the expensive items. She insists that he must wear one of the luxury watches to match the formal theme of the wedding. She gives him a stern look until he finally agrees to listen to her fashion advice. He reluctantly switches his digital watch for a more sophisticated, high-end model. Lanshan is pleased with the result, noting that he finally looks like a wealthy young man. A notification pops up on his phone from a girl named Karina saying she misses him. Lanshan notices the message and asks him about his relationship with this mysterious sender. She teases him, suggesting that his college friend clearly has romantic feelings for him. He dismisses the idea immediately, pointing out that the friend is already in a relationship. The lavish wedding venue is set with elegant white tables and a grand piano on a pedestal. A hand reaches into a bowl to grab a few colorful candies. Lanshan pulls Feng Qiao away from the snacks, reminding him to maintain his image as a wealthy heir. Feng Qiao holds up a piece of candy, mentioning he has never tried this specific flavor before. Lanshan quickly gathers a few more sweets for him, telling him he can eat them once they get home. Feng Qiao agrees and straightens his suit, looking sharp for the event. The duo makes a grand entrance into the hall, with Lanshan confidently linking her arm through his. They take their seats at a table as the rest of the guests settle in for the ceremony. Lanshan watches the front of the room with a focused and serious expression. The bride finally appears, walking down the aisle in a traditional white gown. Lanshan leans in to whisper that she recognizes one of the bridesmaids. Feng Qiao looks over and realizes the bridesmaid is actually his ex-girlfriend, Luosu. Lanshan points out that everyone looks significantly different when wearing professional makeup for a big occasion. Feng Qiao stares ahead, processing the unexpected appearance of his former partner. Lanshan pulls out a small pouch of the candies she saved as a reward for his good behavior. She playfully offers a piece to him while they wait at the table. Feng Qiao takes the candy from her, looking slightly flustered by the attention. The reception hall is packed with guests enjoying the festivities at their respective tables. Luosu watches the couple from a distance, her back turned to the camera. She looks completely stunned to see Feng Qiao and Lanshan together. The bride approaches Luosu, noticing that she has been acting strange since the ceremony ended. Luosu identifies the woman with Feng Qiao as Lanshan, fueling the bride's curiosity. Luosu begins to manipulate the situation, claiming that Lanshan was the one who interfered in her past relationship. The bride is visibly shocked by the dramatic revelation, as she comforts Luosu, telling her she deserves to be with someone who truly cares for her. The bride confirms that Feng Qiao is indeed present and looking good. The bride starts badmouthing Lan Shan, accusing her of being a social climber. Lu Su hides a sinister smile, pleased that her lies are having the intended effect. The bride asks Lu Su for her honest opinion on her ex-boyfriend. Lu Su plays the victim, calling him a good person and lamenting their breakup. The bride decides to intervene, suggesting she will help Lu Su reconnect with him. Back at the table, the couple enjoys their drinks and refreshments. Feng Qiao warns Lan Shan that his temper becomes unpredictable if he ever consumes alcohol. Lan Shan listens while sipping her wine, curious about this hidden side of him. The bride and her group finally march toward the table, ready to start a confrontation. Xiao Xu stands before a woman in a formal setting during the event. A group of guests approaches the couple to offer their congratulations. The bride stares at Feng Qiao, questioning his identity with a look of surprise. She wonders why his ex-girlfriend is still fixated on him while he is seen with Lan Shan. An older woman mocks Lan Shan's profession, asking if she is still a car salesperson. Lan Shan confirms her job, while the woman questions her ability to earn a significant living. The woman boasts about the bride's expensive dowry, including a luxury car and an apartment. She continues lecturing them about the high monetary value of the wedding gifts. Feng Qiao sarcastically comments on the touching nature of their modest wealth. The bride and her companions are visibly shaken by his dismissive attitude toward their finances. Feng Qiao clears his throat to maintain control of the conversation. He mockingly apologizes, claiming to be moved by their satisfaction with such small assets. Lan Shan is caught off guard by his sudden change in demeanor. Feng Qiao claims he once gifted a luxury car and a dealership just to be rejected for a lack of romance. He reminds himself to maintain his professional persona as a high-level executive. The bride remains skeptical and asks about his actual occupation. Feng Qiao stays calm and prepares to present his business card to settle the matter. He hands the card over to the bride for verification. The bride inspects the card, which identifies him with Harvest Investment Company. She realizes the company's status, but questions why she has never heard of him. Xiao Xiu realizes the man's identity and is suddenly overcome with panic. He immediately bows in a show of deep professional respect toward Feng Qiao. The older woman quickly switches to a respectful tone, apologizing for her previous behavior. The bride and her mother stand in stunned silence at the sudden power shift. Feng Qiao takes his business card back from the group. He coldly states that his card is not for everyone to keep. Lan Shan watches him, feeling a growing distance from the man she thought she knew. He prepares to lead her away, telling the group they are leaving. Lan Shan reflects on the bride's unexplained hostility toward her. The bride watches them leave with a look of intense realization. She finally recalls Lan Shan's past connections as the couple walks away. The bride mentions Lan Shan's former partner to provoke a reaction. Lan Shan worries that the mention of her past will ruin their current facade. She tries to maintain the act by pleading for trust in their professional relationship. Feng Qiao plays his part perfectly, reassuring her of his confidence. The bride is left in shock by how effortlessly they handled the situation. The two walk away, leaving the wedding party behind. Feng Qiao reaches out to grasp Lan Shan's hand as they depart. He applies a firm grip to ensure the performance remains convincing. He reminds her that they must act like a couple to keep up appearances. Feng Qiao looks at her, reaffirming her role as his partner for the event. Feng Qiao asks Lan Shan for her opinion on his acting performance, and she enthusiastically tells him it was excellent. As they descend the stairs, Lan Shan wonders how he managed to pull off such a convincing wealthy persona and get others to follow his lead. Feng Qiao closes his eyes for a moment as he prepares to reveal the truth behind his professional standing. Lan Shan reacts with shock when she hears details about his business history that he had never mentioned before. Feng Qiao calmly explains that he founded his main company and provided investment capital for several others through a consultant. Lan Shan realizes the company name is a combination of their names and wonders if their relationship is deeper than she thought. In a lighthearted moment, Lan Shan jokingly tells him she wants to follow his successful lead forever. Lan Shan asks what else he learned from his research on social dynamics, and he mentions learning about public displays of affection. The two stand together in a scenic area, surrounded by falling petals. Feng Qiao reaches out and gently brushes a strand of hair away from Lan Shan's face. He lowers his head, asks for her permission to kiss her. Lan Shan's face turns a deep shade of red as she stares back at him in surprise. They lean in close to one another, closing the distance between them, and Feng Qiao pulls her closer, holding her as their faces remain just inches apart. Their moment is suddenly interrupted when a waiter accidentally bumps into them, spilling a drink onto Lan Shan's dress. Feng Qiao's hand quickly moves to steady her after the unexpected collision. He catches her to ensure she doesn't fall while she thanks him for his quick reflexes. Lan Shan covers her face in embarrassment, realizing she was so caught up in the moment she forgot to move. The waiter apologizes profusely, explaining that he didn't see them and is sorry for ruining her garment. A large, noticeable stain is left on the side of Lan Shan's white dress. The waiter suggests using a hairdryer to fix the mess, and Lan Shan agrees to follow him to a service area. And Lan Shan tells Feng Qiao to wait for her while she goes to handle the stain on her dress. Feng Qiao agrees, but he begins to suspect that the waiter's clumsy accident might have been a deliberate setup. He stands alone by the pool, trying to convince himself that no one would cause trouble at a formal wedding. Suddenly, someone calls out his name from behind, catching him off guard. Lan Shan exits the service area, relieved that the dress is dry and the stain is no longer visible. She runs into the bride in the hallway, who suggests they walk back to the reception together. Lan Shan finds it suspicious that the bride is wandering around the hallways alone. Despite her concern, she follows the bride back toward the main event. Lan Shan maintains a wary expression as she observes her surroundings. From a distance, she spots Feng Qiao standing outside with a woman in a blue dress. The woman looks up at Feng Qiao with tears in her eyes and calls his name. Feng Qiao acknowledges her presence, noting that a significant amount of time has passed since they last met. The woman gives him a lingering look as the atmosphere between them becomes tense. She gathers her long skirt in her hands as she prepares to move toward him. The woman calls out his name again and rushes forward with her arms open to embrace him. Feng Qiao stands stoically as the woman in blue approaches him for an emotional embrace. He quickly notices Lan Shan standing nearby, watching the interaction with a concerned look. Lan Shan remains silent, observing the scene unfold from a distance. Feng Qiao worries that Lan Shan might be getting the wrong idea and becoming angry. To avoid the contact, he skillfully sidesteps the lunging woman. The woman misses him entirely and stumbles forward toward the edge of the walkway. A massive splash erupts as she falls directly into the nearby water feature. Feng Qiao looks back at the commotion with a confused and startled expression. Bystanders immediately rush to the edge of the pool to help. The groom dives in and pulls the soaking woman to safety. The bride watches the rescue with a look of pure irritation and disbelief. Lan Shan asks Feng Qiao if the woman will be okay after such a fall. Feng Qiao calmly explains that the woman knows how to swim, so there is no need for alarm. Lan Shan feels much better knowing the situation isn't life-threatening, and she teases him about his quick dodge, noting that he clearly avoided the woman on purpose. Feng Qiao admits he moved because he was afraid Lan Shan would be upset with him. He further confesses that he completely forgot the pool was right behind him when he moved. Lan Shan blushes, touched by his clumsy but sincere attempt to respect her feelings. The woman in blue sits by the pool, looking completely defeated and disheveled. She realizes her dramatic plan has backfired and turned her into a laughingstock. Her face burns with intense embarrassment as she sulks by the water. Feng Qiao and Lan Shan decide to leave the drama behind and walk away together. He remains focused on Lan Shan, showing no interest in the woman's tears. Lan Shan reflects on how the woman, Su Luo, has effectively made a fool of herself in front of everyone. Su Lu tells Feng Qiao she doesn't want to see him, trying to save some face. Feng Qiao simply agrees and leads Lan Shan away from the scene. As they walk outside, Lan Shan asks him how he knows Su Luo. Feng Qiao reveals that they were acquaintances while he was studying abroad. Lan Shan starts to connect the dots regarding the woman's identity. She remembers a suspicious message from a contact named Karina and realizes it was likely her. Feng Qiao confirms that the woman's name is indeed Su Luo. Lan Shan is shocked to realize this girl has been pestering her while also chasing after Feng Qiao. She asks if Su Luo is still seeing her boyfriend or if she's currently single. Feng Qiao responds with a cold and indifferent look, showing he doesn't care about the woman's status. Lan Shan pushes for more information. Suspecting their past relationship was more than just a friendship, she remains silent, waiting for him to explain the full truth of his history with Su Luo. Feng Qiao asks Lan Shan about her motives for questioning his past, challenging her to define their relationship. Lan Shan tries to act indifferent, turning away despite the obvious tension between them. Nearby, a chubby orange cat watches water pour over a watermelon in the kitchen sink. The cat attempts to drink directly from the tap, but fails miserably, getting its face soaked instead. It looks on blankly, dripping wet after the unsuccessful attempt at hydration. Lan Shan can't help but laugh at the cat's clumsy behavior. Feng Qiao explains that the cat was an orphan and never learned proper drinking habits from its mother. Lan Shan looks on with a soft, thoughtful expression as she processes the cat's backstory. A gentle hand strokes the cat's fur to provide some comfort. Lan Shan holds the cat close, expressing deep sympathy for its lonely upbringing. Suddenly, her phone rings with an incoming call from her boss. She answers the call while Feng Qiao stands by, preparing to cut the watermelon. Her boss, speaking through a headset while driving, asks if he needs a specific reason to call her. He explains he has an abundance of chocolates and is currently driving past her house to drop them off. Lan Shan's expression lights up at the mention of the sweet treats. She initially tries to refuse out of politeness, but her boss insists he will throw them away otherwise. She quickly gives in and rushes toward the door to meet him. As she tries to leave, she is suddenly halted by a firm command. Feng Qiao sternly tells her not to go, looking visibly troubled. Lan Shan dismisses his concern, arguing that it is just a small favor between colleagues. Feng Qiao's expression darkens as he questions if she will follow anyone who offers her food. He watches silently as she ignores his warning and leaves the apartment. His hand clenches into a tight fist in a display of suppressed frustration. Outside, Lan Shan is amazed by the massive amount of chocolates stored in the boss's trunk. She gazes at the various gift boxes with pure delight and excitement. The boss tells her she is welcome to take the entire collection if she likes. Lan Shan beams with joy as she accepts a large box of treats. He watches her closely, encouraging her to take even more from the pile. The trunk is packed with numerous heart-shaped and decorative luxury chocolate packages. He continues to pile the gifts into her arms, insisting they shouldn't go to waste. As they talk, the boss rests his hand on the back of the car. He makes a personal comment, claiming that a fuller appearance is actually more attractive. Lan Shan is caught off guard by the unexpected remark. Looking slightly stunned, he prepares to drive off after finishing the delivery. Lan Shan reflects on the interaction, wondering if she is being too sensitive about his words. Before departing, he mentions an upcoming meteor shower organized by his astronomy club. Lan Shan asks for more details about whether they will actually be able to see the stars. He invites her to join the group, promising a beautiful view regardless of the meteors. Lan Shan remains silent as she weighs the invitation in her mind. Ultimately, she politely declines, deciding she would rather spend the event with Feng Qiao instead. A hand reaches out to turn the door handle. Lan Shan enters, carrying a stack of gift boxes, including a heart-shaped one. She looks toward Feng Qiao, but he simply walks away. A plate of fresh watermelon sits ready on the table. Lan Shan offers him some sweets while he reads the news, but he declines. She stares at the open chocolate box with a frustrated expression. Feng Qiao glances over with a skeptical look. The pink, heart-shaped box clearly gets on his nerves. Lan Shan eats a piece while explaining the high-calorie count of the treats. Feng Qiao lectures her about health and maintaining her appearance. She reacts with a comical, annoyed face at his bluntness. Lan Shan decides to store the boxes and limit herself to one a day. Feng Qiao insists she remove them so the cat doesn't get sick. She dutifully tucks the gift boxes away in a cabinet. Lan Shan approaches him again to suggest watching a meteor shower. Feng Qiao starts explaining the scientific instability of that specific event. Lan Shan looks strained by his overly technical explanation. She pinches his cheek until he finally agrees to go with her. Later, Feng Qiao sits alone at his desk, lost in thought. He ponders the hidden meaning behind her sudden invitation. His fingers fly across the keyboard as he seeks advice online. A blush creeps across his face when a user suggests she likes him. He stares at the screen, processing the idea of a confession. The realization leaves him visibly flustered as he stares at his laptop. In the kitchen, a friend helps with meal prep while Feng Qiao cooks. The friend carefully peels a potato over the trash bin. He starts singing a tune while focused on the task. The friend suddenly stops, shocked by his own singing. Feng Qiao takes the potato and tells him to go sit down. The friend follows him, wanting to discuss something serious. He asks Feng Qiao about the rumors surrounding his relationship. Feng Qiao confidently states that Lan Shan plans to confess to him. His friend is shocked by how quickly things are moving. They discuss the logic of using a meteor shower for a confession. Feng Qiao asks if his analysis of her behavior seems accurate. The friend considers the theory, though something feels slightly off. Feng Qiao turns away with a blush when asked for his response. His friend tells him to stop acting like a machine and follow his heart. Under a crescent moon, the city remains quiet as everyone settles in for the night. Feng Qiao lies wide awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while his cat, Schrödinger, rests beside him. He remains restless, unable to stop overthinking the upcoming trip. He is convinced that Lan Shan plans to confess her feelings and wonders how he should react. He weighs the options of accepting or rejecting her, worried about hurting her feelings despite his own high standards. In his mind, he envisions a romantic scene under a meteor shower where they stand together. He imagines her smiling brightly and asking him directly if he likes her. The mere thought sends his heart racing, leaving him visibly flustered. His cat gives him a judgmental look for the sudden midnight commotion. He tries to calm his nerves by petting the cat, though the feline seems completely unimpressed. Eventually, he starts talking to his pet, asking even likes her. Morning arrives at the office building as the day of the excursion finally begins. The boss sits at his desk looking troubled, sensing that the situation with the upcoming confession is getting complicated. He hears a phone ring and turns his attention toward the sound. His assistant enters the room, looking flustered while handling a call. She is speaking with Lan Shan, much to the boss's surprise. The assistant begs to join the trip, while the boss watches from the shadows, hoping Lan Shan refuses the request. Surprisingly, Lan Shan agrees to let her come along as long as she takes the necessary time off. As the assistant celebrates, the door behind her creaks open. The boss pops his head in, catching her off guard. He coolly adjusts his tie and announces that he plans to join the trip as well. He claims he simply wants to watch the stars, though his timing suggests otherwise. The assistant is shocked by the sudden turn of events and the growing size of the group. Later, the team gathers outside to load a large SUV with supplies for the outing. Feng Qiao looks on with a serious expression as he helps organize the gear. The assistant thanks the boss for the extra day off, excited that they won't have to rush their travel. Yeah. The boss directs the assistant to sit in the front next to him to manage the seating. She compliments the spaciousness of the vehicle while he reminds her to buckle her seatbelt. She struggles with the belt, complaining that it feels too loose to be truly safe. The boss looks at her with a deadpan expression, clearly confused by her strange logic. She sits there feeling awkward after her comment, realizing she might have sounded a bit odd. In the back seat, Lanshan and Feng Qiao sit together as the journey officially begins. The assistant can't help but stare at Lanshan from the front. Noticing her elegant presence, she continues to admire Lanshan's style, feeling a bit envious of her colleague's looks. Feng Qiao notices the constant staring and mutters a quiet comment under his breath. He eventually tells her to turn her head away and focus on the road instead. The assistant eagerly agrees to the boss's orders as they continue their drive. She can't help but wonder if the boss is actually feeling jealous of his employee's close friendship. Someone hits the play button to fill the car with some background music. In the back seat, Lanshan starts to feel the fatigue of the long trip and lets out a big yawn. Feng Qiao blushes while imagining the perfect scenario, where Lanshan rests her head on his shoulder. Lanshan's eyes flutter shut as she begins to drift off into a deep sleep. Feng Qiao watches her intently, waiting for the right moment to make his move. A sudden bump in the road jolts the car, causing Lanshan to snap awake. She looks completely dazed and disoriented from the sudden wake-up call. Seeing his chance, Feng Qiao reaches out to guide her toward him. He tells her to lean on his shoulder for a much more comfortable nap. He stays focused, hoping she accepts the offer without any hesitation. Lanshan happily obliges and settles in for a cozy rest against him. Feng Qiao turns his head away, trying to hide the obvious blush creeping across his face. The boss catches the entire scene unfolding in the rearview mirror. He realizes he might have underestimated his friend's game and smirks at the progress. The group finally arrives at a beautiful lakeside retreat just as the sun begins to set. Lanshan and the assistant head straight for the dock to try their luck at fishing. After just a few minutes, Lanshan decides the sport is way too boring and wants to go elsewhere. Just as the assistant tries to follow, the boss grabs her by the collar to hold her back. He forces her to stay and keep fishing, leaving the other two alone. Lanshan wanders off to pick some flowers, wondering why the boss is being so difficult. Feng Qiao sits by the water's edge, silently focusing on his fishing rod. Lanshan tucks a yellow flower behind her ear and asks for his opinion on her new look. He stares at her for a moment before giving a blunt, honest yes. She leans in close to place a matching flower in his hair as well. Feng Qiao protests that he doesn't wear flowers despite looking quite flustered. Lanshan smiles brightly as she continues to tease him with her playful antics. He ends up keeping the flower in place, even though he complains that she didn't even wash her hands first. From a distance, the boss watches them and thinks they look like a couple of silly kids. His expression suddenly shifts to alarm as he spots a potential threat lurking in the grass. The boss keeps a close eye on his assistant while she focuses on the task at hand. He lets out a small smirk, clearly plotting some sort of mischief. A non-toxic snake appears on a nearby branch, prompting the boss to test the assistant's reaction. The assistant is startled at first, seeing the reptile right in front of her. The boss encourages her to touch the creature, hoping for a chance to make fun of her fear. Surprisingly, the assistant calmly reaches out and grabs the snake, leaving the boss in total shock. She holds the reptile firmly, showing no signs of the distress the boss expected. With a mischievous glint in her eye, she agrees that the snake is actually quite adorable. Chaos ensues as the assistant chases the terrified boss across the field with the snake in hand. The boss is left reeling, wondering when the world became so full of unpredictable people. Later, the group gathers for a barbecue, where the assistant offers a quick apology for the earlier scare. Lanshan offers to help Feng Qiao at the grill, though he is more concerned about basic hygiene. The sight of the sizzling fish and meat is enough to make Lanshan's mouth water in anticipation. Feng Qiao gives a gentle smile, assuring her that the food will be ready in no time. The boss shifts the conversation, asking Lanshan for her honest opinion on Feng Qiao. She gives a thumbs up, acknowledging that his intelligence is definitely up to par. However, the mood turns awkward when the topic shifts to Feng Qiao's emotional intelligence. The boss laughs it off, claiming that Feng Qiao's social awareness is either non-existent or perfectly tuned. Lanshan looks skeptical, finding it hard to believe that such a person could be so inconsistent. The boss simply takes a drink, telling her that she will figure it out for herself eventually. The assistant nibbles on a skewer, feeling like the entire dynamic of the group is getting strange. She catches Lanshan's eye, signaling that they need a moment to talk in private. Using a quick excuse to step away, the two women head off to discuss the situation. Away from the men, they gossip about the boss's intentions and the obvious chemistry between Lanshan and the professor. The assistant can't help but laugh as she recalls how easily the boss was spooked by the snake. Unbeknownst to them, the boss and Feng Qiao are walking right behind them as the assistant drops a confusing nickname. The boss is completely baffled, trying to parse the meaning of the strange title she gave him. Feng Qiao explains the linguistic double meaning, suggesting it either refers to a father-in-law or an academic historical term. He notes that even his own nickname from Lanshan is not exactly a compliment. The boss stops in his tracks, deep in thought as he processes the implications of these labels. A sudden realization hits him like a bolt of lightning, leaving him stunned by what the girls might actually be thinking. The boss tries to make a quick exit, but Feng Qiao stops him in his tracks. Desperate to clear the air, the boss grabs Feng Qiao's arm and insists there has been a major misunderstanding regarding Lanshan. Feng Qiao looks back with a confused expression, wondering what could possibly be wrong. The boss panics, explaining that Lanshan has completely misinterpreted the nature of their professional relationship. He asks Feng Qiao if he is aware of the specific social labels and puns people have been using to describe them. In a quiet moment, the boss whispers the truth about the various nicknames and their hidden meanings. Feng Qiao's eyes widen as the weight of the linguistic puns finally registers. He demands a clearer explanation, struggling to understand why these labels are being applied. The boss insists he isn't making it up, and that these specific terms are exactly what the others have been discussing. Feng Qiao is left in total shock, finding the entire situation hard to believe. Lanshan happens to walk by and notices the heavy atmosphere, questioning why everyone looks so intense. Feng Qiao decides to cut the conversation short and tells Lanshan they are going to see the meteor shower immediately. He takes her hand firmly and leads her away from the awkward encounter. As they walk through the quiet grounds, Lanshan jokingly wonders if he's leading her somewhere dangerous. Feng Qiao remains unusually silent and moody, clearly distracted by the boss's revelation. Lanshan reaches out, sensing the sudden shift in his temperament. He suggests they change plans and watch the stars from the safety of the rooftop instead. The assistant and the boss watch from the shadows as the couple makes their way toward the building. The two eventually find a spot on the roof and sit down to wait for the celestial event. Feng Qiao continues to hold her hand, though he remains deep in thought. Lanshan looks at him with concern, asking what could have possibly happened to change his mood so quickly. She tries to cheer him up by offering some candy she brought along. Feng Qiao flatly wrecks the snack, keeping his gaze fixed forward. This rejection worries Lanshan even more, as it seems like a sign of a serious problem. She watches him closely, hoping he will eventually explain what is bothering him. Feng Qiao suddenly tells her to be quiet, making a bold claim that he will silence her with a kiss if she continues to talk. The sudden ultimatum leaves Lanshan blushing and completely at a loss for words. She grows quiet and reflects on whether she inadvertently did something to upset him. The cold night air eventually causes Lanshan to let out a loud sneeze. Despite his current mood, Feng Qiao immediately acts to keep her warm by sharing his jacket. Lanshan thanks him, realizing that he is still being a protective friend even while he's upset. Feeling exhausted from the long night, she asks if she can take a short nap while they wait for the meteors. Feng Qiao watches her as she begins to settle down beside him. She slowly closes her eyes, drifting off to sleep on the rooftop. Feng Qiao remains awake and alert, determined that they will see the meteor shower together. Lanshan looks up at the sky, unimpressed by the single meteor she manages to spot. She soon finds herself fully awake under the starlight, still wrapped in a borrowed jacket. Her mind wanders to frivolous wishes about getting rich, completely missing the heavy atmosphere. Feng Qiao's expression hardens as he realizes she isn't taking the situation seriously. He looks down, his frustration visible as he prepares to drop a truth bomb. Tension builds as he clenches his hand, unable to hide his irritation any longer. He stands up abruptly, looming over her with a cold intensity. Lanshan is left speechless when he reveals that he and Wenwu are actually biological siblings. He stares her down, questioning how she could have fundamentally misinterpreted their entire relationship. Standing tall, he bluntly labels her assumptions as immature, leaving her frozen on the ground. Panicked, Lanshan waves her hands frantically, trying to walk back her earlier jokes. She cowers before him, offering a desperate apology for the misunderstanding. She begs him not to take her comments to heart, realizing she has crossed a serious line. However, Feng Qiao isn't interested in excuses and tells her he takes the matter very seriously. He looks genuinely pained, explaining that her words actually hurt him, and Lanshan can only stare in shock as the weight of her mistake finally sinks in. She hunches over, repeating her apologies while trembling under his gaze. Feng Qiao turns his face away, his heart seemingly closed off to her pleas. He orders her to leave the roof immediately, refusing to even look at her. Stunned by the sudden rejection, she stands there trying to find the right words to calm him down. Feng Qiao remains stoic and shadowed, clearly finished with the conversation. Lanshan reaches down to gather her things, realizing there is no fixing this tonight. She clutches the white jacket tightly, her expression filled with regret as she prepares to go. As she walks away, she takes one final look at him standing alone against the night sky. Under the meteor shower, Feng Qiao reflects on the realization that she only views him as a friend. Later that night, Lanshan lies awake in bed, staring blankly at the wall in misery. A sudden, loud car horn from outside breaks the silence and startles her. She moves to the window, wondering why anyone would be making such a noise so late. Looking down, she sees a man standing by a black sedan, busy on a phone call. It is Feng Shengxi, the financial advisor, who confirms that the coast is clear for a departure. Feng Qiao approaches the car, looking ready to abandon the trip entirely. He pauses for a moment, his profile reflecting a deep sense of somberness. He lingers by the vehicle, casting one last glance up toward the building. From behind the safety of her curtains, Lanshan watches the car drive off into the night. She eventually collapses onto the floor, devastated by how quickly their relationship fell apart. After a sleepless night, Lanshan walks home looking completely drained. She spots Lil Yukai and the boss waiting for her by their car. Yukai greets her with a worried expression, noticing how rough she looks. The boss stands firm, revealing he's already found out the truth about what happened at the resort. Yukai looks down, feeling the weight of the situation. The boss explains that he prefers persuasion over force, and that his anger comes from a place of care. And Lanshan says her goodbyes and heads toward her apartment to get some rest. On her way, she stops in her tracks when she notices something familiar in the trash. Inside the bin are the shattered remains of a special keepsake. She recognizes the pieces as something that used to belong in Feng Qiao's home. She reaches in and carefully retrieves a broken shard. Despite a bystander's warning, she gathers the fragments into a bag. Determined to fix what was broken, she carries the bag of pieces back to her place. At home, she starts by carefully washing each shard in the sink. She stares at the mess, hoping she can find a way to glue it all back together. She spends time meticulously applying glue to the edges of the broken pieces. The final result is a bit of a mess, but the keepsake is finally back in one piece. She rests her head on her hand, wondering if repairing the item will actually change anything. Eventually, her stomach starts growling, and she decides it's time to find some lunch. She steps out of her apartment and pauses for a moment outside room 303. She looks at Feng Qiao's door, but there's no smell of food coming from inside. Realizing he isn't cooking, she feels a pang of sadness. She assumes he's either still sleeping or avoiding her, so she continues on her way. She heads to the countryside deli, where a friendly waiter takes her order. The waiter compliments her and assumes she must be a great cook at home. When she mentions a friend usually cooks for her, the waiter asks if that friend is a girl. The waiter points out that a guy who cooks for a girl every day probably has hidden feelings. The realization hits her hard, leaving her momentarily speechless. The waiter leaves her with that thought, telling her to consider the possibility. Her mind begins to race as she imagines romantic scenarios between herself and Feng Qiao. Her heart starts thumping against her chest as she wonders if he actually likes her. She quickly tries to shake the thoughts out of her head, calling them weird. The reality sinks back in that he's still incredibly angry with her. She sits alone at the table, debating whether or not she should go and apologize again. Feng Qiao struggles with a persistent cough while resting in bed. Despite being flushed with a fever, he tries to distract himself by reading a book. A sudden knock at the door catches his attention, making him wonder if Lanshan has come to see him. He forces himself out of bed to answer the summons. Looking through the peephole, he sees a worried Lanshan standing in the hallway. Feng Qiao opens the door, his face visibly red from his illness. Lanshan stands there, looking uncertain about the reception she will receive. He asks why she has shown up, while she silently notes how exhausted he appears. Lanshan immediately voices her concern, asking if he has come down with a bad cold. Feng Qiao grips the door handle tightly, telling her to get to the point if she has something to say. Lanshan puts her hands together in a sincere apology, begging for his forgiveness so they can return to their normal friendship. Feng Qiao remains defensive, questioning why she made assumptions about his feelings instead of asking him directly. Lanshan tearfully reminds him that she did try to ask before, but he failed to understand her meaning. She finally works up the courage to ask if his true intention is that he actually likes her. The direct question causes Feng Qiao to blush intensely as he struggles for a response. He attempts to dismiss the idea by bringing up his high standards for dating. Lanshan watches him closely, waiting for a real answer as the tension between them peaks. In a moment of embarrassment and anger, he insults her intelligence and tells her to rethink the question. Lanshan is completely stunned by his harsh words. Taking the insult personally, she shouts back that she's done with their friendship if he thinks so poorly of her. She storms out and slams the door behind her, leaving him alone. Once she is gone, Feng Qiao immediately regrets his outburst, realizing he didn't mean any of it. He collapses onto his bed, feeling overwhelmed and wondering if his medication is affecting his emotional control. On his nightstand, a box of cold medicine sits next to the clock as the night goes on, and by the early hours of the morning, his condition has only worsened as he tosses and turns in a feverish sweat. His cat, Schrödinger, watches him with a concerned expression. The feline jumps onto the bed to check on its struggling owner. Schrödinger gently places a paw on Feng Qiao's face to wake him up. Feng Qiao looks up at his pet, his face still burning with a high fever. He sits up to pet the cat, realizing that his health has taken a serious turn for the worse. A thermometer confirms his fears, showing a dangerously high temperature of 39.5 degrees. He tries to stand up to get help, but his legs give out beneath him. He collapses onto the floor, unable to stop coughing as his strength fails. Lying there alone, he reflects on how illness makes the weight of his loneliness even heavier. He reaches into his pocket to pull out his phone with trembling hands. Looking at Lan Shan's contact information, he silently apologizes and wishes for a chance to reconcile. The scene shifts to the hospital clinic building late at night. Feng Qiao lies in a hospital bed attached to an IV, while a nurse monitors his condition. He looks pale and weary, clearly feeling the effects of his severe fever. Closing his eyes, he decides it's too late to reach out and disturb Lan Shan after their fight. The IV drip continues to run as he rests in the quiet room. A concerned colleague brings him a meal and encourages him to eat for his health. Feng Qiao suddenly has a realization and his eyes snap open. He sits up in bed, looking much more alert than before. Reaching for his phone, he prepares to make a post to get some attention. He types out a miserable status update on Weibo, hoping Lan Shan will see it and feel bad. His expression turns to shock as he scrolls through his social media feed. He sees a post featuring a massive spread of delicious food from someone he knows. It turns out Lan Shan is busy enjoying a big lunch with her coworkers while he suffers. Seeing her having a good time without him makes him feel even more isolated and dejected. In a flashback to 10 minutes ago, Lan Shan's colleagues are all busy snapping photos of their feast. Her boss encourages her to join in and take a photo of the meal as well. She captures a shot of the food, though she feels like the odd one out among the group. Despite the social setting, she remains quiet and focused on her own internal conflict. Her social media post highlights the lunch bought by her boss, showing the office that they are on good terms. Later, Lan Shan stares blankly ahead, completely lost in thought. She is suddenly startled as she recalls the harsh words Feng Qiao threw at her during their last meeting. Even while others around her are chatting, she can't shake the memory of the stinging insult. She looks down sadly, feeling the weight of being called a dummy by someone she actually cared about. As she sips a drink, she reflects on how much his defensive comments actually hurt her feelings. She feels as though a massive, uncrossable gap has formed between her and Feng Qiao. Back at the hospital, the nurse and his colleague continue to watch over the lethargic patient. Even though his fever has subsided, Feng Qiao looks completely drained of spirit. He admits he feels incredibly upset while clutching his phone in bed. The nurse and Mr. Wu exchange worried glances over his strange, moody behavior. The nurse heads out of the room, leaving the patient to rest in peace. A woman with long hair passes by the nurse in the hospital corridor. Feng Qiao looks up with a spark of hope, wondering if it's Lan Shan coming to check on him. However, it's just another visitor bringing food to the patient in the next bed over. He watches the couple's happy interaction with a look of pure annoyance and jealousy. Feeling grumpy and neglected, he huffs and hides under his covers to avoid seeing them. A notification chime suddenly rings out, lighting up his phone screen in the dark. It's a message from Karina asking which hospital he's in so she can come by and visit. Feng Qiao sits in his hospital bed, staring at his phone while waiting for a response that isn't coming. He looks visibly dejected as his attempt to get attention seems to be failing. He imagines the warmth of a companion by his side, highlighting his current state of loneliness. His face falls as he realizes he is truly on his own for now. Checking his messages, he sees a polite but firm rejection to an offer of company. After being discharged, a delivery of groceries arrives at his home to help with his recovery. Feng Qiao sits on his couch, still glued to his phone while his assistant drops off the supplies. He stares intensely at the dark screen, hoping for a notification. The silence from his device is deafening as not a single text comes through. He reaches for the grocery bag, determined to handle things on his own. Even though he is still recovering, he insists on preparing a meal himself. In his quiet apartment, he sets a table for two, clearly hoping for a visitor. He puts together a spread of dishes, thinking a good meal is the best way to make peace. He heads over and knocks on Lan Shan's door, but there is no answer. He stands in the hallway, waiting in the silence for any sign of life. As the night grows late, he begins to worry about why she hasn't returned home yet. Still leaning against the wall, he checks his phone one more time for any updates. He decides to make a call, looking more frustrated by the second. A dark thought crosses his mind as he wonders if she has decided to cut him out of her life for good. Meanwhile, a sentimental ceramic keepsake falls and shatters into dozens of pieces. Lan Shan takes the broken remains to a shop, asking if the item can be restored. The repairman is baffled that someone would treat a common-themed bowl like a priceless antique. Despite the repair cost being higher than a new one, Lan Shan insists on fixing it. She looks at the fragments with a heavy heart, desperate to save the item. Under the moonlight, she realizes how late it is and feels the pangs of hunger. She reaches out to turn on her computer after a long day. Walking into her apartment with takeout, she navigates through the clutter of her living space. She sits down to eat her lackluster meal while trying to find something to watch. Suddenly, she spots something strange on her monitor that catches her off guard, and a realistic-looking fly appears to be crawling across the inside of her screen. She panics and tries to swat the insect away, only to realize it is digital. Confused and slightly creeped out, she stares at the monitor as the digital pest stays put. Her phone rings immediately with a call from a computer repair service. She answers and learns that her computer has been infected with a bizarre virus. The technician warns her this digital pest can replicate and requires professional intervention. Her eyes widen in horror as the screen is suddenly swarmed by dozens of digital flies. Realizing who is likely behind this digital prank, she screams Feng Qiao's name into the night. Feng Qiao pokes his head through the doorway, asking if Lanshan was calling for him. Lanshan is caught off guard, surprised that he actually heard her shouting his name. Feng Qiao enters the room and approaches her desk to see what is causing the commotion. Lanshan points to her monitor and asks for help, explaining that her computer seems to be infected with viruses. He immediately gets to work, with his hands moving rapidly across the keyboard to diagnose the problem. Lanshan stands by and watches him work, wondering aloud how such a virus could have bypassed her security. Feng Qiao maintains a serious expression, appearing deeply focused on the technical task at hand. He explains the complexity of the digital issue, while Lanshan mentions that her antivirus software should have prevented this. After a moment, he turns his chair around and tells her to take a look at the results. Lanshan leans in closer to inspect the monitor with a surprised expression. The desktop appears completely restored and functional, much to her relief. Thrilled with the fix, Lanshan praises his technical skills and tells him he did a great job. Feng Qiao looks up at her as she stands close by, acknowledging her thanks. Lanshan notices the small distance between them and looks momentarily flustered. She quickly decides to get him some water as a gesture of gratitude to break the tension. Shortly after, she returns with a tray to serve him a refreshing drink. She hands him the glass of water, and he offers a polite thank you. Their hands briefly touch during the handoff, creating a sudden moment of contact. Lanshan looks startled by the brief interaction as she pulls her hand back. Feng Qiao begins to drink the water while Lanshan stands nearby, watching him. He finishes the drink with a slight, satisfied smile. He stands by the desk and confidently informs her that all the technical loopholes have been patched. Lanshan begins to find the situation suspicious, questioning why only her computer was targeted so specifically. Feng Qiao listens quietly as she asks if someone might be trying to take revenge on her. Lanshan looms over him with a suspicious glare as he begins to look increasingly nervous. Feng Qiao finally cracks under the pressure and confesses that he was the one who put the viruses on her PC. Lanshan reacts with anger, demanding to know if he did it because of some hidden resentment. He looks down gloomily and admits he only did it because he was terrified she would stop talking to him entirely. Lanshan is stunned into silence by his unexpected and desperate admission. She turns her chair away from him to process her thoughts in silence. Lanshan sits with her arms crossed while Feng Qiao takes a seat on a low stool, looking up at her like a scolded child. He looks genuinely upset while she points out that he was the one who originally pushed her away. Feng Qiao offers a sincere apology, admitting he said the wrong thing previously and didn't mean it. He reaches out and places his hand on hers to show his sincerity. Leaning in, he softly asks if they can finally put the past aside and return to their normal relationship. Lanshan accepts the apology, agreeing to move past their conflict. The two reconcile, promising to stop arguing with each other in the future. Feng Qiao notices Lanshan's poor dinner choices and warns her about the health risks of junk food. Lanshan compares his nagging to her mother's as he prepares to take her soda away. Feng Qiao invites her back to his place so he can cook a proper meal for her. He smiles while holding the soda, planning to use it to make a special chicken dish. They arrive at his apartment and are immediately greeted by his orange cat at the door. Lanshan excitedly picks up the cat, Schrödinger, asking if the pet missed her. She relaxes on the couch, petting the cat while reflecting on her time away from the apartment. While resting, she spots a box of medicine sitting on a nearby table. Lanshan heads into the kitchen with the medicine to ask if Feng Qiao is feeling unwell. He continues preparing food, admitting that he is currently dealing with a common cold. Lanshan looks concerned, finally realizing why his complexion seemed so pale earlier. She approaches him at the counter, insisting that he stop working and rest. Lanshan confidently offers to take over the cooking duties for the evening. Feng Qiao watches her with a playful look, teasingly claiming he can't afford her services. The comment causes Lanshan to blush intensely as she processes his words. He quickly clarifies that he is actually worried about her potentially wasting the ingredients. He hands over a vegetable to the flustered Lanshan, continuing their lighthearted banter. Lanshan looks down, feeling a sense of guilt for always receiving his help for free. Feng Qiao listens intently as she expresses her internal conflict over their current dynamic. She asks him directly if there is any way she can repay him for all the hospitality. Feng Qiao suggests that she can simply save the favors for a time in the future. Lanshan agrees to the deal, feeling relieved that she has a way to make it up to him. The scene shifts as the meal preparations are finalized in the kitchen. A spread of delicious, freshly cooked dishes is laid out across the dining table. They sit down together, and Lanshan checks to see if he has enough of an appetite to eat while sick. Feng Qiao gives a gentle smile, clearly enjoying the company during the meal. He looks at her with a tempted expression when she mentions staying over to help him tomorrow. Lanshan explains that it won't be a problem to request a day off from her manager to care for him. When he asks if her boss will be angry, she reassures him of her status as the top employee. She looks at him sincerely, confirming that she truly doesn't mind staying to help. Feng Qiao rests his head on his hand, looking genuinely happy and comforted by her presence. They finish the meal, leaving only empty plates behind on the table. Feng Qiao admits that his appetite only returns when he is eating a meal with her. Lanshan smiles back, noting that she feels exactly the same way. Lanshan pulls the covers up while tending to the patient, her expression a mix of focus and slight embarrassment. A hand reaches out to gently touch her chin as she works on the task. She looks up, surprised by the unexpected and sudden gesture. Feng Qiao leans in close to murmur a request for her to continue, leaving her momentarily speechless. Suddenly, a chibi version of her finds herself buried under a literal mountain of various t-shirts. Back in reality, she looks completely drained, sporting heavy dark circles under her eyes from the lack of rest. The two walk down a hospital hallway together, both dressed in casual hoodies for the visit. Feng Qiao leads the way, suggesting she finds a bed to rest on while he receives his medical infusion. A nearby patient watches them pass, clearly struck by her appearance and calling her a beauty. Feng Qiao maintains a stoic expression, seemingly ignoring the unwanted attention from others in the room. Lanshan settles into a chair beside his hospital bed to keep him company during the long treatment. While the patient next door grumbles in envy, Feng Qiao hands over a tablet to help her pass the time with some games. He shows off a windscreen with a 3-star rating, looking quite proud of his high-score progress. Lanshan is genuinely impressed by how easily he cleared such a difficult strategic level. An assistant soon arrives at the bedside, carrying a large metal food container for the pair. She explains that Mr. Wu sent the meal and hands over a phone for a quick conversation. Lanshan takes the device, answering the incoming call from their superior to check in. Mr. Wu expresses his sincere gratitude for her looking after his brother during this time. He asks if she's been frustrated, knowing how difficult his brother's attitude can be. He continues the conversation, explaining that his brother is notoriously stubborn and rarely admits when he's wrong. Lanshan smiles into the phone, mentioning that he actually already apologized to her the previous day. The news catches Mr. Wu completely off guard, leaving him visibly stunned and speechless. He breaks into a dramatic, tearful outburst, frustrated that his brother is so much nicer to her than to his own family. Feng Qiao just looks on with a blank expression, reminding his brother that they are all family anyway. After the call ends abruptly, Lanshan stares at the phone in confusion over the sudden hang-up. She reaches out to lift the lid of the food container to see what kind of meal was sent. The container is packed with a hearty, colorful spread of rice, grilled meat, vegetables, and a fried egg. The pair sits together to enjoy the warm meal while the medical infusion continues. Feng Qiao watches her intently with a calm gaze as they prepare to eat. The patient in the next bed sighs loudly, complaining that his own girlfriend is too busy with work to visit him. Feng Qiao suddenly takes on a chibi appearance, opening his mouth wide in a silent, expectant request. Lanshan realizes he's waiting for her to assist him with the meal. He gives a determined nod, keeping his mouth open and waiting for her to respond. She gives in and offers him a spoonful of the food, making him feel like he's winning at life. The neighboring patient cries in comic despair at the sight of their domestic harmony and special treatment. Lanshan and Feng Qiao step out of the hospital, enjoying the sunlight as they decide to take a stroll together. They stop by a gaming center to look at the various entertainment machines available. The pair continues their walk through the mall, with Feng Qiao carrying their recent purchases. Lanshan proudly presents a shopping bag, insisting on treating Feng Qiao for the day. Feng Qiao accepts the gift with a polite thank you while a nearby clerk looks on with envy. Lanshan spots a pair of animal-themed accessories that immediately catch her eye. She examines a rack of cat ear headbands, seemingly plotting a playful scheme. In her mind, she envisions a miniature version of Feng Qiao looking adorable while wearing cat ears. Lanshan tries to convince Feng Qiao to try one on, but he insists they are not meant for him. A playful struggle ensues as she tries to force the headband onto his head. Feng Qiao manages to retreat while Lanshan decides to purchase the accessory for a later occasion. The scene shifts back to their home environment, showing the quiet and organized living space. Lanshan relaxes on the sofa, waiting for their meal to be ready. Feng Qiao offers a warm smile as he confirms he is preparing a sweet soup for them. The two share their meal on the floor while their pet cat explores the room around them. The orange cat climbs onto the entertainment center, reaching for the tech equipment near the TV. Feng Qiao carefully retrieves the cat while examining the monitoring sensor on top of the screen. Lan Shan observes him closely as he manages the various home security devices. He explains that the complex monitoring systems were all his own handiwork. Lan Shan questions the technical possibility of linking private footage to large public screens. She begins to piece together a strange occurrence from the first day they met at the exhibition center. Feng Qiao listens intently, though he seems slightly on edge as the conversation deepens. Lan Shan recalls being broadcast on a massive screen while playing with her cat, realizing everyone in the hall saw them. Feng Qiao begins to sweat as he realizes Lan Shan is starting to investigate the source of that incident. Trusting his technical skills, Lan Shan asks Feng Qiao to help her find the person responsible for the broadcast. Feng Qiao cautiously asks what she plans to do once the culprit is finally identified. Lan Shan expresses an intense desire for payback, looking completely furious at the thought of the prank. Feeling the pressure, Feng Qiao bluntly confesses that he was actually the one behind the screen hijack. Lan Shan freezes in absolute shock at his sudden and unexpected admission of guilt. Feng Qiao admits he did it as a petty form of revenge for her previous teasing. Lan Shan immediately initiates a confrontation, holding him accountable for his past actions. As she moves closer, Feng Qiao asks nervously what she intends to do to him now. Lan Shan looks down at him with a mischievous and determined expression. Lan Shan is absolutely fuming as she unleashes her frustration on Feng Qiao in a chaotic flurry of emotion. Looking remarkably calm, Feng Qiao asks if she is still holding a grudge against him. Lan Shan huffs in annoyance, her hand trembling as she processes the situation. A sudden realization hits her as she notices a detail that feels strangely familiar. She recalls a past event that mirrors their current situation, causing her to freeze in place. Overcome with embarrassment, Lan Shan makes a quick exit, while Feng Qiao watches from the floor. Her face turns a deep shade of red as she rushes away, trying to escape the awkwardness. Left alone, Feng Qiao stares blankly, completely lost as to what just happened. He wonders why she is angry again and tries to think of a way to make it up to her. Feng Qiao notices the shopping bags they brought home earlier. Tucked inside one of the bags is a cute cat-eared headband. The scene shifts to a bright outdoor cafe where Lan Shan is meeting with a professional-looking man. The blonde man, a financial expert, sips his coffee while discussing business. He presents some documents and asks Lan Shan to sign them to finalize their agreement. Lan Shan takes the pen and signs her name clearly on the contract. The man looks serious as he asks if she is fully aware of the terms they discussed. Lan Shan smiles, admitting she doesn't understand everything but trusts Feng Qiao implicitly. The man expresses his curiosity, noting that Feng Qiao rarely makes friends or has social needs. He bluntly asks what she could possibly offer since he only sees her outward appearance as a factor. Lan Shan is taken aback by the offensive comment but tries to keep her composure. He explains that Feng Qiao only believes in data and science, showing a chibi version of the duo in a lab setting. Lan Shan notes that Feng Qiao usually just calls her names and picks on her daily. The blonde man looks slightly wounded as he recalls his own experiences with Feng Qiao's sharp tongue. Lan Shan is relieved to hear that even a high-level business graduate gets teased, making her feel better about herself. She asks about their history and how they first met while they were abroad. He describes a younger, wealthier version of Feng Qiao, who appeared naive to those around him. Lan Shan is skeptical, doubting that anyone could ever truly take advantage of someone as sharp as Feng Qiao. Her curiosity gets the better of her, and she asks if he has ever had a girlfriend before. The man falls silent for a moment, contemplating the question. He explains that many people from all over the world were constantly pursuing him. He recalls how aggressive some of the girls abroad were in their pursuit of the handsome tech genius. Lan Shan is stunned by the honesty and directness of the girls the man is describing. She leans in, asking if he ever chose anyone from the crowd of admirers. The man reveals that Feng Qiao didn't just pick them. He put them through a series of tests. A room full of candidates concentrates intensely while taking a rigorous entrance examination. The financial expert explains the complexity of the vetting process to a stunned Lan Shan. Lan Shan politely asks if she can review the digital version of the test herself. She takes the tablet and prepares to see what kind of questions are involved. Lan Shan immediately freezes as she struggles to comprehend the content on the screen. Realizing the difficulty, she asks the expert to provide a translation for the technical language. Even with a basic understanding, Lan Shan is overwhelmed by the high level of the material. The expert displays the complex document, leaving Lan Shan completely speechless. He jokingly suggests that she should just use her imagination to fill in the blanks. Lan Shan tentatively taps the submit button to finalize her attempt at the quiz. She waits with bated breath to see her performance measures up. The expert looks over the results with a neutral expression as the system processes the data. Lan Shan collapses in a comedic heap after learning she failed to score even a single point. She questions if it is even possible for a human being to successfully pass such a trial. To her surprise, the expert confirms that some individuals have actually achieved perfect scores. Lanshan fights back tears of frustration over the massive gap in their capabilities. She falls into deep thought, wondering about the identity of the person who actually succeeded. The scene shifts to the exterior of a high-rise residential complex as evening approaches. Lanshan walks toward unit, still mentally reeling from her total lack of points. She reaches the entrance and prepares to head inside her home for the night. A strange set of cat ears suddenly appears from behind the opening door. Feng Qiao greets her at the entrance, while wearing a decorative animal headband. Lanshan turns a bright shade of crimson, completely caught off guard by the sight. She demands to know why he is wearing such a peculiar accessory. Feng Qiao remains calm, explaining the choice while maintaining a stoic expression. Lanshan begins to admit that she actually finds the look quite appealing. She quickly panics and tries to retract her statement before he can react. Thinking she is unhappy with it, Feng Qiao reaches up to take the headband off. Lanshan impulsively grabs his arm to prevent him from removing the accessory. She insists that he keep it on, stating she will be upset if he takes it off. Feng Qiao is visibly surprised by her sudden change of heart and intense demand. He agrees to follow her instructions and continues wearing the cat ears for her sake. Lanshan's heart begins to race as she looks at him under the soft lighting. She clutches her chest, wondering why her pulse is accelerating so rapidly. Feng Qiao reaches out and takes her hand in a supportive gesture. He leads her further into the apartment to begin their evening meal together. Lanshan and Feng Qiao relax on the sofa together while enjoying some fruit with their cat. Lanshan curiously asks if there is any specific food that can help increase a person's intelligence. Feng Qiao bluntly tells her that it is already too late for her to try and change that. The two sit in a stunned, silent standoff as the comment sinks in. Feng Qiao gives a soft smile and reaches over to gently pat Lanshan on the head. He tries to reassure her by saying that even though she is a bit slow, she is still a good person. Lanshan huffs in annoyance at the backhanded compliment while he continues to ruffle her hair. She crosses her arms and skeptically asks if he actually knows how to properly comfort someone. She looks him in the eye and demands to know exactly what he thinks is so good about her. Feng Qiao maintains a kind expression and tells her that she is actually great in every possible way. Lanshan is completely caught off guard by the sudden praise and feels her face begin to heat up. To distract herself from the awkwardness, she quickly reaches for a piece of fruit on the table. Feng Qiao notices her sudden change in demeanor and asks why she is acting so polite all of a sudden. Lanshan brings up a rumor she heard about him being incredibly popular with every other girl. Feng Qiao looks genuinely shocked and uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. He leans in close to her and asks if she also wants a piece of him like the others. He waits for her response with a charming and confident look on his face. Feng Qiao continues to lean forward, narrowing the space between them as he focuses on her. Lanshan stares back at him, her face turning bright red as she processes how close he is. She suddenly panics and pushes him away, telling him that he is only dreaming. Later, Lanshan frantically gulps down water to cool off, while Feng Qiao wonders why she's suddenly so thirsty. Feng Qiao watches her with a thoughtful expression as the tension lingers in the room. Elsewhere, Sulu stands outside a large building and waves to someone arriving in the distance. A man in a sharp suit steps out of a car with a stern and focused gaze. Sulu greets him and suggests they head over to a nearby cafe to catch up. The man smirks and tells Sulu that he respects how she pretends to be interested in him. Sulu's expression shifts to one of annoyance at his blunt and cynical observation. He leans against a nearby tree and tells her not to be angry, claiming they are actually very similar. He explains that he didn't come there to pick a fight, but rather to negotiate a deal. Su Luo reminds him that they have already broken up, and her current goals are none of his business. The man looks down at her with a calculating and serious expression. He proposes a cooperation so they can work together to get the specific partners they both desire. Su Luo looks on with visible annoyance as her former partner attempts to corner her. Frustrated, she wonders why everyone seems to be drawn to her rival, Lan Shan. She firmly rejects his offer of cooperation, stating their relationships are none of each other's business. The man warns her that Feng Qiao would never accept a partner who failed his specific standards. Su Luo reacts with confusion and anger to the strange warning. He insists his plan is beneficial and tells her to give it some serious thought. Without another word, Su Luo walks away, leaving the strategist behind in the park. Sunlight pours through the window as the morning begins in the quiet apartment. Lan Shan is caught in the middle of a vivid dream involving a man with animal features. She hides her face in her hands, completely overwhelmed by the intensity of her imagination. In the dream world, a hand reaches out to initiate a close encounter. The two figures in the dream come together in a close, protective hold. Lan Shan's eyes snap open as she suddenly wakes up from the dream. She sits up in bed, feeling a sense of guilt over the recurring thoughts she's having. Her morning is interrupted by a phone call from a contact labeled Eggy. The scene transitions to a local restaurant where steam rises from the tables. A fresh meat sizzles on the grill as the two friends prepare for their meal. While eating, Lanshan's friend asks what could be so important that they had to meet. Lanshan looks pensive as she asks what it truly feels like to have feelings for someone. Her friend is shocked, realizing that Lanshan has never truly experienced love before. She places a comforting hand on Lanshan's arm to offer some sisterly advice. The friend explains that simply questioning the feeling means a crush has already taken root. Lanshan looks stunned as she finally processes the reality of her own emotions. With a knowing smirk, her friend correctly guesses that the target is none other than Feng Qiao. Lanshan looks away and blushes, unable to deny the truth of the situation. She describes the constant worry and the way he always seems to occupy her thoughts. Despite the tension, Lanshan manages a smile and teases her friend about her own long-term crush. The lighthearted moment fades as Lanshan considers the complications of her feelings. Her friend encourages her to take a chance, reminding her of her undeniable charm. Lanshan remains pessimistic, feeling she has no chance after failing Feng Qiao's strict standards. The friend is baffled by the idea of such high intellectual requirements for a relationship. Lanshan looks dejected, stating she needs time to calm her racing thoughts. She admits she is afraid that pursuing anything further might destroy their existing bond. Seeing her distress, the friend listens with a sympathetic and understanding expression. She suggests that if the feelings are too difficult to act on, she can simply choose to ignore them. Lanshan rests her chin on her hand, considering that treating the crush like it doesn't exist might be her only option. Feng Qiao picks up a call from Lanshan while shopping at the supermarket. Lanshan sits back and relaxes, wondering why it sounds so loud on his end. She excitedly shares that the company is covering her expenses for an upcoming marketing summit. Just then, a girl approaches Feng Qiao and offers him some candy. Lanshan immediately freezes when she hears a female voice in the background. Feng Qiao looks annoyed by the sudden interruption during his phone call. The blonde girl smiles as she tries to entice him with the sweets. Feng Qiao closes his eyes in frustration, clearly not interested in the distraction. Lanshan demands to know exactly who he is with right now. He looks down at the items in the store, feeling the tension rising. The girl stands close to him, watching his reaction to the phone call. She maintains a subtle smile while observing his obvious discomfort. She reminds him that she still remembers his preference for sweets. Lanshan continues to grill him, wondering if he's with someone famous. Her expression turns serious as she waits for a straight answer. Feng Qiao keeps things strictly professional, asking is anything else she needs to say. Lanshan pouts in a huff, frustrated by his lack of transparency. He finally hangs up the phone, ending the conversation with Lanshan. The girl then asks if he can help her carry her heavy grocery bags. Feng Qiao looks down with a cold and distant gaze. She pleads him to help her reach the staff dormitory gate. He reluctantly agrees and walks with her, carrying the bags as they head outside. During the walk, Feng Qiao starts to break into a cold sweat. The girl walks calmly in her heels, keeping pace with him. She reaches out with a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from his forehead. He immediately pulls away, refusing her help with a stern expression. The girl is stunned by his cold rejection as he maintains his distance. Her frustration boils over as she demands to know why he always rejects her. She asks if the person who called him earlier was his girlfriend. Feng Qiao looks surprised by the question, repeating the word to himself. He refuses to give her an answer, stating that his personal life is his own business. The girl watches him walk away, feeling slighted because he didn't even bother to deny the relationship. The blonde woman expresses her deep gratitude to Feng Qiao for his help during the day. Feng Qiao maintains a cool demeanor, while the woman appears visibly flustered by his presence. She attempts to extend their time together by offering to treat him to dinner as a show of appreciation. Feng Qiao checks his watch and immediately declines, stating he needs to head home to cook for Lanshan. The woman forces a smile and suggests that they simply invite Lanshan to join them for the meal. Knowing Lanshan's weakness for free food, Feng Qiao imagines her excited reaction and decides to give her a call. Feng Qiao reaches out to Lanshan to see what she is in the mood for. Lanshan picks up the phone while relaxing at home, looking a bit skeptical of the call. Feng Qiao checks if a high-end lobster dinner sounds appealing to her while the blonde woman watches. He explains that Su Luo is offering to pay for the meal and asks if she wants to come along. Feng Qiao is met with a blunt, dismissive sound from the other end of the line. He can't help but chuckle, finding Lanshan's obvious jealousy quite adorable. Lanshan rants about her dislike for the woman and flatly refuses to eat anything she provides. Feng Qiao asks for clarification on where exactly she thinks he is going if she refuses to join. He makes it clear that if she isn't going, he isn't going either, as his priority is cooking for her. Lanshan's mood immediately brightens, and she flashes a triumphant smile. Feng Qiao tells her to wait for him as the blonde woman watches their interaction with growing disappointment. The woman feels a surge of resentment, believing that his affection should belong to her instead of being snatched away. Feng Qiao bluntly informs her that the dinner is off and considers his help today an apology for a past incident. She puts on a brave face and watches him leave with a forced, polite smile. Feng Qiao walks away without looking back, leaving the woman standing alone on the sidewalk. Her expression hardens as she pulls out her phone to look through her contacts. As she calls Song Zicheng and agrees to cooperate with whatever scheme he has planned. Back at home, a massive, perfectly cooked lobster is served for dinner. Lanshan is shocked by the extravagant meal and questions why he spent so much money on it. And Feng Qiao looks confused, reminding her that she was the one who mentioned wanting lobster earlier. Lanshan worries about the high cost per kilogram, while a chibi Feng Qiao remains nonchalant about the expense. He reassures her that the cost isn't an issue and that he can easily afford the treat. Lanshan starts eating as Feng Qiao encourages her to just dig in and enjoy the food. She asks why Sulu was at his college and learns she is currently working there as a teaching assistant. Lanshan considers the woman's academic position at a top university to be quite remarkable. Feng Qiao dismisses the notion, pointing out her lack of actual reach results and decent publications. He ends the topic by stating it's improper to gossip, then asks when she is leaving for her business trip. Lanshan confirms she is leaving tomorrow to travel to H City with her boss. Feng Qiao's face falls as he realizes she'll be spending 3 days away with Song Zicheng. Lanshan clarifies that her upcoming trip with the boss is strictly for business and definitely not a date. Feng Qiao remains skeptical, his gaze narrowing as he listens to her explanation. She insists it's a professional summit and tells him to watch his words. Lanshan explains that she is only going because the general manager took a sudden leave, creating a perfect opportunity for her. Feng Qiao senses an ulterior motive, realizing a frontline sales employee shouldn't even be attending this event. His suspicion grows as he stares intensely, questioning the true nature of the trip. To avoid ruining her excitement, he chooses to remain silent despite his inner turmoil. Before leaving for her 3-day trip, Lanshan cheerfully offers to bring back some local treats. Feng Qiao dismisses the need for souvenirs, but she playfully insists on bringing something back for him. Later, a dream sequence depicts Lanshan standing on a picturesque bridge under cherry blossoms. She looks up in wonder as petals fall around her in the serene setting. Suddenly, a miniature version of Song Zicheng appears, tempting her away with a gourmet platter. Feng Qiao jolts awake in a cold sweat, realizing it was just a bad dream. Checking the clock, he panics at the thought of her already being on the way to the airport. Driven by anxiety, he quickly packs his own suitcase to prevent her from being alone with his rival. He marches through the city with his luggage, determined not to let Song Zicheng win. Meanwhile, Lanshan rests comfortably on the plane as she heads toward her destination. Song Zicheng watches her sleep, his presence looming over her from the adjacent seat. She remains completely unaware of his gaze as she drifts off during the flight. Song reflects on the effort required to pursue her, questioning if the investment is worth the trouble. Upon arrival, Song expresses his satisfaction with the beautiful scenery and local delicacies. Lanshan points toward a stunning pavilion across the water, eager to explore the area. As she carefully navigates the rocky path, finally reaching the traditional structure to take in the view. Her peaceful moment is interrupted when she hears a voice that sounds incredibly familiar. She turns around in total disbelief, searching for the source of the sound. Standing right there with a camera around his neck is Feng Qiao, leaving her completely stunned. Lanshan is visibly frustrated by the sudden appearance of Feng Qiao, who claims their meeting is a total coincidence. She approaches him immediately, demanding to know what he is actually doing at her location. Feng Qiao holds up his professional camera, insisting he is only there to capture the beautiful scenery. Lanshan decides to check his work and asks to see the photos he's been taking. Upon seeing the blurry and poorly framed images on the screen, she mocks him for wasting such high-end equipment. Song Zicheng stands firmly by Lanshan's side as they confront the intruder. Lanshan attempts to break the tension by introducing the two men to one another. Song Zicheng cuts her off, coldly stating that he is already well aware of who Feng Qiao is. Feng Qiao matches the energy, dismissing the need for any formal introductions. Lanshan grows increasingly nervous as she feels the heavy, competitive atmosphere building between them. Song Zicheng remains stoic, watching Feng Qiao's every move with a critical eye. Feng Qiao boldly hands over his camera and asks Song Zicheng to act as a photographer for him and Lanshan. The request clearly irritates Song Zicheng, who glares at the camera in his hands. Lanshan tries to pull Feng Qiao away, promising to get a full explanation from him later. The camera screen displays the shot Song Zicheng took, featuring a cheerful Lanshan and a smug Feng Qiao. Song Zicheng looks completely fed up after being forced into the role of a personal photographer. He holds the camera out, ready to end the awkward interaction as quickly as possible. Lanshan takes the device back and offers a polite thanks to her boss for the help. As the camera changes hands, the tension in the air remains thick. Song Zicheng then turns to Lanshan and asks if she would like to take a photo with him instead. Feng Qiao takes over the camera and begins giving directions, telling the pair not to stand too close to each other. He looks satisfied with himself after clicking the shutter. However, the resulting photo shows Lanshan posing while Song Zicheng is almost entirely cut out of the frame. Lanshan stares at the screen in horror, realizing the terrible photo might actually get her fired. Song Zicheng refuses to take another picture and instead invites Lanshan to head out for dinner. The two men exchange one last frosty glance before parting ways. Feng Qiao quickly interjects, claiming he just so happens to be heading to the exact same restaurant for the same dish. Lanshan is bewildered, reminding her boss that they already have a private reservation. The group arrives at a large, traditional restaurant building to have their meal. Inside, a piece of fish is carefully lifted from a plate with chopsticks. Song Zicheng encourages Lanshan to eat more, trying to maintain a professional dinner setting. Lanshan thanks him but can't shake the feeling that the situation is incredibly awkward. Suddenly Feng Qiao reaches over and snatches a piece of food right out of the air. He calmly offers a different dish in exchange, maintaining a smug smile. Song Zicheng fumes in silence, thinking about how shameless Feng Qiao is being during their meal. Lanshan and Feng Qiao share a meal together, though the atmosphere remains thick with unspoken tension. Lanshan can't help but wonder why he suddenly appeared in a city without mentioning it beforehand. A slight blush creeps onto her face as she considers if his arrival was specifically because of her. Though her internal logic quickly shuts down the idea, reminding her that her vanity might be getting the better of her. After the meal, Song Zicheng prepares to depart in a taxi, instructing Lanshan to return to the hotel. A brief close-up highlights Lanshan's footwear as she heads toward the building. Song walks beside Lanshan, attempting to pivot the conversation back to the brands featured at the summit. Internally, Song laments that his plan to bridge the gap between boss and subordinate has failed. Despite his efforts to spark a personal connection, their interaction remains strictly professional. The two enter the elevator, where Lanshan continues to drone on about the advantages of their shop. Song finally cuts her off, telling her to stop talking about work and go get some rest. Lanshan offers a polite smile and agrees to call it a night. The elevator arrives at the third floor with a sharp chime. Song watches her leave, feeling frustrated that his attempts to get closer only seem to make things worse. As Lanshan walks down the hallway, she suddenly stops in surprise. She finds Feng Qiao sitting on the floor right outside a room. He claims it is a mere coincidence that he happens to be staying on the exact same floor. Holding up a card, he explains that his electronic room lock has completely run out of power. Lanshan stares at him with a look of pure skepticism. She crouches down to his level, clearly not buying his story for a second. Lanshan pokes his cheek, accusing him of pretending to be locked out just to get her attention. Blushing Feng Qiao insists he isn't lying and mentions that housekeeping is already dealing with the issue. Lanshan gets straight to the point, asking if he's just looking for an excuse to enter her room. Feng Qiao gives her a steady, unreadable look in response to the accusation. Lanshan is momentarily taken aback by his serious expression. He leans in slightly, questioning why she would assume he wants to go to her room so badly. Stuttering, Lanshan lists off all the romantic tropes he's been using to create chance encounters. Her rant is cut short when someone calls out to her from the hallway. A hotel staff member arrives, holding a replacement room card to help with the door. Feng Qiao thanks her for the assistance, while Lanshan feels a wave of embarrassment over her assumptions. The staff member attempts to swipe the card against the electronic reader. It turns out the lock really is dead, confirming that Feng Qiao was telling the truth about the power failure. The flustered employee apologizes and promises to have the batteries replaced immediately. An awkward silence settles between the two as they stand alone in the corridor. Finally, a blushing Lanshan tells him to just wait in her room until the lock is fixed. The hotel room door clicks open as Lanshan finally lets her inside. She gestures for Feng Qiao to enter, keeping things polite despite the awkward situation. A fresh pot of tea is prepared, and the hot liquid is poured into a small cup. Lanshan takes her seat across from him, focused on the task of serving the tea to break the silence. Feng Qiao accepts the drink with a simple word of thanks while maintaining a calm demeanor. The two sit together in the traditional-style room, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. Lanshan worries about her appearance, fearing she looks unappealing in front of the person she likes. Tries to start a conversation, but Feng Qiao suddenly turns not to move. He leans forward, his gaze becoming intensely focused on her face. Feng Qiao reaches out toward her chin, narrowing the distance between them. Lanshan blushes deeply, wondering if he is about to lean in for a kiss. She closes her eyes in anticipation, fully expecting a romantic gesture. Instead, Feng Qiao reaches out and taps her forehead with his finger. Lanshan is left completely stunned, her expectations shattered by the sudden move. Feng Qiao looks at her with a serious expression, seemingly confused by her reaction. He explains that he thought a mole on her forehead was actually a bug and was trying to help. Lan Shan feels incredibly embarrassed for her misunderstanding while he offers a brief apology. Internally, Feng Qiao realizes he actually did feel a sudden impulse to get closer to her. The two sit in silence once again, both processing the awkward interaction. Lan Shan takes a sip of her tea and asks why he really came to H City. Feng Qiao claims he is only there to celebrate a cousin's birthday. Lan Shan feels a wave of disappointment, realizing her hopes for his visit were misplaced. Feng Qiao is relieved that his cover story was convincing enough for her to believe. Later on, Lan Shan walks with Song Zicheng outside a massive temple complex. Song Zicheng decides they should ditch the boring business summit to go sightseeing instead. As they walk, Lan Shan's attention is caught by someone standing nearby. Feng Qiao is there, watching the two of them with a neutral expression. Lan Shan is surprised and asks why he isn't at his cousin's birthday celebration. He explains that the party isn't until later and asks why they left the summit early. Song Zicheng looks frustrated, demanding to know how long Feng Qiao intends to follow them. He becomes visibly irritated when Feng Qiao dismisses his concerns with a casual remark. Song Zicheng scoffs at the idea that anyone can just access surveillance footage on a whim. Lan Shan watches the confrontation, wondering why the tension between the two is so high. She recalls a past event where a girl reportedly passed Feng Qiao's specific criteria. That same girl was later seen in a romantic setting with Song Zicheng. A light bulb goes off as Lan Shan realizes the true nature of the rivalry between the two men. Song, Lan Shan, and Feng Qiao stand together in the temple courtyard as they explore the grounds. Lan Shan approaches a monk to purchase wooden wishing plaques for the group. All three of them hold their plaques, looking contemplative as they decide what to write. The monk reminds Lan Shan not to block the path of other visitors in this popular area. Lan Shan sneaks a peek at Feng Qiao while he prepares to write his wish. He catches her looking, resulting in a brief moment of mutual silence. She quickly looks away, worried that her private wish might be discovered by the others. Her plaque reveals a wish for a car dealership, highlighting her career ambitions. Lan Shan then asks the two men what they decided to write on their own boards. Their plaques show unconventional choices like wave function collapse and all is well, leaving her baffled. The group moves through the temple as Lan Shan suggests they see what else the place has to offer. Feng Qiao remains behind for a moment, wondering if the legends about these wishes are true. He stands deep in thought while the others continue their walk. Lan Shan calls out to him from the bottom of a staircase, prompting him to look up. She turns back toward him with a smile as cherry blossom petals fall around her. Feng Qiao stares at her, feeling a sudden flush of heat in his cheeks. He announces that it is getting late and he needs to leave for a family birthday celebration. While Lan Shan says her goodbyes, Song remains suspicious of Feng Qiao's sudden departure. Feng Qiao begins to walk away, leaving the other two behind on the stairs. His footsteps lead him back toward the area where they purchased the plaques. He moves through the crowd with a determined look on his face. He returns to the same monk to request another wishing plaque for himself. Using a brush, he carefully writes a name on the wood with total focus. He views the second plaque as a serious, lifelong commitment. In a light-hearted moment, he explains the meaning of the name to the monk, who finds his logic confusing. The monk jokingly offers him holy water as Feng Qiao checks his phone. He sends a message to a group chat, admitting that he has fallen for a girl. His associates and family members react with pure shock to the unexpected message. They humorously question if the person he likes is actually a human being. Feng Qiao continues his walk, his mind entirely focused on his new discovery. He strolls through the peaceful temple grounds, reflecting on how magical it feels to like someone. He looks toward the horizon, wondering exactly how he should begin his pursuit of Lan Shan. An airplane soars through the clouds as the group begins their journey home from their trip. Feng Qiao spots Lan Shan and Song Zicheng on the plane and offers a friendly wave, much to the boss's annoyance. Lan Shan takes her seat next to Song, surprised to see their rival on the same flight after losing track of him at the temple. A playful Feng Qiao peeks over the headrest from the row behind to keep an eye on his crush. As Song falls into a deep sleep, Lan Shan finds herself stuck in an awkward silence. She hesitates to wake her boss, realizing he needs the rest after their busy schedule. Seizing the opportunity, Feng Qiao successfully negotiates a seat swap with a fellow passenger to get closer. Now sitting directly next to Lan Shan, he boldly admits that he simply wanted to be by her side. Lan Shan is taken aback by his sudden change in attitude, feeling a sense of caution toward his newfound directness. Feng Qiao maintains a gentle, knowing smile as he settles into the seat beside her. When Lan Shan eventually drifts off to sleep, he carefully drapes a blanket over her to keep her comfortable. He gazes at her with an expression filled with genuine affection. Lan Shan remains peacefully asleep, completely unaware of the attention she is receiving. Feng Qiao leans in close to her face, caught up in the quiet moment between them. A slight movement from her causes him to freeze in place. He quickly pulls back, looking startled and slightly embarrassed by his own impulse. Reflecting on his behavior, he starts to question his self-control while his face flushes red. He tries to compose himself, looking away to hide his inner turmoil. Unbeknownst to him, a very awake Song is watching the entire scene with pure disgust from the seat behind. Despite the glare from his rival, Feng Qiao wears a smug expression of victory. He makes a point of staying as close to Lan Shan as possible, driving Song into a silent rage. Back at home, even the household cat seems exhausted from the recent travel drama. The next morning, a tired Lan Shan rushes through breakfast, complaining about having to go straight back to work. Feng Qiao surprises her by handing over a carefully prepared lunchbox he made just for her. He explains that he even sterilized the container to ensure the food stays fresh during the hot day. Lan Shan is visibly touched, wondering why he's suddenly going out of his way to be so kind. He simply smiles back, asking if there is any reason he shouldn't treat her well. Happy with the gesture, Lan Shan encourages him to keep up the good work before heading out. At the office, her colleagues notice the homemade meal and assume she has a very attentive friend. As she opens the container, she discovers a piece of food meticulously cut into a heart shape. She lifts the heart-shaped garnish with her chopsticks, examining the clear message. The realization of the romantic gesture leaves her stunned and blushing. Her coworkers immediately begin teasing her about having a capable partner who knows his way around a kitchen. Lan Shan tries to process the sudden shift in their relationship, questioning what he is trying to tell her. She takes a bite of the symbolic snack, finally acknowledging the effort he put into it. Overjoyed by the possibility of a confession, she enjoys her lunch with a massive smile on her face. Feng Qiao sits at his desk, nervously wondering how Lan Shan will react to the lunchbox he prepared. As the clock strikes 5, he grows anxious because she hasn't responded to his gesture yet. He worries that she might have completely missed the special meaning behind the meat in the meal. Suddenly, his phone rings and he quickly answers the call from Lan Shan. She informs him that she is going out for dinner with a friend and won't be coming home. Before he can respond, she hurriedly says her goodbyes and ends the call. He is left staring blankly at his phone, feeling neglected after his romantic effort. Seeking advice, he messages a group chat to vent about his current troubles. His friends analyze the situation, questioning why he would make a love lunch box in the first place. Meanwhile, Lan Shan vents to her friend on a park bench about whether Feng Qiao actually likes her. She tries to deny the idea, feeling the heavy weight of the situation on her mind. Her friend suggests that her own feelings might be causing her to imagine romantic intentions. The friend watches her closely, noticing how conflicted Lan Shan truly is. She suggests that Lan Shan should test Feng Qiao's feelings directly to avoid future suffering. Lan Shan looks hesitant, unsure if she should follow through with such a plan. The friend whispers a strategy involving a trip to the suburbs to see how Feng Qiao reacts. Walking through the office, Lan Shan feels guilty about the idea of dragging her boss into the scheme. She is startled when she runs right into Feng Qiao while trying to leave. Blushing and flustered, she tries to rush past him to avoid an awkward conversation. She stops herself and tries to maintain her composure while he stands there. Feng Qiao remains silent, recalling his friend's advice about not being ignored by a woman. Lan Shan tells him she is going back if he has nothing important to say. As she reaches for the door handle, Feng Qiao places his hand over hers to stop her from leaving. He asks her to look at him, hoping for some kind of acknowledgement. Lan Shan turns back, visibly flustered by his sudden and direct proximity. He directly asks if she is ignoring him on purpose. She denies it, but points out that his words and the lunchbox are very misleading. Feng Qiao realizes he needs to determine her true feelings before he makes another move. He shifts tactics, claiming he was just trying on a new outfit and holding the door handle. He casually lies about having plans to go out with someone else that evening. Lan Shan is hit with a wave of jealousy, immediately suspecting he is meeting Lu Su. She spitefully suggests he wear a ridiculous combination of floral pants and red socks for his date. She maintains a cold expression while giving him the intentionally terrible fashion advice. Insisting that her advice is perfect, she prepares to make her exit. Before leaving, she mentions she will be going horseback riding with Boss Song instead. Feng Qiao stares after her, looking completely stunned by her announcement. Song Zicheng holds up his phone as a call from Lan Shan comes through. Su Luo sits across from him, warning that Lan Shan might be using him for her own ends. Song remains unfazed, asserting that he won't allow himself to be manipulated by anyone. As Su Luo stands to leave, she reminds him that Lan Shan's true motives are far from simple. She admits that keeping Lan Shan occupied with him serves her own interests in staying close to Feng Qiao. Alone now, Song reflects on how Lan Shan's sudden interest in horseback riding contradicts her previously distant behavior. His train of thought is interrupted when he notices something bizarre happening on his laptop screen. A digital virus has taken over the display, showing a swarm of crawling insects. He stares at the corrupted device, annoyed by the obvious technical sabotage. A notification on his phone pops up with a blunt message from Feng Qiao calling him a loser. Instead of being angry, a small smile plays on Song's lips. He realizes that Feng Qiao's petty prank is a clear sign the man is becoming desperate and anxious. Later, at the equestrian center, several horses are prepped and ready for the day's outing. Lan Shan admires a docile white horse, Noting how gentle and princess-like it seems, Song, dressed in full riding attire, asks her if she'd like to take a ride with him. Lanshan hesitates, worried that riding together might send the wrong message. She politely declines the offer, suggesting she'll just pick a random horse for herself later. Her attention drifts as she looks toward the entrance of the stables. Right on cue, Feng Qiao appears, leading a powerful black horse onto the grounds. He looks sharp in his formal vest, radiating confidence as he approaches. Lanshan is secretly thrilled to see him, confirming her suspicion that he wouldn't stay away. She plays along with the coincidence, asking why he's shown up at the same location. Feng Qiao claims he's only there for fun because his brother happens to keep a horse at this facility. The black horse lets out a loud, impatient huff, showing off its fiery personality. Feng Qiao explains that while the animal has a bit of a temper, it can be easily swayed with some sugar. Lanshan's eyes light up at the idea, immediately reaching for a treat to give the animal. The horse lowers its head to gently take the sugar right out of her hand. She is delighted by the creature's sudden obedience and strokes its face. Feng Qiao quips that the horse shares her love for sweets, creating a lighthearted moment between them. He watches her with a faint, genuine blush, clearly enjoying her company more than he'd admit. From the background, Song watches the pair interact with a sour expression. He feels a sting of jealousy, realizing that despite his superior breed of horse, Lanshan is much more interested in whatever Feng Qiao is doing. Lanshan asks Feng Qiao if he's skilled at riding while they stand by the horse. In his chibi form, Feng Qiao boasts that he can handle riding and photography with ease. Lanshan looks a bit disappointed, thinking it's a waste if he doesn't participate. Feng Qiao hands over the reins, offering her the chance to take the lead. He insists he's content just watching her, while she considers his offer. She looks the horse, weighing her options for the afternoon activity. Lanshan decides to bring him along for the ride anyway, gesturing for him to join. The pair walks together toward the horse to begin their excursion. Lanshan spots Song Zicheng and calls out to get his attention, as she suggests they all ride together, mentioning that more friends are on the way. Song Zicheng and Feng Qiao trade a sharp, silent glance of rivalry. Lanshan is surprised to see the boss keeping his cool around Feng Qiao for once. A wide shot captures the peaceful landscape of rolling hills and fluffy clouds. Someone places their foot firmly into the stirrup to mount the animal. Lanshan takes her seat in the saddle, looking ready for action. Feng Qiao looks up at her, a slight blush appearing as he's invited to climb up. Lanshan extends a helping hand to pull him onto the horse behind her. He accepts the offer, looking both nervous and pleased by the invitation. Once mounted, a shaky chibi Feng Qiao clings to a very focused Lanshan. Feng Qiao leans in close, appearing a bit intimidated by the height of the horse. He stares forward with a mix of concentration and social awkwardness. He instinctively grips Lanshan's waist to stay balanced as they start moving. Surprised by his sudden move, Lanshan looks back to see what's going on. In a comical chibi moment, he admits he's actually quite scared of the ride. Lanshan questions her life choices as she realizes her crush is a bit of a scaredy cat. The horses whose kick up dust as it trots along the trail. They ride through the scenic area, noticing their other companions are nowhere to be found. Feng Qiao leans in close behind her, finding his balance as they travel. Lanshan begins to wonder if Feng Qiao truly shares her feelings. She notes that he at least seems comfortable and happy in her company. She realizes that a relationship won't progress unless someone takes a proactive step. Lanshan's inner thoughts take a mischievous turn as she plots a bold move to win him over. Feng Qiao notices her strange expression and asks if something is wrong. She cheerily tells him she's just happy, leaving him even more confused. Lanshan beckons him to lean closer so she can whisper a secret. Feng Qiao obliges, moving in as she prepares to share her thoughts. The two share a quiet, focused moment of proximity while the horse carries them forward. A white horse neighs loudly, rearing its head into the air. Lanshan watches the scene unfold with a look of pure shock and concern. Song Zicheng sits atop his horse, looking down at the woman with a stern expression. Lanshan realizes her plan has completely backfired as she breaks into a nervous sweat. Back at her desk, Lanshan rubs her temples in frustration, feeling burnt out by her own choices. She receives a sudden message from her boss and looks at her phone in disbelief. Feeling the pressure of authority, she realizes she has no choice but to comply with the request. A bottle of red wine and empty glasses sit on a table, ready for a tense meeting. Lanshan enters the private room, looking hesitant about what is to come. Song Zicheng waits on the couch, looking moody as he swirls a glass of red wine. He acknowledges her arrival with a cold, piercing gaze. Lanshan tries to keep things light with a nervous smile while the boss remains stoic. She looks down in shame as Song Zicheng begins to vent his frustrations about her behavior. He questions his own worth compared to his rival while lounging on the sofa. Lanshan offers a sincere apology, feeling guilty for the misunderstanding. Song Zicheng scoffs at her explanation, clearly not satisfied with her words. He stares down at the floor, appearing deeply hurt by the situation. Lanshan admits her own faults, acknowledging that she has been hypocritical. Song Zicheng grips his wine glass tightly as he prepares to make a serious point. Lanshan laughs off his claims, unable to believe he is being genuine. He takes a long drink of wine, frustrated frustrated that his feelings are not being taken seriously. More wine is poured into the glass as the tension in the room continues to rise. Song Zicheng stands up to face her directly, ending the current line of conversation. He hands a full glass over to her, insisting they talk further after she takes a drink. Lanshan looks at the red liquid, unsure if she should accept the offer. Deciding to get it over with, she takes a large gulp of the wine. She places the empty glass on the table, hoping this concludes their meeting. Lanshan tries to make a quick exit, claiming she still has work to finish. She turns her back to him, ready to walk out the door. A hand slides across a phone screen to silence an incoming call. She gives a formal bow to her boss before attempting to leave the room. Song Zicheng's face flushes red as his emotions finally reach a boiling point. He reaches out and grabs her arm, physically stopping her from walking away. Lanshan gasps in surprise, caught off guard by the sudden physical contact. He pulls her back toward him, confronting her about her desire to leave so quickly. Song Zicheng's expression turns fierce as he demands that she stay and face the consequences. Song Zicheng continues to restrain Lanshan as she struggles to maintain her composure. Amidst the struggle, her mobile device slips out of her pocket and falls onto the seat. The screen lights up with an incoming call notification from Feng Qiao. Lanshan manages to push the intoxicated man away, demanding that he leave her alone. Song Zicheng pleads for another chance while looking visibly distressed. Lanshan begins to feel a sudden wave of weakness, wondering if the alcohol is finally taking its toll. Realizing she needs to act fast, she uses a defensive maneuver to push him back. The force sends him tumbling to the floor, giving her the opportunity to stand up and escape. She quickly reaches down to retrieve her phone from the furniture. She glances at the screen and realizes Feng Qiao is still trying to reach her. A staff member enters the private room after hearing the commotion. The waiter stands there confused, holding a tray filled with various snacks and drinks. He explains that a man named Qiao requested that these refreshments be delivered immediately. Lanshan takes the call, looking relieved to hear a familiar voice on the other end. Outside on the street, a taxi waits by the curb under a bright sky. Feng Qiao speaks into his phone from inside the car, checking on her safety. She assures him that she is safe and thanks him for sending the staff member to intervene. Lanshan prepares to exit the room as her former boss sits defeated in the background. The waiter watches as she makes a hasty exit from the tense situation. Song Zicheng reaches out a hand toward her, desperately asking her not to leave. Ignoring his pleas, she turns her back on him and walks through the doorway. Left alone, he clutches his head in frustration, lamenting his latest mistake. Lanshan steps out of the building and scans the area for her ride. A vehicle quickly pulls up to the entrance to meet her. Feng Qiao leaps out of the car and rushes toward her with a worried expression. He immediately pulls her into a supportive embrace to comfort her. He admits that the situation had him incredibly worried for her well-being. The two stand together on the sidewalk, finding a moment of peace. Lanshan leans into the gesture, grateful for the timely rescue. The afternoon sky remains clear as the tension finally begins to dissipate. They stay close for a moment longer before preparing to leave the area. The scene shifts to the calm waters nearby as they move away from the hotel. They sit together in the back of the taxi as it drives through the city. Feng Qiao asks if she wants to take legal action, but she notes a lack of physical evidence. She worries that his financial influence would make any formal complaint difficult. Feng Qiao humorously insists that they can find a solution if they work together. Lanshan looks out the window, resolved to handle the fallout on her own terms. Feng Qiao offers Lanshan a bowl of cherries to help her relax after the stressful night. She starts snacking on them while sitting on the couch, appearing much more composed. Her attention is suddenly drawn to something on the floor nearby. She points toward a gift box sitting near the dresser that has Luosu's name on it. Feng Qiao explains that it is simply a dessert sent over by his former partner. Lanshan immediately starts questioning him about his past relationship with the woman. He looks away with a somber expression, recalling the history between them. Lanshan demands the full story, and he reveals the relationship ended because the woman was unfaithful with Zicheng Song. He admits that the two of them were never a good match to begin with. Lanshan huffs in annoyance, wondering why he'd even bother keeping a gift from someone like that. The two sit together in the quiet living room as the conversation turns more personal. Overwhelmed by the turn of events, Lanshan kicks her legs in a flustered state of excitement. She quickly tries to compose herself and sit properly to maintain a more professional appearance. Feng Qiao watches her closely, asking if she truly doubts his sincerity. Lanshan gathers her courage and asks him directly if he has feelings for her. He pauses for a moment, his expression becoming serious as he considers her question. Blushing, he asks if he is allowed to pursue her and show his affection. Internally, Lanshan is screaming with joy at the sudden confession. Feng Qiao remains visibly flustered as he waits for her reaction. A heavy silence fills the room as they look at one another, processing the weight of his words. He looks at her with an earnest and hopeful gaze, wanting a clear answer. Lanshan avoids eye contact, her face turning bright red from the intensity of the moment. She suddenly stands up, claiming she is too exhausted and needs to head to bed. Feng Qiao assumes she is still rattled by the earlier incident with Zicheng, and doesn't push further. He watches her walk away toward her room, wishing her a good night's rest. She reaches her doorway and looks back one last time before entering. She steps inside and prepares to close the door behind her. Once alone, she leans against the door, trying to calm her racing heart. She can't contain her excitement and makes a goofy, triumphant face. She starts dancing around the room, celebrating the fact that he finally admitted his feelings. In her excitement, she forms a heart with her arms over her head, only to realize the door is opening. Feng Qiao stands at the entrance with a smirk, having caught her in the act. Lanshan is mortified and covers her face, wishing she could disappear. He steps forward and places a steadying hand on her to keep her from falling over. Holding her in place, he asks if she was just about to admit that she loves him too. Lanshan's face flushes a deep crimson as she realizes she's been caught in her private celebration. She tries to play it off as a simple exercise routine, while Feng Qiao playfully keeps her from fleeing. The two stand in close proximity as the tension between them continues to build. Feng Qiao leans in, admitting that he never wanted to make her feel pressured or uncomfortable during his confession. He gently lifts her chin to meet his gaze, asking directly if she truly intends to reject him. Lanshan looks away, her heart racing as she struggles to find the right words. Finally, she admits that she has no intention of turning him down, confirming her mutual feelings. The two share a tender, romantic moment as they finally solidify their new relationship. Their hands intertwine, sealing the bond between them in the quiet hallway. After a lingering moment, they slowly pull apart, both clearly affected by the exchange. Feng Qiao wears a triumphant and affectionate smile, looking relieved by her answer. Lanshan is equally smitten, her expression softening with pure happiness. They share one last close look, savoring the atmosphere of the night. Feng Qiao officially addresses her as his girlfriend before heading off, leaving her stunned and joyful. Later that night, Lanshan hums a cheerful tune while getting ready for bed, unable to hide her excitement. She practically dives onto her mattress, overwhelmed by the events of the evening. Lying there with a massive grin, she can't stop replaying the confession in her head. As she drifts off to sleep, she whispers a quiet good night to her new boyfriend. The next morning arrives with a peaceful atmosphere surrounding the house. In the kitchen, someone is busy decorating heart-shaped treats with careful precision. Feng Qiao greets the day with a plate of freshly made cookies and a bright smile for his partner. Lanshan joins him, surprised by the thoughtful gesture. Though she wonders if he is heading to work, she expresses concern about her own career, fearing she'll be fired after her recent confrontation with the boss. Feng Qiao watches her with a playful, knowing look while she frets over her uncertain professional future. Lanshan playfully confronts him for being so calm while she worries about being a burden. He simply smiles and reminds her that he is already supporting her and has everything under control. His words send another wave of heat to her cheeks as she realizes how much he cares for her. Feng Qiao then calls her name to get her attention for a specific request. He asks her for a quick favor, catching her off guard with his serious tone. He explains that his family is curious and asks if she'll take a photo with him to show them they are officially a couple. Lanshan immediately rushes off to touch up her makeup, wanting to look her best for the introduction. She returns quickly, even bringing the cat along to join the family portrait. Feng Qiao suggests they stand closer together to look like a more convincing and affectionate couple. Lanshan leans into him, following his lead as they prepare for the photo. With a quick click of phone, they capture a perfect, happy moment of their new life together. A smartphone sits idle on a surface, catching the light. Feng Qiao pulls Lanshan close for a romantic kiss while they relax together. Lanshan smiles brightly, teasing him for turning a simple photo session into a romantic moment. Their pet cat is absolutely horrified by the public display of affection. The startled feline leaps away, leaving the couple surprised by its sudden exit. The grumpy cat expresses its annoyance while Lanshan tries to apologize for the disturbance. The pet stalks off with an attitude, clearly unimpressed by the human's behavior. Feng Qiao and Lanshan share a soft, affectionate gaze as the mood settles. Lanshan stretches happily, enjoying the fact that she has the entire day off. Feng Qiao suggests that they spend their free time going on a proper date. Getting ready for their outing, Lanshan carefully applies her lipstick. She checks her reflection in the mirror, feeling confident in her chosen outfit for the day. Lanshan opens the door with a cheerful smile, ready to head out. She is met with a mental image of Feng Qiao wearing a truly disastrous combination of a tank top, floral shorts, and red socks. While she looks on in horror, Feng Qiao mistakenly thinks he has nailed the perfect trendy look. Fearing a fashion emergency, Lanshan demands that he change his clothes immediately. Feng Qiao looks confused, not understanding why his experimental style is a problem. The two engage in a playful tug-of-war as she tries to fix his wardrobe. Lanshan clarifies her intentions while Feng Qiao finally agrees to find a more sensible outfit. They arrive at the theme park, where Lanshan points excitedly at a massive water ride. Feng Qiao hesitates, admitting that the drop looks a bit too extreme for his liking. Lanshan grabs his hand and insists the ride won't be scary at all. Seeing her enthusiasm, he blushes and decides to brave the attraction for her sake. The boat begins its steep ascent up the tracks, heading toward the big drop. Once they reach the top, it's Lanshan who starts panicking while Feng Qiao stays surprisingly calm. The boat teeters on the edge of the summit as the anticipation builds. They plummet down the slide at high speed, creating a massive wave of water. The couple emerges from the ride completely drenched, with Lanshan looking a bit worse for wear. A park employee shows them the hilarious souvenir photo captured during their descent. Feng Qiao decides to take the photo, teasing his girlfriend about keeping evidence of her scared face. They continue their walk through the park, moving on to the next attraction. Lanshan's eyes light up when she spots an ice cream stand nearby. Feng Qiao tries to play the responsible boyfriend, warning her against eating too much cold food after the ride. He holds up a fluffy cotton candy instead, standing firm on his no ice cream rule. The two share a sweet, private moment behind the cover of the oversized pink treat. Lanshan uses her best charms to convince him to let her have just one small indulgence. Lanshan nails a perfect bullseye at a carnival game and cheers for her victory. Feng Qiao collects a massive prize bear from a distraught stall owner who can't believe their luck. The pair heads off with their loot, carrying a collection of plush toys as they continue their date. Lanshan excitedly pulls her partner toward the next attraction under the evening lights. Feng Qiao watches her with a warm expression, realizing how much more fun the park is with her. As fireworks light up the sky, Lanshan points them out and suggests taking a commemorative photo. He remains captivated by her joy, finding her enthusiasm more interesting than the display. They review their new selfie together, capturing a happy moment from their night out. Lanshan jokes that the giant bear is the perfect size for him to cuddle at night. Feng Qiao leans in close, clarifying that he much prefers the company of his girlfriend. The comment leaves her completely flustered and blushing as they share a quiet moment. The following morning, the scene shifts to the Tatayo corporate headquarters. Director Wang is stunned when Lanshan unexpectedly presents him with a formal resignation letter. She remains composed, determined to leave the company on her own terms, rather than waiting for trouble. The director tries to understand the sudden departure, asking if she's facing any specific issues. Song Zicheng suddenly enters the office, interrupting the tense meeting. The atmosphere shifts immediately as the boss notices the resignation papers sitting on the desk. He requests a private conversation with Lanshan, prompting the director to quickly excuse himself. Song Zicheng stands across from her with a grim expression, filling the room with tension. Lanshan stares back coldly, refusing to be intimidated by his presence. She breaks the silence by casually asking about the status of his previous injuries. He is taken aback, wondering if she actually still harbors concern for him after their history. Lanshan offers a bright, cheerful smile once he confirms that he is recovering well. That smile quickly vanishes as she delivers a swift physical strike to settle her grievances. She takes the opportunity to fully vent her frustrations before officially walking away from the job. Song Zicheng is left dazed on the floor, nursing his fresh bruises. Lanshan dismisses him with a final farewell, preparing to exit the office for good. He struggles to his feet, clearly shaken by the confrontation. Dropping his pride, he offers a sincere apology for his past behavior. He begs her to reconsider her resignation, hoping her physical outburst satisfied her anger. Lanshan remains unmoved, stating that while they are even, she is still moving on to a new path. He grows desperate, insisting that his feelings for her are genuine and asking for another chance. He reaches out to stop her, grabbing her arm in a last-ditch effort to keep her from leaving. She looks at him with pure annoyance, questioning his sincerity after everything that happened. The boss is stunned into silence when she reveals that she is already in a committed relationship. She informs him that her boyfriend is actually arriving at that very moment to pick her up. The sound of heavy footsteps echoes through the hallway, signaling an imminent arrival. A sudden intervention occurs as someone strikes out to defend Lanshan's personal space. Feng Qiao appears at the door, warning the boss to keep his hands off his girlfriend. Song Zicheng lunges forward in a blind rage. Feng Qiao effortlessly counters the attack while Lanshan watches the struggle in disbelief. Feng Qiao maintains a cold and focused expression during the confrontation. Lanshan is completely stunned by this assertive version of her boyfriend. She quickly grabs Song Zicheng's arm to prevent the situation from escalating further. Feng Qiao's gaze remains sharp as he prepares his next move. He executes a swift leg sweep to bring his opponent to the ground. Feng Qiao pins the other man down, demonstrating superior physical control. He delivers a stern warning for the man to stay away from Lanshan. Song Zicheng lies defeated on the floor with a bruised face. The couple leaves the scene immediately, leaving the boss behind on the tiles. Lanshan continues to observe her boyfriend's unusually grim demeanor. She internally notes that he seems like a completely different person right now. As they walk outside, she questions him about his behavior. Feng Qiao admits that he accidentally consumed some alcohol earlier. Lanshan feels a sense of relief, knowing there is a simple explanation for his actions. She realizes that the drink triggered his uncharacteristic outburst of anger. She admits that his protective actions were actually quite impressive. Feng Qiao remains quiet and stoic despite her compliments. Lanshan asks asks if the effects of the drink are still making him grumpy. She expresses confusion over why he is suddenly ignoring her. He explains that he is currently struggling to keep his temper in check. Lanshan encourages him to be honest about his feelings instead of holding back. Feng Qiao's irritability flares up again when a stranger gets too close. Lanshan playfully asks him to show her his intense side. He asks why she chose to grab the other man instead of holding him back. She explains that restraining the opponent made it easier for him to win the fight. She continues to check on his mood as they head home. Feng Qiao makes a dramatic and forceful entry into the apartment. The pet cat immediately greets him by clinging to his leg. Lanshan picks up the cat, which looks visibly confused by the tension. She comforts the pet while trying to lighten the atmosphere. The two sit down on the sofa to finally address the lingering tension. Lanshan moves closer to inspect his face for any injuries. She smiles warmly at him, asking if he feels better now. Feng Qiao's expression softens as a visible blush appears on his face. He leans in toward her as the mood in the room shifts. Lanshan tries to push Feng Qiao away while they are close on the couch, telling him to get up. She threatens to get angry if he doesn't move immediately. Feng Qiao looks down with a dazed and apologetic expression. In a playful visual, he admits that he can't hold back his feelings any longer. Lanshan insists they are moving too fast and tells him to find another way to calm down. He reminds her that she previously told him not to hold anything back. She quickly retorts that those were two completely different situations and demands he get up. Feng Qiao leans in close, whispering for her to help him. Lanshan struggles to remain firm, reminding herself of her own principles. He continues to plead for her assistance while staying close. She finds his helpless behavior nearly impossible to resist. The two share a quiet, lingering moment of proximity. He gently takes hold of her hand. Their cat, Schrödinger, sits nearby watching them with a very judging look. Lanshan realizes the cat is watching, and Feng Qiao tells the pet to leave. The cat promptly jumps off the furniture and heads away. With the room finally empty, the couple shares a brief embrace. Lanshan pulls away, feeling incredibly flustered. Feng Qiao looks at her and claims he is finally feeling fine. She tells him to hurry up and let go of her hand now that he's better. He clarifies that the lingering effects of the alcohol have finally passed. A hand reaches into a tissue box to pull one out. Feng Qiao uses the tissue to carefully clean Lanshan's hand. In a chibi scene, she calls him out for acting shy after his bold behavior. She announces her departure, trying to hide her embarrassment. He offers her a sincere thanks as she prepares to leave. Lanshan pauses, confused about why he is thanking her at a time like this. She exits the room and closes the door with a loud bang. The scene shifts to a running shower head as someone prepares to wash up. Back at her own place, Lanshan can't stop thinking about the evening's events. Lanshan calculates her savings, realizing she has 300,000 to tide her over. She feels relieved that she won't be going hungry anytime soon after leaving her job. However, the reality of unemployment starts to sink in as she wonders what her next career move should be. Suddenly, she receives a phone call from her father. Her face pales when she hears the news that her mother requires immediate surgery. Feng Qiao enters the room to invite her to meet his parents, unaware of the crisis. Panicked, Lanshan begins frantically packing her belongings into a suitcase. Her expression is filled with dread as she focuses on getting home as quickly as possible. She explains the situation to a concerned Feng Qiao, revealing her mother has a tumor. Though it's likely benign, she insists on returning home to provide support. Feng Qiao pulls her into a comforting embrace and offers to fly back with her. Lanshan gently declines, reminding him that he needs to stay and welcome his own parents. She wipes away her tears as they agree she should head back to her hometown alone for now. A heavy silence falls between them as the weight of the situation sets in. Feng Qiao watches her with a look of deep concern and sadness. He asks if she has ever mentioned their relationship to her family. Lanshan grabs her luggage, preparing for the journey ahead. Feng Qiao looks on with worry as she walks out the door to catch her flight. Upon arriving at the airport, she makes her way through the terminal with her red suitcase. She spots her father waiting for her, dressed in traditional clothing. A brief moment of joy passes over her face as she calls out to him. Her father offers a warm, welcoming smile to his returning daughter. They head straight to the hospital where her mother is being treated. Lanshan stays by her mother's bedside, offering fruit and company. She reveals that she has resigned from her job, prioritizing her mother's health over her career. Her mother is taken aback by the sudden news of her daughter's unemployment. She asks Lanshan what her plans are for the future once things settle down. Lanshan admits she is uncertain about what her next steps will be. Her mother holds her hand and suggests that she simply move back home for good. The suggestion leaves Lanshan in deep thought about her life in the city. Her contemplation is interrupted by an incoming call from Feng Qiao. She excuses herself from the room to take the private call in the hallway. Lanshan answers the phone, wondering why he's calling at this hour. Feng Qiao simply tells her that he called because he already misses her. Lanshan misses Feng Qiao despite only being apart for a short time. Feng Qiao stands by the window while checking in on the mother's successful recovery. Feng Qiao listens intently, his expression growing more serious as the conversation continues. He expresses a desire to visit and meet her parents formally in the near future. Lanshan appears visibly conflicted by the prospect of him traveling to see her right now. Feng Qiao processes her refusal as she insists he stay to celebrate with his own parents. Lanshan's gaze becomes heavy with emotion while she contemplates the difficulty of their distance, as she quickly ends the call to attend to her mother, leaving the conversation unfinished. Feng Qiao sits on the floor with his cat, haunted by the thought of a long-distance relationship. He realizes that Lanshan might be planning to leave the city and return home permanently. A heavy rainstorm drapes over the residential buildings as the night goes on. At the hospital, Lanshan's father urges her to get some rest while her mother prepares for discharge. Lanshan heads toward the exit, ready to head back home for a much-needed break. She stops in her tracks, her eyes widening in total disbelief at what she sees outside. Feng Qiao stands alone in the pouring rain, looking worn out and somber. Lanshan rushes out of the building, shouting a quick goodbye to her startled parents. As she runs to Feng Qiao's side, holding an umbrella over him to shield him from the storm, Feng Qiao offers a tired but relieved smile now that they are finally reunited. The two stand close together under the umbrella as he explains his sudden decision to travel. Lanshan grabs his hand and leads him toward her home to dry off and get warm. Once inside, they face each other in the quiet hallway to talk things through. Lanshan looks up at him, her expression filled with deep worry and confusion. Feng Qiao asks if she would break things off if he couldn't handle the distance. Lanshan looks away, her heart heavy with the burden of her family responsibilities. She becomes emotional, explaining that she needs to be near her aging parents and cannot stay in the city. Feng Qiao watches her with a look of deep resolve and affection. He pulls her into a firm embrace to provide much-needed comfort and support. Lanshan is stunned into silence by the intensity of his gesture. Feng Qiao looks at her and promises to relocate to her city so they can remain together. Lanshan is shocked by his willingness to uproot his entire life for her. He explains that his academic work is flexible enough to be done from any location. Tears fall as Lanshan calls him foolish for making such a massive sacrifice. Feng Qiao leans in, telling her that her happiness is his only priority in life. His eyes show his unwavering determination to make their relationship work no matter what. Lanshan leans against him, finally letting out her pent-up emotions and fears. Feng Qiao gently lifts her chin to meet her gaze one last time. The couple shares a heartfelt kiss, solidifying their commitment to stay by each other's side. Feng Qiao holds Lanshan close, gently comforting her after her emotional confession. The intimate moment is cut short when Lanshan's father appears on the stairs, having overheard their heartfelt conversation. He invites them inside, mentioning that he and her mother have something important to discuss. The group makes their way into the room to settle the matter once and for all. Feng Qiao stays quiet and respectful, sipping on a warm drink, while the family talks. He listens intently as the atmosphere in the room shifts toward a serious family discussion. Lanshan's father admits he was worried about her, but realized after listening that she has found a partner who truly cares. However, both parents reveal they actually disagree with her decision to stay home just for their sake. Her mother explains that while she's always welcome back to rest, they don't want her to sacrifice her own life and career goals. Overwhelmed by their selflessness, Lanshan tearfully asks who will look after them if she leaves. Her parents insist they can still take care of themselves and want her to live without the weight of being a burden. They urge her to make a choice from her heart, rather than out of a sense of obligation. Her father places a comforting hand on her head, emphasizing that her happiness is what truly matters to them. Touched by their unconditional love, Lanshan sheds tears of relief and gratitude. From the doorway, Feng Qiao observes the touching scene, feeling the strength of their family bond. He wears a soft smile, realizing that the path forward for their relationship is finally clear. 2 days pass, and the scene shifts to a bright afternoon at the family's residence. Feng Qiao arrives for an official visit, looking sharp and carrying several gift bags for the parents. He is warmly welcomed into the home as Lanshan and her father take the thoughtful offerings. The group sits down for a pleasant meal, finally enjoying a relaxed and happy atmosphere together. After eating, Feng Qiao shows his polite nature by insisting on helping his host with the dishes. Lanshan tries to stick by her mother's side, but her mother encourages her to go out and enjoy the day instead. The parents playfully nudge Lanshan to stop hovering and go show Feng Qiao around the city. Left alone, the couple shares a quiet, meaningful look before heading out on their date. As they walk through the park, they link hands, feeling the freedom of their new situation. Feng Qiao teases her about finally getting official approval, while Lanshan jokingly tells him to keep dreaming. From the balcony, her parents watch them walk away, satisfied with how things turned out. Her father breathes a sigh of relief, happy to see his daughter finally settling down with someone reliable. The couple spends the day exploring the local museum, enjoying each other's company in the quiet halls. Lanshan enthusiastically suggests they try horseback riding for their next adventure together. Feng Qiao seems a bit preoccupied as they head back, his mind clearly on something else. Lanshan notices his distracted state and asks if he's ready to head into his room. He pulls out his key card and unlocks the door to the room. Upon entering, he spots something unexpected resting on the bed. Lanshan puts on a bit of an act, pretending to be just as surprised by the mysterious item. Feng Qiao lifts the covers to reveal a neatly wrapped gift box waiting for him. Lanshan beams with excitement, eager for him to open the special surprise she prepared. Qiaofeng opens a box to find a thoughtful photo album documenting their relationship. Lanshan explains that she worked with the hotel reception to hide the surprise in his room. He thanks her for the birthday gift while carefully examining the contents of the box. Seeing his calm exterior, Lanshan worries that he might not actually like the present. She takes his hand and tries to lighten the mood by suggesting they go out for a birthday dinner. As she starts to lead the way out, Qiaofeng follows her silently with a thoughtful expression. He suddenly stops her in her tracks by tightening his grip on her hand. Qiaofeng pulls her into a close, emotional embrace to show his true feelings, and the door to the room shuts firmly as the couple focuses on each other. Qiaofeng lifts Lanshan up, catching her completely by surprise with his sudden energy. He looks at her with a sincere smile and admits that he is incredibly happy with her. Lanshan realizes that his earlier calm was just him taking a moment to process his excitement. The two share a quiet, meaningful moment together in the privacy of the room. Lanshan rests her hand on the bedding as the atmosphere between them grows more serious. Qiaofeng looks her directly in the eyes and finally confesses his love for her. Lanshan is visibly moved by his words, her eyes widening in surprise and joy. She stares back at him, clearly overwhelmed by the depth of his feelings. Qiaofeng leans in close to whisper a question as they plan their next steps together. Lanshan holds onto him tightly, her face flushed with emotion from the confession. The couple shares a long, supportive hug as they enjoy this milestone in their relationship. Outside, even the local birds seem to give the two some space on their busy night. Later on, Lanshan prepares for the day ahead in the bathroom. Qiaofeng thanks her one more time, emphasizing how much he truly values her birthday gift. The next morning, Lanshan sees Qiaofeng off as he prepares to head back to his hotel. She waves a cheerful goodbye as he makes his way down the stairs. Walking away with a satisfied smile, Qiaofeng pulls out his phone to handle some business. He dials his financial consultant to discuss a major new investment. Despite the late hour, he reaches out to make a specific request for his future plans. On the other end of the line, the consultant is so shocked by the request that he spits out his drink. The consultant demands clarification, stunned that Qiaofeng wants to purchase an entire car dealership. Lanshan meets with a colleague to address a previous confession. She politely turns him down, explaining that her heart is already set on someone else. The man takes the rejection gracefully, though he appears slightly embarrassed. Meanwhile, Wu Wen walks through the office with an assistant to discuss his schedule for the evening. He stops in his tracks when he notices Lanshan talking with the other man. His expression quickly shifts to one of cold disapproval as he watches them. Without a word, he reaches out and firmly takes hold of Lanshan's arm. He pulls her away from the conversation, insisting that she focus on her professional obligations. Lanshan is left completely stunned by his sudden and forceful intervention. Wu Wen looks genuinely angry, even going as far as to threaten her job if she doesn't follow him. Intimidated by his intensity, she quickly complies to avoid any further trouble. Her former suitor can only watch in silence as the two of them depart. As they walk away, Lanshan's thoughts drift back to the person she truly cares for. Later that night, Wu Wen escorts a tired Lanshan toward a waiting car. He provides her with steady support, noting that she seems to be struggling after a long day. Once inside the vehicle, he watches her rest while recalling how much energy she usually has. He tells her to stay still when she starts shifting uncomfortably in her seat. Lanshan opens her eyes and looks at him with a dazed, slightly flushed expression. She appears to be in a bit of a fog as she stares back at him. Wu Wen finds himself blushing as the distance between them suddenly closes. In her state of exhaustion, she leans in closer toward him. She leans forward and places a quick, innocent peck on his cheek. Immediately afterward, she settles back down to rest comfortably against his shoulder. The unexpected gesture leaves Wu Wen completely stunned and deep in thought. He gently holds her arm to ensure she remains steady during the drive. Lanshan remains quiet as she drifts off into a light sleep. As the car travels through the city at night, she sleepily mutters his name. A small, knowing smile appears on Wu Wen's face as they continue their journey. Sometime later, Wu Wen is seen helping out in the kitchen while feeling very confident. He diligently prepares vegetables while others observe his somewhat clumsy technique. A pile of vegetable scraps ends up on the floor as he continues his work. His companion watches the messy process with a look of genuine concern. Suddenly, an older woman enters the kitchen and scolds the men for the mess they've made. Lanshan steps in and politely offers to assist with the meal preparations. The woman kindly insists that she relax in the living room instead of dealing with the kitchen chaos. Lanshan looks a bit disappointed that her attempt to maintain a helpful image was turned down, and The older woman laughs off the kitchen chaos while the younger boy rubs a bump on his head. She shoos Lanshan and the others toward the living room so she can finish dinner in peace. Lanshan and Feng Qiao share a warm, quiet moment as they leave the kitchen. Watching them, the elder smiles, thinking about how well their personalities complement each other. They find Grandpa in the living room, focused on his newspaper. He looks up with a kind expression and invites everyone to take a seat. Lanshan brightly thanks him for the delicious meal he prepared earlier. Grandpa chuckles at her enthusiasm, causing her to blush. While peeling an apple, Feng Qiao chats with his friend about Lanshan's perspective on the family. He mentions that there might have been a bit of a misunderstanding on her part. Feng Qiao explains that Lanshan actually thought Grandpa was a village chief. The news is so unexpected that his friend nearly spits out his drink in shock. Lanshan looks confused and asks for clarification on Grandpa's actual title. Grandpa laughs and explains he was a leader in the army, not a village official. Feeling incredibly embarrassed, Lanshan offers a sincere apology for her mistake. The tension fades as the family settles in for a lively dinner together. Monday morning arrives, and the scene shifts to the towering office building where Lanshan works. She stands outside the elevator, letting out a massive yawn after a long weekend. Just as the doors are about to close, a hand reaches out to stop them. Lanshan is startled to find her boss, Wu Wen, standing directly in front of her. The elevator doors shut, trapping the two of them alone in the small space. Wu Wen suddenly leans in and places his arm against the wall to block her path. He looks down at her and declares that he has finally caught up with her. Lanshan looks up nervously, feeling the pressure of his intense gaze. He confronts her directly, asking if she remembers her actions from the previous Friday night. Trying to play it cool, she claims she was too out of it to recall any details. Wu Wen becomes animated and dramatically accuses her of overstepping her bounds with him. The accusation leaves Lanshan completely flustered and at a loss for words. He reaches out to touch her hair and asks if she has a genuine crush on him. She tries to deflect the question by suggesting she may have mistaken him for someone else. Wu Wen leans closer and points out that she specifically used his name during the encounter. Her eyes widen as she realizes she can no longer hide the truth. She dwells on her long-held secret feelings and the pain of a potential rejection. Overwhelmed by the situation, she tries to push past him and make an exit. She reaches for the elevator button, desperate to escape the uncomfortable conversation. Tears begin to fall as she feels like her sincere feelings are being mocked. Wu Wen's expression shifts to one of concern as he realizes his teasing has caused real distress. Lanshan holds up a single glass of bubbly drink while sitting at a quiet bar. She sits alone, staring blankly at her phone while nursing her beverage. A social media post of the drink appears on her screen with a caption about sadness. She sighs, realizing her best friend is the only one she can truly count on as her phone begins to ring. The call fails to go through, leaving Lanshan confused by the busy signal. She tries a second time, greeting the recipient with a forced, cheerful smile. On the other end, a couple is occupied and tells her not to call back tonight. Lanshan stares at her phone in silence after the call is abruptly disconnected. The sudden rejection leaves her looking shocked and completely flustered. She collapses onto the bar counter, crying out about her feelings of loneliness. Her friend notices the sad social media post and immediately grows concerned for Lanshan's well-being. Ignoring her phone, Lanshan continues to drink alone at the bar counter. Feeling the effects of the drink, she stands up and decides it is time to head home. A random stranger approaches the stumbling Lanshan and reaches out to her. He flashes a smile and offers to buy her another drink. Lanshan looks at him with a dazed and unfocused expression, and suddenly a hand reaches out and firmly grabs the stranger's wrist to intervene. Wu Wen appears out of nowhere, scaring off the stranger and demanding Lanshan follow him. The scene shifts to the quiet, moonlit streets outside the venue. Lanshan finally snaps out of her daze and tries to pull her hand away from his grip. Wu Wen turns back and scolds her for being at a bar alone so late at night. He brings up her past confession, questioning why she would act this way if she truly had feelings for him. Tears begin to well up in Lanshan's eyes as the confrontation grows more intense. Seeing her cry again, Wu Wen instantly regrets his harsh tone and pauses. Lanshan stands her ground, her feet planted firmly as she faces him. She suddenly reaches forward and pulls him into a close embrace. Wu Wen freezes in surprise, his face flushing at the sudden proximity. Instead of a tender moment, Lanshan forcefully headbutts him in a fit of frustration. Wu Wen reels back in pain, clutching his bruised forehead while looking completely bewildered. Lanshan immediately drops to the ground and huddles in a ball, overwhelmed by her emotions. Wu Wen quickly softens and tries to apologize while reaching out to comfort her. Lanshan looks up with a tear-stained, flushed face. She finally admits through her sobs that she really does like him. Wu Wen looks into her eyes and starts to confess that he feels the same way. Lanshan cuts him off, venting about how she has liked him for 12 years and feels he is just mocking her sincerity. Wu Wen stands there in total shock, stunned by the weight of her long-term feelings. Lanshan vents her frustration at Wu Wen, claiming she was blind to fall for him. Wu Wen stays silent as Lanshan's eyes fill with tears. He reaches out and gently takes her hand to stop her from leaving. Wu Wen pulls her into a tight embrace, apologizing for his previous ignorance of her long-term feelings. Lanshan is caught off guard by his sudden change in attitude. He holds her close and finally confesses that he shares the same feelings for her. Lanshan's eyes widen in absolute shock at the unexpected admission. The emotional moment is cut short as the intoxicated Lanshan accidentally gets sick all over her boss. The scene shifts to a hospital where Lanshan is brought for medical attention. A doctor informs Wu Wen that she has a slight concussion and needs to remain under observation. Lanshan lies in the hospital bed with a bandage on her forehead, while Wu Wen watches over her. Wu Wen remains by her side, unwilling to leave her alone. He offers her an apple to help her settle, but she stubbornly tells him to leave. She pouts from under the covers, insisting that she won't forgive him so easily for the past. Wu Wen looks at her with a serious expression and asks her to officially be his girlfriend. Lanshan blushes deeply as she considers the weight of his proposal. He leans in and tells her that a kiss will seal their promise to be together. She looks up at him, feeling nervous about taking the next step. Her heart races as she looks into his eyes, still processing the situation. The two share a tender kiss in the middle of the hospital room. They remain in a quiet embrace, finally acknowledging their mutual bond. Elsewhere, a couple arrives at a car dealership for what is promised to be a surprise. The woman is confused about why they are there, especially since she recently resigned. Her partner leads her toward the entrance of the building. The staff inside immediately greet them with deep bows, addressing the woman as the boss's wife. She walks into the showroom, surrounded by welcoming employees. The woman's jaw drops as she tries to make sense of the grand welcome. He reveals that he has purchased the entire dealership as a gift for her future career. She is stunned to learn that he now owns the very place where she used to work. He explains that since she is already familiar with the business, it's the perfect environment for her. She worries about the massive cost of the gift, feeling overwhelmed by the gesture. He looks at her with nothing but affection and reassurance. He pulls her close, reminding her that he only cares about having her by his side. He smiles gently, looking forward to their future life together as a married couple. He leads her further into the showroom to show her one more surprise. Her eyes light up as she sees what is waiting for her. They stand in front of a luxury sports car parked in the center of the room. He explains that it's time for them to have a vehicle that reflects their new status. She mentions how he used to be reluctant to spend money on such expensive items. He embraces her, explaining that he wants to drive her everywhere so she never has to deal with the crowded subway again. The evening begins with a lavish candlelight dinner spread across a beautifully decorated table. The couple shares a celebratory toast, clinking their glasses together in the dim light. Lanshan thanks Qiaofeng for being so remarkably good to her during their meal. They share a tender look, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of their date. The two lean in to share a close romantic moment over the remains of their dinner. Lanshan reaches out to touch him gently as they remain locked in their embrace. She initiates a deep hug, fully embracing the romance of the evening. Qiaofeng seems briefly surprised by the intensity of her affection. Suddenly, he breaks the mood by telling her she should head home for the night. This unexpected rejection leaves Lanshan completely stunned and confused. She stomps away toward the door, kicking off her shoes in frustration after being sent away. Just as she gets inside, her phone begins to buzz with an incoming call from him. She answers with a bit of an attitude, asking why he's calling after making her leave. He simply smiles and instructs her to head out to her balcony. Curious about his request, she walks toward the large curtains covering the glass doors. When she pulls them back, she is greeted by a breathtaking display of blooming flowers filling the space. Dozens of vibrant pink roses have been arranged perfectly for her to find. As she leans over the railing to admire the surprise, her anger quickly fading away. Suddenly, she spots movement and looks across to the neighboring building. Qiaofeng is standing right there on his own balcony, watching her reaction with a smile. He playfully asks when she plans on paying him back for all the meals she's eaten at his place. Lanshan asks how much money he's looking for to settle the tab. He clarifies that he doesn't want any money, he only wants her. The realization of what he's implying hits her, and she starts to feel flustered. As she processes his words, the romantic atmosphere around the balconies intensifies. Their cat, Schrodinger, suddenly trots out among the flowers to join her. She scoops a pet, wondering how he managed to get out there. She notices a small silver keepsake charm hanging from the cat's collar and realizes it's a gift. Her eyes well up with emotion as the weight of the moment truly sinks in. Qiaofeng calls her name from across the way to get her full attention. With the stage set, he officially asks her to marry him. Lanshan looks at him with pure joy, her heart racing at the proposal. Holding the cat close, she prepares to give the answer he's been waiting for. She agrees to the proposal, and the scene transitions to the happy couple celebrating their future together in formal attire.